Hello, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another round of the Rapid Drivers Club 2.4 World Tour Season 2, as hosted on Assetto Corsa Competizione, sponsored by Watkins Racing. And today, we mark round 3 of the 5-round calendar as the story continues and the season makes its way to its midpoint. Of course, we've got an action-packed schedule for tonight, and that schedule is as follows. Times in British Summer Time or UTC +1. It is the case that in just over 9 minutes' time, we'll be going qualifying for 20 minutes, and it'll be the case that session is split into 2 halves for our 2 classes, where our BMW M2s taken to the circuit first, and our GT3s will be following suit afterwards, both in 10-minute sessions, and that'll determine our grid order for the purposes of our one and only race on the schedule for tonight. And it is, of course, 2.4 hours of racing once again, or 144 minutes if you're so inclined to talk in minutes, and the racing will get underway at approximately 25 minutes to 8 this evening. And by the end of it, of course, we'll have our winners in each respective classes, and then we'll be conducting our post-race interviews within the winners of the respective classes as of 5 to 10 tonight. Or at least that's our planned schedule. Things may be subject to variation, of course, depending on how things proceed tonight. But I can tell you, it is going to be an absolutely action-packed racing evening, and it's all being brought to you live on 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. It is the case, firstly, if you are more of a Twitch user rather than a YouTube user, you can always go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in there. Alternatively, if you are more of a YouTube user, you can go to youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh, alternatively TX141TX, and tune in live on YouTube. And here's the case, who is Paul Walsh, who is TX141? Well, that is I, your commentator and host for this evening and for the series. My name's Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And in this case, I've been bringing you all of your action since the start of the season, and I'll be here all the way through to the conclusion in 4 weeks' time of round number 5. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, of course. It is the case that we've got plenty of racing to go, and let's not wish away the racing as it comes on through. And of course, this series being hosted on the PC version of Assetto Corsa Competizione, one of the premier sim racing platforms available on PC. And indeed, it is the case that Assetto Corsa Competizione available on next generation consoles as well. And I can tell you one team who are absolutely adamant about racing on Assetto Corsa Competizione, and that is Watkins Racing, our sponsor for this series. Now, to introduce Watkins Racing, it's only appropriate. It is the case they are a professional sim racing team as founded and owned by Denise Pope, who you'll see out on the circuit tonight, and they compete in both sprint and endurance series in the Assetto Corsa Competizione at the Pro, Silver and Am levels. And if you'd like to know more about the team and what they do, what they stand for and everything in between, be sure to head to their official Twitter page today. That is twitter.com/WildThingsRace for further information. And their involvement as sponsors for the series is the fact that they are backing the series and getting the word out and getting as many drivers out onto the circuit as possible, but also helping in organising the series in terms of running the back-end organisation in collaboration with the hosts, of course, of Rapid Drivers Club. Now, it is the case as we look from our sponsor, thank you to them as always, to our calendar. We started off back on the 17th of August at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. It was, of course, a race in the dark, but a brilliant race all the same as our classes took to the circuit for the first time at the start of Season 2. We then followed up 2 weeks ago with round number 2 at Donington Park. We made our way to the United Kingdom for the heart of British motorsport, and well, on the 31st of August, we definitely saw drama. We saw trials and tribulations across the GT3 and also the M2 class, particularly in the GT3 class, where we saw some absolutely intense battles to be inside the top 10, just outside the top 10 as well. It was definitely unpredictable all the way through. And 2 weeks later, we are here today on the 14th of September in the United States of America. We've made our way across the Atlantic Ocean for none other than the revival place of road race in the United States after the Second World War, and that is Watkins Glen, of course, or the Glen as it's affectionately known, opened all the way back in 1956. Ever since its reopening in 1956, or re-emergence as a proper race circuit, if you will, because road racing did occur at Watkins Glen before 56, but that's where it became a formal circuit for major global events. It has played host to major global series, including Formula 1, and continued to this very day playing host to a major American series such as the NASCAR Cup. And indeed, it will be playing host to our drivers tonight. And after tonight, it'll be the case in 2 weeks' time, we'll be making our way from the state of New York all the way to the state of Texas, particularly Austin in Texas, for the Circuit of the Americas. And that'll be on the 28th of September 2022. A very different flavour of circuit compared to Watkins Glen. And then for our season finale on the 12th of October, we have a random track up for grabs. It is the case, our drivers will not know of the track until after round number 4. And to give you a little hint of how that's going to be decided, which circuit, it will be the case that as of round 4 on the broadcast, keep your eyes out that there will be a live draw of the 3 circuits which our drivers could potentially race at. And it will be the case that all of our participating drivers, as I'm to understand it, will be given the opportunity to vote on which circuit they'd like to race at for the season finale. So there's a little bit of driver preference thrown in there, but there will be a live draw as as will be done by none other than myself. I'll be doing it live on camera out of a lottery bowl, picking the circuits that we haven't raced. That'll be 3 random circuits from the lottery bowl, and then our drivers will have it to race there. But more on that in 2 weeks' time with round number 4. But as we make our way from our calendar to our standings, it is the case. After 2 rounds of racing, we start with our GT3 class, of course, and here is your top 10. And we can see right at the top there, after 2 rounds with a drop score in effect, Watkins Racing's Colex GG team are currently leading by 2 points over Lehtinen Racing. The story between these two teams is the fact they both have 1 win apiece, with Watkins Racing Colex GG taking the win last time out at Donington Park, and also picking up the fastest lap as I'm to understand it, and that's why they're 2 points ahead. Meanwhile, Lehtinen Racing taking the win back at Spa, and the Honda NSX outfit, driven of course by Lehtinen himself, they'll be looking to try and do everything they can to usurp Watkins Racing Colex GD today and potentially make it a second win. And can either of those teams pick up their second win in the series, or will it be the case that we see a third team take to the top step of the podium? Well, all that in due course and time. Outside the top 2, not too far behind, we do have Wildthings Racing's SodaCat Driver Academy team on 69 points there in P3, 5 clear of Wildthings Racing's Hacks division, and then it is the case we have Random Racing complete in the top 5 there on 60 points, 3 clear of Wildthings Racing's Daz division. But looking further down the top 10 there, we can see Team Shumi Skins listed as retired there after taking part in round number 1, but not being seen in round number 2 on weights 56 points. Quantum Racing team there after their stellar performance on their debut in this season back at Donington Park with that 6th place finish. They'll be looking to try and improve on that and gain places and get into that top 5. 54 points, of course, to their name. 3 clear of AMR Daniel Sim Racing, and then Racing Car team in their Audi R8 LMS Evo 2, completing the top 10 there on 48 points. Outside the top 10, who's the best of the rest in P11? Well, it's none other than Wildthings Racing Simhound division in the Porsche 991 there on 45 points. Joint 45 points, but ahead based on result countback versus option 13. And Blacksmith Racing, the unlucky number 13 position there on 39 points. They'll be looking to try and continue that momentum from last time out, going from finishing just within the top 20 to definitely within the top 20. And today they'll be looking to try and break their way into the top 10. Astro Racing team, Wildthings Racing La Pope, and then Off-Pace Motorsports, Distinct GG, Ember Racing, Vispa and Quantum Racing team complete your top 20. And then outside the top 20, still belligerent in the battles to get inside the top 20, we do have Dutch Endurance team, of course, in P21 there in the McLaren 720S GT3. Not had too much luck in the opening 2 rounds, it must be said, and hopefully today they can have some better luck compared to their adversaries, as it is the case it has not worked out for them so far. We have the Advisor Charity Racing team there in P22 on 26 points, ahead and not safe for wings based on result count back there, and both teams there both having difficult races so far, with the Dutch Endurance team Gold Division there, of course, bringing the Vantage V12. You'll get to see them out on circuit tonight. They're back and full of fury and wisdom in the 6-litre V12 engine Aston Martin, and Slow-Mo Racing complete the top 25 with Dirty Pedals, JH Racing, SS Racing, GP2 Engine Car, and Amino, Assetto and Motocella complete in the top 30. And then outside the top 30, but not to be forgotten about P31 through to P35, we have Sagetti Course, Dutch Endurance Team Red, Climax Racing, Hard Attack, and PJ Team. Now, as we go from the GT3 story then to the BMW M2 CS Class story, it is the case we can see their team, the Sim Racing Collective, or TSRC in short, their number 99 team is currently leading by 6 points over RDC Slowpokes, or Rapid Trials Club Slowpokes. The story between these two teams really has been one of drama. It was the case that in round number 1, the Sim Racing Collective looked unstoppable at Spa-Francorchamps, avoided any early incidents and just ran away with the proceedings. Conversely, last time out at Donington Park, it was the opposite way round, where Slowpokes were able to out-qualify the Sim Racing Collective. They were passed by them, but looked to be on the superior strategy, and the Sim Racing Collective team got caught up in an instant just as they were making their way into the pits. However, after coming out of the pits well in front, Slowpokes was involved in an incident with a GT3 car on the final corner with only 30 minutes to go, and that completely flipped the fortunes and saw Slowpokes in the end finish P2. The film will be tonight, hopefully for Slowpokes, that they can be right up there once again, but in return the Sim Racing Collective would love to make it 3 wins out of 3, and indeed it'd be absolutely indomitable by them if they could do so, given they have carried on that momentum from season 1 as we've talked about much earlier on in this season so far. Half practice here in P3 there on 69 points. Having a difficult day at Donington, but a great day at Spa, and they're looking to continue that momentum from round number 1 with Podium Sim Racing in P4 and Revi Rev Finland in P5 on 60 points. Only ahead of Wildthings Racing HFG team based on result count back there. And then we have the Sim Racing Collective 199 team in P7. In a Blacksmith Racing, Fresh Sim Racing, and Lert MS there in P10. And then outside the top 10 in the BMW class, it is the case that we have Quantum Racing Team, On Course Motors, and Dark EcoFlex completing our 13 entrants. Now, coming from our standings then to our circuit for tonight. Well, of course, we mentioned it earlier. It is the Watkins Glen International Circuit, located near the village of Watkins Glen in the state of New York in the United States of America. And as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by the Sim Racing Wiki website, simracingwiki.com, of course, thank you to them for their circuit maps as always. This circuit, consisting of 11 corners, is an absolute thriller. And whilst the image probably doesn't give this away, a lot of these corners are very heavily cambered towards the apex, which means you have to dig in deep into these corners and carry as much speed as possible and brake as late as possible into each and every corner. This is a circuit which is all about rhythm and going full attack lap after lap. They've got some heavy braking zones as well, of course, including the braking zone from turn 4 into the bus stop chicane, which is the run all the way from turn 4 to turn 5. But then we also do have a very heavy braking zone in the form of the run out of turn 7 all the way out to hill corner at turn 8, and then the sweeping left into right at turns 10 and 11 to complete the lap, which is an absolutely scintillating sight, and we'll talk more about that in brief order in the qualifying session. But as for our rules today, just to give you a quick recap, it is the case the balance of performance variant used for this series is the 2021 base variant available in Assetto Corsa Competizione. Teams entering this series may consist of one or more drivers, whereby teams with more than one driver may switch drivers between rounds, and teams may register up to 2 drivers for a given round. Now in qualifying, we'll see the BMW M2 CS class out on circuit first for 10 minutes, and then we'll see the GT3s make their way out on circuit. Drivers can use return to garage at any point whilst out on circuit, so long as they do so in a safe manner. And on top of that, in terms of the race, there is one mandatory pit stop which will require fuel to be added to the car and tyres to be changed. There is no defined pit window, however, so drivers may choose when to pit. And for teams consisting of 2 registered drivers, there is no maximum driver stint time, but they must change drivers at some point in the race, otherwise there'll be a post-race penalty applied, and that's almost the equivalent of a disqualification. That's how severe the penalty would be. They must swap drivers at some point in the race. Even if the second driver only does a minute, they must make the swap at some point. But that's enough about rules, regulations and whatnot. I know what you're all here for. We're here for it as well, and that is the race in action. And right now, as we look to the circuit, it is the case. It is night time here, or early sake in the morning, at 5:15 in the morning local time in the United States circuit, and it is the case all of our drivers absolutely set to go as the final 3 practice warm-up session has come to its conclusion, and we are now waiting to go race. And the focus of our cameraman's attention is Andrew Pite there in the Sim Racing Collective 99 machine, of course the team leading the BMW M2 CS class. And I do understand that Andrew Pite will be taking to the car solo today. He will not have the pleasure of his co-driver with him, and it will be the case therefore he'll be doing the full 2.4 hours, and well, he's got a major task in his hands to carry on the form that the team have demonstrated time after time over the course of this season so far, as it is a time, I do believe, for our BMWs to make their way out on circuit, although we do see a couple of GT3s in fact heading on out, and I wonder if it's the GT3s who are making their way out there today in order to mix things up, and I suspect it may be. I think the GT3s have been given the go-ahead, whereas normally it's been our BMW M2s, as we see Marcus Fox here from Random Racing making his way all the way through turns 2, 3 and up towards 4 in quick succession here, completely flat out as he charges his way on through. And as he charges his way on through, we do charge our way over to the chat there to say hello in the YouTube chat to Jay Combs, also to Chris J Black, and also to Jan Bath there, the Wall_34. Hope you guys are doing well, and we can see there Jay Combs is cheering on at Wild Things Racing. We can also see Chris Black there saying, I heard the 917 car will not win tonight. Well, you never know what could happen, of course, but the 917 car, well, we haven't got them on our entry list at the moment. Oh, in fact, we have. My apologies there, just double checking my timing screens, and of course being driven by Chris Black himself there. It's a little bit of, I think, a running joke from Chris Black, but we do look forward to seeing the Blacksmith race and drive out on the circuit, of course, in the liveried mobile now, the Porsche 991 Mark II machine. It's the case we've got his livery loaded here, and an absolutely brilliant livery, albeit the lack of ambient lighting here does not enable us to see the splendour of the car as he makes his way up the hill. And we also say hello to Jan Bath, of course, who's saying evening all, evening Paul. Fabian Carner will make qualifying and the first stint. We look forward to seeing how Fabian gets on, and we look forward to seeing how you get on, Jan, in the second stint of the race. And of course, after that difficult day for yourself and your teammate at Donington, where you did the entire race after a bit of a mix-up in terms of entering the server, but still a very valiant effort. But speaking of valiant efforts right now, we do see here Harry Phillips making his way through what is the final corner, and we ride on board for our first flying lap as he makes his way out of the final corner and across that timeline, looking down towards turn number 1 here in the dark. Looking at his left, he'll look for his brake marker there. The 200 board will be his marker, coming all the way down to third gear, and as soon as he hits the apex, getting back on the throttle, keeping 2 wheels on that exit curve in there in order to stay within track limits, and now charging up the hill completely flat out as he goes through 2, then into left-hander 3, flat out all the away as he now looks to the right-hander of 4 here, continues to be flat out as he rolls the car through and letting the car drift over to the left-hand side. That's the first 4 corners done. They came quick and fast. Now the bus stop chicane. Looking to his left here for his brake marker. The 400 to 300 metre boards there as he brakes, dabbing on the brake, bringing the car down to 4th gear and rolling the car over the apexes. And as he makes his way out now into turn number 5, the downhill right-hander here as the car begins to feel like it's going to slope away of understeer as the corner opens back up. And as he now makes his way up towards turn number 6, getting his braking zone as late as possible to go for a late apex here, trailing onto that apex. And as he rolls his way on through now, Phillips looking strong so far. Bit of traffic ahead, but he's cleared the traffic. Now braking into the toe corner, turn number 7, braking to the 50 metre board there, rolling the car through the apex, and he's got to get on the pound nice and early here, otherwise he loses an absolute plethora of lap time as he makes his way down towards hill corner at turn number 8. As he charges along, he has a brief breather here before looking to his left-hand side for his brake marker. That will be the 100 board there, about 125 at which he brakes, and as he rolls his way through the right-hander, slow corner in 2nd gear, now heading back up the hill in towards 4th gear before braking into turn number 9 through the left-hander here to return to the classic circuit. And as he exits on out from 2nd gear up to 3rd gear, now into turn number 4 in 4th gear, will he just lift off? Will he dab the brake? It's just a lift off there, coming away from the rev limiter of 4th gear, now making his way up into turn number 11. 5th gear down to 3rd, a quick break down 2 gears, and as he exits on out, stand as close as possible to the exit one, going full throttle to the line. And what's it going to be for Phillips here? The first flying lap to come in, and it is a 44.335, and we now wait to see what other lap times are accrued by drivers here in the GT3 class. As we say hello there to Hanunez in the Twitch chat, and of course if you are tuning in via Twitch or YouTube, we can see both chats, so do not be shy, feel free to say hi as we see lap times continue to come on in here. But you saw the theme there in Harry Phillips' lap. This lap at Watkins Glen is absolutely thick and fast, and those corners come left, right and centre. You want to carry as much speed from corner to corner. I was going to say as much corner from speed to speed, that wouldn't quite make sense, but you get the drift there. It is the case that these corners come so quick after one another that you really want to be carrying that momentum through, as every mile now you drop on exit of a corner in the run to the next corner, that's going to cost you a tenth, if not more. As we see Mike Landreth here from Ember Racing returning after feeling very unwell after round number 2, and we're very happy to hear that Landreth is back behind the wheel of the Ember Racing Audi R8 Evo 2, and here's case he makes his way down through what is turn at number 6 there up towards 7. Well, we look forward to seeing how he gets on as he makes his way all the way up towards the right-hander, but in the meantime as he makes his way on through, we do say hello there to Pinky87 in the Twitch chat saying Lee Austin for the win, and indeed big up the QRT or Quantum Racing team. And speaking of Lee Austin, where is he out on circuit, I hear you ask? Well, we can't quite currently see Lee Austin out there, but I'm sure we'll catch him very shortly, as we do see here Jordan Cotton from Off Pace Motorsports making his way on through, and I believe he's heading down through turn number 5 at the moment in the Aston Martin Vantage V8 here. Of course, a car that has recently received a significant balance of performance adjustment, a very positive one for the Aston Martin, which has seen its overall engine power improve, given the fact that this car was known for being one of the slowest cars in terms of straight line acceleration, and really being a low RPM torque band disaster in terms of it's just got no speed. You normally have to try and keep the car as high as possible in the RPM band and trying to use as low a gear as possible, but it is the case the off-pace motorsports machine, and indeed all Aston Martin V8 Vantages based on the balance of performance have now seen that adjustment, which means they've got a little bit more straight line speed and straight line acceleration. The Aston Martin, a very comfortable car to drive at this point in time. Jordan Cotton definitely showing that as he makes his way up towards turn number 9 here. Currently P8, 2 seconds off of that pole lap set by Phillips, and Phillips has wasted no time in trying to go for that outright pole, in terms of the fact we've still got 6 minutes of this qualifying session to go, and well, that 44.335 has yet to be bested. And whilst the lap time here is 1 3/4 minutes, we would expect some more lap times to come in a bit closer. The only one that's come close right now is Marcus Fox in the Honda NSX Evo, which he's been able to get within 2.5 tenths. As we see Cotton coming to the timeline here, makes his way on across, and is it going to be an improvement from Cotton? It is a slight improvement. He stays P8, but it's a 46.222. A nice lap there from the Aston Martin driver. As he makes his way around, we look to Chris Black here in the number 917 car, of course, the Blacksmith Racing driver, making his way towards the second half of the latter half of the lap, we should really say. And as we see him rolling his way up into turn number 7 there in the pitch darkness, of course, and that adds a big thrilling element to the circuit, when the fact you haven't got that ambient lighting. And see him charging his way all the way now down towards turn number 8, very rapid out of there, and heading down towards turn number 8. And indeed, what a lap by Fox, but we see there, Sakiri Lehtinen has gone faster in his Honda NSX NSX, rivaled by only 7 thousandths of a second. And well, we saw at Donington, the Honda NSX was not the strongest car at Donington in the GT3 class. It did seem to struggle in qualifying, was much stronger in the race trim, but Lehtinen and Fox were constantly exchanging lap times as if they were exchanging mobile numbers and mobile text. But it is the case that the pair of them really trying to put on a performance, and particularly for the Team Honda Racing, Lehtinen Racing driver Sakiri, it is the case that he wants to try and get the most he can out of this round, because the Honda is very fast when it's all hooked up, and particularly at circuits where you can carry that speed from corner to corner. What the car being mid-engine rear-wheel drive, that only helps the case of the Honda, and you can imagine here for Lehtinen, he'll be thinking as though he can take the fight to Phillips, because really it has been Phillips and Lehtinen who have both shared that top step on the GT3 podium. As he makes his way down towards turn number 8 at the moment, and looking very good at this time. It is the case that we can see, looking a little bit further down the GT3 order, we've got Fabian Mckenna here in the Advisor Charity Racing Team Machine, the Austrian driver here, of course, and his teammate Jan Barth tuning in by the YouTube viewing at the moment. Is the case the Austrian driver in the 934 car, currently P17, as he gets it a little bit wrong then, making his way into turn number, I believe that was turn number 9, but as he does, in fact, a bit deceiving that camera angle there. It looks like he gets it wrong, but actually hooked out quite nicely. But he's 4 seconds off that pole pace right now, with only 2 minutes to go, and he'll have 2 more laps after this one. He'll just about squeeze in 2 more laps, as long as he doesn't bungle the next lap. And as he makes his way out that final corner, not as daring to go close to the wall there on the exit of turn number 11, perhaps saving it all for that very final lap, which would make sense to be fair, as he improves by 8 tenths and moves up to P16 ahead of Steele. And in this case, Simon Steele now down to P17. But meanwhile, Phillips is still on an absolute rip and tear in terms of lap times at the moment. He's currently 2 tenths faster than his previous best as he makes his way there down through turn number 6. The man is absolutely possessed to go for pole in that Porsche 991, and as he makes his way into turn number 7 here, into what is toe corner, rolling his way on through. You can see how the car just looks so hooked up, that Porsche, as he now makes his way all the way up towards turn number 8 and charge on down here in what is a relatively clear circuit. We've only got a little bit of cloud over the circuit. Ideal conditions really, albeit it's very cold. It's 10 degrees centigrade right now, I can tell you on track, and also ambient. It is the case that Phillips is absolutely flying, and it says the track conditioners have been upgraded to faster and green. Well, I can tell you one thing, he is definitely feeling fast. I think he's feeling optimum right now as the lingo goes, and as he makes his way into turn number 10, well, he is still 3 tenths up. In fact, he's improved in the last couple of corners, and well, he's almost on the boundary of 3 tenths. He makes his way to the timeline. Will this be an absolute brilliant lap? Will it be a 43? He comes to the line here, and as he does, what's it going to be for Phillips? It was a 44.3 last time around. It's now perfect on a 44.1, and he's got 1 more lap to try and go even faster here as he makes his way through the right-hander. But meanwhile, as he does, we look to Daryl Young here, the Watkins Racing driver, of course, in the Audi R8. He's currently P4, and as he crosses the line, he goes up to P2. They're half a second off of Phillips, but the best of the rest by 5 thousandths, as we meanwhile do look to Lehtinen here, who is not improving at this time, and I think he's not going to have time to put another lap in. I think this will be a run to the pits very shortly. Meanwhile, we see Leighton Austin here, and keep in mind, of course, the Quantum Racing team driver, as he crosses the line, he's just about to squeeze in another lap, and it's only fair we ride on board with the Briton, because he is running a special livery for this round, and of course in tribute to Queen Elizabeth II, who recently passed away, the monarch of the United Kingdom, who celebrated earlier this year, of course, 70 years in reign, dying at the age of, what was, if my memory serves me correctly, 96, and well, it's very unfortunate, of course, and we do miss her so. And Leighton Austin there running a special livery, which we'll see more in the daylight, but making the memory known as he makes his way around, and we're going to follow him for his final lap, and indeed the final flying lap of any GT3 driver in this qualifying session, as our BMW M2s are getting set up. But it's Harry Phillips who has taken pole by looks things by 44.1, by half a second over Daryl Young, with Lehtinen, Fox, and also Austin's not improving there inside the top 5. Jordan Cotton not able to improve anymore. Cargulu as well. The only driver who can potentially dethrone Harry Phillips would be Leighton Austin, but this lap right now 2 tenths down on his previous best, as he makes his way out of turn number 6 and down towards 7. But as he heads up towards the right-hander here, it is the case in the number 23 car. He's got it all to do in the latter half of the lap. He's left it all late, but of course the track's in its prime condition for a GT3 car now, with it being fast. There's been a bit more rubber laid down the circuit compared to the early laps. Can he put in something that will move him further up towards the top 5? Because of course, when I had the chance to catch up to Leighton Austin, he was telling me about the fact, a bit of an emotional one this one, hence the tribute livery. But on top of that, after the P6 last time out Donington, he's not expecting to be able to match that chat today. He's hoping to go for a top 5, but he's feeling as though the BMW's not there on the power, and it's maybe a case of just trying to survive to be in the top 10. But as he makes his way through the final 2 corners, he's currently matching his previous best lap time, and as he heads into the final corner, can he find a little bit extra? No, in fact, he backs off, and he decides to come into the pit, and that means now the GT3 qualifying session is over. It's now time for the M2 CS class to put in their qualifying laps, and it will be Andrew Pike who is going to be our first flyer in the BMW M2 CS as he makes his way through the left hand there, a turn at number 9, and as he rolls his way through a beautiful camera angle. That is the fact the camera itself is actually slightly angled as well, just off of the very heavily angled apex of turn number 9, so it's a very interesting camera angle to see the drivers coming on through. But speaking of something interesting, let's ride on board with the Sim Racing Collective 99 machine, and Pike will take us around for a BMW M2 CS flying lap at Watkins Glen. So making his way out to the final corner and down towards turn number 1 in the long charge. Of course, this lap is going to be slow. What these M2s not having anywhere near as much horsepower, about 150 to 180 horsepower down on their GT3 Rs. But as he breaks into turn number 1, a similar braking zone there around that, what was the 300 board, and as he makes his way out to turn number 1, locking up under braking. Interestingly there, the tyre's not quite up to temperature and the brakes not up to temperature, as now goes flat out through turn number 2. And you can see how the car, with a loss of aero compared to the GT3s, where these cars are road cars, really having to fight the cars. It understeers and almost hits the wall there coming out of 3, and as he makes his way through 4, now heading down towards turn number 5, I think Pike they're having a little bit of scare in the dark as he now makes his way into the braking zone for the bus stop chicane, jumping on the brakes there at the 300 meter board, rolling the car through. And as he does, a bit of understeer creeping in on the car once again for Pike, and that car just not quite hooking up at the moment. Now makes his way down through turn number 5, and as he rolls the car down the hill here, is a case building up that momentum as he heads in towards turn number 6, looking for his brake mark here. There's not really a visible one, so he has to go on gut instinct and feel. Goes a little bit wide of apex initially, but this is to set himself up with that pendulum effect as he comes out to 6, so he can start to bite the car back into the corner, and as he makes his way up towards 7, now braking as late as possible, that 100 meter board there, and as he brakes in, I think it's a 100 yard board rather than the meter board, but as he makes his way out of the corner, heading all the way up towards turn number 8. Now, not the best to turn 70, but this has not been the ideal lap for Pike, and we do only have 5 of our BMW M2s taken to the circuit today, but we lack in quantity. We make up for definitely in quality in terms of laps, and Pike right now, he's not having a perfect lap by any means as he clatters a bit over the apex of turn number 8, but he makes his way up towards 9 here, using those Amazon Web Services board in order to be able to give himself a brake marker, rolling through and going as late as possible to the apex curve, using it to help turn the car around. Now 2 corners remain as he makes his way through the left-hander at turn number 10, rolling the car through here, not using the brakes, just lifting off the throttle and letting the car glide into the corner and into turn number 11, having to go on the brakes here, rolling the car through the right hander. As he does he extend it to the wall? Does he play it safe? He extends it to the wall and he comes to the timeline, and what's it going to be for Pike on his first flying lap, indeed the first BMW M2 lap? He comes to the line and it is going to be, what is there, a 2:03.162, and we do see there it is the case of Chris Carr going P2 with a lap that's only 6 tenths off, and it is the case of Fresh Sim Racing has been battling to try and be in the top 5. He's definitely guaranteed to be in the top 5 today. Can he battle to be on the podium? That will be the big question, as we do see Luna here for half practice hero. He's the last of our M2s currently on their first flying lap, as we're to understand it. We do have some of our other M2s ahead of him, including Alex Nunes, and just in front of him, what is the number 74 car there of Watkins Racing's Evan the Toughest in the HFG machine, as he makes his way across the timeline. And what will it be from the Toughest as he crosses the line? It is not a valid lap, but we do see that Alex Nunes takes provisional upon the M2 class by a margin of what is 3, almost 4 tenths per second, as meanwhile Luna makes his way across the line, and that lap has not counted. There's only 5 minutes to go for our BMW M2s. They've not got long left, but as we do see a Nath bit there in the YouTube chat saying a shout out to Chris Carr, and here is Chris Carr, who's currently parked up. In fact, he's had to jump to the pits, Chris Carr. I think he may have had a spin or a mistake on circuits. We did get some yellow flags, but the point being, a shout out there from Nath bit to say, Chris Carr driving the Fresh Sim Racing M2 at CS Solo. We don't have many spare parts left after some self-inflicted incidents at Spa in Donington, so do your best, Chris, to bring her home safe. Well, that's absolutely great. And I think Carr at this point making some tweaks to the car before going out one more time. And we also do see there what is Jan Barv saying rooting for Just Luna in the M2 QT as he makes his way on around here. And Luna has not been the one to have much luck. Donington Park was really a day of suffering for Just Luna, if we have to be honest. A lot of incidents for Luna, and it did not work out, and he'll be hoping for a much more peaceful race today at Watkins Glen. But of course, one of the biggest concerns from our M2 drivers is the fact that given the delta in the lap time here between the GT3s and the M2s, particularly on the straights, with the fact we have a lap time delta in the region of about 15 to 17 seconds. It is the case those GT3s are going to come up very quickly, as we see Luna there having to fight with the steering wheel as he made his way up through turn number 7. That shows you how tricky it is, where these BMWs do not have that much downforce. They have a rear wing, they have a little bit of racing aero on them, much like the road car, the BMW M2 road car, but beyond that they don't have the huge amount of aero compared to the GT3s, and therefore it's really about trying to find that mechanical grip and that balance on the rear aero placement in order to carry the speed through the corners. And Luna there having to fight with the nose of the car, much like what we saw in what was Pike's lap earlier on. Although I say about Pike's lap earlier on being difficult, it is the case he's now taken provisional pole by a margin of what is almost 4 tenths, and now we see Alex Nunes here making his way to the line as he comes through turn number 11 very shortly. And can the Portuguese from Rapid Drivers Club here find a way to improve? And it is the case that when I spoke to him the build up to tonight, I had a brief chat with him down in the paddock, he was saying he was looking to put to bed what happened of course in rounds 1 and 2, those difficulties. That lap has not counted. In fact, I think it was a sighting lap, but now he makes his way on around here for what will be his penultimate lap, and he wants to deliver this time around. He wants that win after being denied at Donington, after being spoiled at Spa. It is the case, can he be a winner at Watkins? And as he makes his way up the hill, I've run out of alliteration, and he goes charging up towards turn number 4 at this point in time, and will roll in the car on through. It is the case with 2.5 minutes left on the clock. He has not got a lot left to deliver, but to be fair, Nunes only needs 1 lap to get it done. Like Harry Phillips only really needed 1 lap to take that pole by a considerable margin in what was the GT3 class, and then he furthered it later on in the session. It is the case that Nunes will only need 1 good lap, and I think he'll feel as though he's got that pole position. Let's not count out Pike from the Sim Racing Collective. These two, it's definitely a shootout for that pole between the two of them, and it is looking as though at the moment Chris Carr the best of the rest. He's a whole second behind the top 2, but it is the case he is 2 tenths clear of Luna in that P3 spot. But as they roll the way around at the moment, we also say hello in the Twitch chat there to Calgon UK, saying 12-hour practice racing is paying up for us in the off-pace motorsports machine. Indeed it is for you guys, in the fact qualifying P6, but we return our focus to our M2s here as we see Nunes taking a very nice line through turn number 7 there. You can see how hooked up it is now for Nunes as he makes his way down towards turn number 8. He's got the car in the trim, he's only got 4 more corners to go, and if he can hook these up, I think he's definitely looking for an improving lap. He's currently going 5 tenths faster than his previous best, which would put him on provisional pole for the M2 class. Andrew Pike, by comparison, has just gone on to his final lap, so we'll have to monitor how that goes. But everybody is improving. The track is improving in terms of its racing state right now. Rubber is being laid down lap after lap here as the tyres are worn away, and as Nunes makes his way into the penultimate corner here, he's currently half a second up, rolling his way into the last corner, 6 tenths up as he comes into turn number 11, hooks up very nice under brake, and this is going to be a very fast lap as he comes to the timeline. What's it going to be then? His previous best was a 202.815. He crosses the line and it's a 202.182. He takes provisional pole by 4 tenths almost. In fact, more so 3 tenths if I do my maths correctly, versus Andrew Pike. And here is Pike in response as we hear that Luna has jumped up into P3. He's moved up and he's now what is on a 203.297, and we're having to wait to see if Chris Carr can respond. Carr is currently 3 tenths faster than his previous best. It wouldn't be enough to jump into that P3 spot, but it's looking close between Yus Luna and Chris Carr in the battle for P3 or P22 overall. But as Pike makes his way on around, it is the case heading all the way down towards turn number 8 as we say hello there in the YouTube chat to Ricardo McKing, saying evening all, the V12 boys are in the house and watching as well. That's great to hear, Ricardo, and we wish you and indeed every team participating today good luck, but especially yourselves, bringing out the venerable at 6 litre V12 Aston Martin Vantage. But as we focus back on Pike here with Chris Carr going 6 tenths faster, he's crossed the line. In fact, he jumps back into P3 ahead of Yus Luna there in the BMW M2 class, and it's now for Pike to come to line, but Carr has delivered when it's mattered most, and I don't think Luna's got a response here as Pike heads to the line very shortly after the final corner. He's 7 tenths up on his previous best. This is going to be huge from Pike as he comes to the timeline. What's it going to be from the Sim Racing Collective driver? It is going to be pole position, the BMW M2 class in the end, and he takes that pole. My good lord, by almost 4 tenths over Alex Nunes. Would you believe it? The only driver in the M2 to hit a 201, and that is by a huge margin, a 201.8. Nunes making his way on around right now, as it is the case he's on a lap, and so is Nunes as we understand it. As we see here, Nunes making his way through turn number 9, but the thing is that Nunes is not improving, and neither is the half practice hero of the Dutchman Luna. as he makes his way up towards the penultimate corner here. That final pair, that left into right, that flows so smoothly, and as he makes his way through the left now to the right of 11, well, I can see that Nunes is not improving. I think he's peeling into the pits. In fact, what about Luna here? Well, he's going to give it one more shot as he comes to the line, but I think he's not going to do enough here. And in the end, I think Carr is going to take that P3, unless I'm mistaken, and it is the case. Chris Carr takes it, but meanwhile, Andrew Pike takes pole in what is the BMW M2 class, and it is Harry Phillips who takes pole position overall and in the GT3 class. What a margin in 5 tenths, half a second for Harry Phillips, and 3 tenths for Andrew Pike over what was Alex Nunes there in the BMW M2 CS Racing class, where we do have 2 major pole laps. But the question is pole position going to mean a win, or will the story be very different? We're going to find out very shortly, as we are just waiting to go racing now, ladies and gentlemen. But as we look to the helicam here, all of our drivers absolutely itching to go in the pit lane. We've got plenty to look forward to here at Watkins Glen, and if qualifying is any indication, it is the case that the racing is going to be tight, it's going to be intense, and well, it is going to be fast and furious. And that's what American circuits are all about at the end of the day. They are about power on corner exit and carrying the speed beyond apex. But as the grid is now formed, let's take you through that grid as our drivers get ready to race. So as we start from the front, as is per the tradition, and we can see here Harry Phillips taking that pole position for Wild Things Racing in the number 26 car in the end by half a second, and he is joined on the front row by a fellow Wild Things Racing driver of Daryl Young here in the Audi R8 Evo 2. Behind them on row number 2, it's a Honda NSX lockout with Sakari Lehtinen from Team Honda Racing, Lehtinen Racing, the Finn being joined by his rival Marcus Fox in the Honda NSX Evo from Random Racing. The Austrian driver there putting in a good lap, just quite being pipped to the post by Lehtinen. On row at number 3, we have Daniel Austins in the AMR Daniel Sim Racing machine. Of course, the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage. The Briton in the 413 car looking to achieve his first podium in this season. He's got the pace for a podium, but it hasn't worked out. And he'll be joined on that third row by the off-pace motorsports machine. Also the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage, the 127 car from the United Kingdom of Jordan Cotton. Then on row at number 4, we have in a season-best qualifying session, BMW Sim Racing's Ahmet Sadar Kogulu, the Turkish driver here in the number 25 car qualifying P7, and he is joined by Lehtinen Austin in the Quantum Racing team, Queen Elizabeth II machine, the BMW M4 GT3, the number 23 driver from the United Kingdom lines up there P8, looking to go for a top 10 today for certain. Then we have Scott Tysus, who starts P9 on the 5th row. He kicks it off in the British Audi R8 Evo 2, and the Briton is joined by Richard Pixley from Wild Things Racing there, the Briton in the Porsche 991 GT3. He starts P10, completing our top 10. Behind them on row number 6, we have Jeroen Jongen from the Dutch Endurance Team Gold. That is the Aston Martin V12 Vantage. We're going to hear that roar definitely around the straightaways here at Watkins Glen. And he is joined on row number 6 by Florian Browers from Slow Mo Racing, the German there in the Audi R8 Evo 2. Behind them, we have Chris Mckenna, the Distinct GG driver in the McLaren 720S, and he will start off row number 7 in the 92 car, joined by Mike Landriff in the Ember Racing machine, the Briton there in the Audi R8 Evo 2. Then on row number 8, we have Denise Pope from the United Kingdom, and it is starting in P15 in the McLaren 720S Wild Things Racing machine, the 79 driver being joined by Chris Black from the United Kingdom as well, and it is the Blacksmith Racing driver there starting at P16 in the Porsche 991. Then on row number 9, we have Simon Still from SS Racing, that's Simon Still Racing, the Briton in the Honda NSX Evo starting P17, and he will be joined by none other than Sander Jacobs there starting in P18 for the Dutch Endurance Team. The Dutchman, of course, there looking to have a good result in the number 87 car, the McLaren 720S. Then behind them, starting off row number 10, we have our BMW M2 CS Racing class, and it's the Sim Racing Collective 99 machine of Andrew Pike that took pole position in the end, as we see Average Sharpie there saying Andrew Pike the GOAT, and I do believe that might be Kieran Sharp in the YouTube chat there. Indeed, what a brilliant lap from Pike. Can he convert it into a third win of the season? We'll have to wait and see, because this man alongside him starting P20, Alex Nunes, the Rapid Drivers Club driver, we know he wants this win. He wants it so badly. He'll race fairly, but he's been denied it twice. Can he get it on the third time of Erskine? They always say the third time's the charm, but can the Rapid Drivers Club driver from Portugal achieve it? Then starting on our 11th row, we have Chris Carr from Fresh Sim Racing. A brilliant qualifying session for the Fresh Sim Racing driver. And whilst they don't have too many parts in the car, he's kept it smart in qualifying. And he's managed to out-qualify Jus Luna there, who starts P4 in the BMW class, P21 overall the Dutchman for half practice hero. Then on our final row, we have Evan Natafas from Watkins Racing HFG, the Greek driver there starting P22, the last of BMW M2s, and then alongside him in the GT3 class, not able to take to qualifying, I believe, due to a qualifying suspension. It is Sebastian Winkler there in the Waldhof Racing Bentley Continental Gt3 2018 machine. The German driver starts in the back of the field and knows he's got it all to do as he flashes lights. We look to the front of the field, and now we get ready to go racing. But of course, before we get underway, we do have a manual double file formation lap here, as we'll be seeing Harry Phillips taking our field away for that formation lap. The sun is gradually coming up in the state of New York. It is coming up to 10 to 6 in the morning. We've got 2.4 hours of racing to go. Harry Phillips gets the formation lap underway, and when we come around to the start-finish line the next time around, we'll be going green for 144 minutes of action-packed racing here at Watkins Glen. As he makes his way all the way round right now, all our field getting underway. And in fact, we look to the helicam here, and of course the thing about this formation lap, it's an absolutely critical one, given the fact that tyre temperature and brake temperature is so critical in the opening stages of the race at Watkins Glen. Now, to elaborate on that a little bit, it's the case at any circuit you could say that is a valid point. In fact, at Spa, at Donington, we saw how tyre temperature was critical, how brake temperature was so critical in those open laps. But here, the thing is, if you don't have the tyres up to temperature, you cannot carry the speed, particularly for the opening sequence of 4 corners if you're in the BMW M2 class. And in the GT3 class, you want those tyres up to temperature and those brakes up to temperature for the run up to what is the bus stop chicane between turns 4 and 5. Because if you haven't got those tyres up to temperature or those brakes up, then you have to brake early, and it means you are prone to losing places. And then we run through the camber corners such as turn 5, turn 6, turn 7 and turn 8, it is the case that having that tyre temperature means you can dig into the corner more and just carry 1 to 2 mile an hour more speed compared to your rivals, and that may just enable you to gain a couple of places early on. But as we do a look here to Denise Pope making her way down the back straight here, trying to warm the car up here, doing a little bit of brake work and tyre work as well. Pope, of course, having made the switch to the McLaren 720S in round number 2 at Donington, worked out after starting off the season in Nissan GTR that didn't work out for the Spa, but it is the case here. Pope has seen an upturn in results, and we're looking to try and sneak into the top 10 today after a brilliant drive towards the end of Donington to really go fighting for place inside the top 15. But as Pope makes her way down into turn number 5 right now, it is the case we do look from Pope to our driver a little bit further down the order of Evan Natafas here, the Watkins Racing driver as well, the Greek, who has seen a run of form, a building run of form in the M2 class, and with there only being 5 M2s on circuit today, you can imagine for him he'll be trying to sneak his way onto the podium versus Carr and Luna. But Chris Carr, the big talking point here, it's the case of brilliant qualifying session for the Lehtinen Racing driver. He's going at it by himself today, and well, how will he get on? Of course, knowing he's out qualified, the half practice hero of Use Luna, he'll be looking to try and hold the number 37 driver at bay all the way to the end. But can he do it? He'll want to as he makes his way on down and around. But as he does, I do believe that we have one car in the pits, and that is Jan Barth in the pit lane right now in the 934 Porsche. I think they've had to start from the pit lane due to a technical problem, which is very unfortunate. But looking a bit further out the order, look at Daniel Austin's here as well, as right now we just ride on board with Austin's, and as he gets himself set to go here shortly, they'll get the rush to make the double file formation. But we know that the Daniel Sim Racing driver has a huge amount of pace. We know that he's got the pace to be on the podium, but the thing is, it has not worked out this season. Could it be the case he's on the podium today? Can he get it done in the 413 car? We thought he had it as far, it wasn't to be, but now he's got another opportunity, and what will it be come the finish? All that and more very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, as our drivers make the way on around and start to get themselves lined up behind Harry Phillips as they head to the line, and as they do, very shortly, we'll be going to the green.
Show them what you got.
And it's lights out and away we go for round number 3 of the 2.4 World Tour Season 2 as Harry Phillips gets underway, and immediately you can see how Lehtinen going on the offensive into turn number 1. It's not to be, but he clears Marcus Fox nice and early. Ticehurst up to P7 already, as meanwhile a bit further back it is the case that Simon's still battling side by side here with Mike Landreth and gaining places by the dozen as they make the way up the hill through turns 2 and 3 very rapidly here indeed. And as they come through here, cold tyres, of course, they go too wide. They both about survive as they make the way and through, but it is the case that still has to back out. As we look a little bit further up the order, and we can see Harry Phillips in particular at the top of your screen having to go defensive versus Young as they all make their way on through. We've got a car coming in very hot there, and it's the case that Amit Sardar Kargulu's had to take to the escape road. We've got another BMW, I think that was, oh goodness me, and Kargulu sent to the wall there as he returns to the circuit. There's a bit more contact a bit further down the order. I believe that's Lehtinen Austin. In fact, Lehtinen Austin was involved in some contact into the chicane, but he survived it. But I think he may have been the one to have the tap with Kargulu coming through the exit of the bus stop chicane. But as we lower the camera down now to trackside a little bit closer, it is the case that the majority of our drivers have been able to survive the opening lap in what is the GT3 class, although Pope and also what is Kargulu have both been affected. We can also see Kesberg there in the Dutch endurance team at McLaren 720S has gained to P16 already as they make the way on around. Meanwhile, in the BMW M2 class, it is the case as they fall away from the GT3s, as is their nature. We can see that Andrew Pike continues to lead after gaining the pole position and now trying to run away from Nunes, but Nunes is right behind him, and then Luna has got ahead of Chris Carr, and meanwhile Chris Carr under pressure here from Evan Natafas as they make the way into turn number 8 for the first time of asking. But as they roll the way on through, there has been a bit of drama already, albeit not a major incident in the run through turns 2 and 3 and up towards 4, and of course that's the worst possible place. We could have an opening lap incident, but as they make the way on around, it is the case after one lap. Harry Phillips leads ahead of Daryl Young P2, Lehtinen in P3, followed by Marcus Fox in P4, Daniel Austin's in P5, followed by Jordan Cotton P6, then we have Scott Tyser's P7, followed by Richard Pixley in P8, Pixley gaining places at the start, Leighton Austin dropping a couple of places down to P9, followed by Jongan in P10, and then the best of the rest, Chris Mckenna right now, but he's under pressure here from Chris Black as they make the way side by side through turn 2, into 3 they go, and of course these two being handling machines as they make the way through turn number 4 here. It's still side by side, but the Porsche does not have the straight line speed it would seem, and Mckenna right now is trying to out-drag the German machinery as he makes his way up towards the bus stop chicane. We've got cars off there, and we can see that's the Lehtinen. No, in fact, that's not Lehtinen, that's Fox, and also Austin's have been, oh, goodness me, and Mckenna getting it wrong. Was there contact there? It's absolute craziness at the bus stop chicane, and well, Daniel Austin's definitely in the woods as we take a look back. Well, this was only moments ago as they made the way up the hill. Now, as they headed their way into the bus stop chicane here, well, Austin's was on the offensive versus Fox. He went for it very late. Oh, goodness me. And, well, Austin's had it hooked up, but he found the barrier on the inside. And in the end, Marcus Fox was collected, and that was very unfortunate for the pair of them. And then Mckenna got it wrong over the apex curve, albeit getting right underneath our camera there. But as we go back to live screens very shortly, Austin's, Mckenna, and also Fox all in the woods at the bus stop chicane, and we've got Kargulu into the pits after that damage picked up on lap number 1. But as we return to those live pictures right now, Daniel Austin's going slowly here, and with that whack you can understand why. I mean, it's the case the car's got critical damage and he's got to bring it in. There'll be a meatball flag waving, but as he makes his way on down, we just give you a quick recap of our BMW M2 class. They make the way through lap number 2. It is Pike ahead of Nunes, but you can see how close the pair of them are together. And then we do have Luna, who's got ahead of Chris Carr, who's running P4 in the BMW class, and the toughest P5 as they make the way through the right-hander of turn number 8. As they roll the way on through for the second time of asking here. Plenty more times, of course, they'll have to clear that corner as the sun is gradually rising more on the horizon. It's case 6 o'clock in the morning now. We do look from them to a bit further up the road, in particular Chris Black, who's got it all sorts of wrong at turn number 1, and well, he's lost out there after getting up into the top 10. He's dropped to P11. What exactly happened to Chris Black? Well, this was only moments ago, and as we ride on board here with Chris Black, we wasn't close to anyone, so I suspect this may be a driver error as he made his way through turn number 1 here. Did he just light the car up a little bit too much? Broke his way into the corner. He broke quite late, to be very aggressive on the run. Hit a lot of the apex curve and just taking too much apex curve, and it sent the car around. And well, that's very unfortunate for Black. But the good news for him, of course, is he didn't make his way into the wall. No damage picked up, a little bit of a bruised ego, but at the same time as well, a bit of bruised pride, I should really say, not to try and insult the man at all. I don't mean it in a derogatory way in any way, but it is the case. The tyres will be a little bit bruised as well. And as he makes his way down through turn number 6 at this point, the Briton definitely not having a happy start to this race after looking good at the start. It's gone a little bit wrong, but he's going to pick it back up and pick up the pieces along the way. But as he makes his way through turn number 7 right now, it is the case we do look to Sebastian Winkler, who out of all of this on the open lap, remember, he started at the back in P24. There's a little bit of latency there for Winkler by looks of things. The cars are juddering around a bit, but it is the case. The Waldorf Racing driver gaining place. He's jumped all the way up to P13. He's cleared the BMW M2s, and he's also cleared Chris Mckenna there, of course, running with a wounded McLaren 720S after getting it wrong at the chicane. And we're not sure if there was contact or whether it's McKenna just getting it wrong over the the apex curve. I think it was the latter rather than the former, but as they roll the way around right now, indeed, all these drivers under pressure to perform, and Winkler in particular almost making it a mating moment with the wall, and as he makes his way through turn number 10 at this point, rolling the car and through, it is the case. The field has opened up a little bit as we look from our back end of what is the GT3 class, or really the midfield outside the top 10, I should say. We look up towards what is the front end, and Harry Phillips right now, well, on pole, he was running away with that pole position, and he's running away with the lead of this race right now. I can tell you one thing, one driver who's not able to run away is his teammate Daryl Young here, who's under pressure from Lehtinen, who looks up the inside into the bus stop chicane, but Sakiri Lehtinen's not able to get it done, but he does carry way too much speed into the corner as to bring the car back onto the circuit. But that was a very tense moment there for the Honda NSX driver, just carrying so much momentum into the bus stop chicane, and in the end, the car just not having the grip available to support him in carrying that speed. And well, he got away with that one. He'll be hoping he doesn't make that mistake twice, because Watkins Glen does not take prisoners when you get it wrong at the bus stop chicane. And as he makes his way on through turn number 7, that goes to show you the car control by the Finn as he makes his way back in the pursuit of Daryl Young. But further behind, we do see here's Jordan Cotton, who right now has Richard Pixley behind him, and then Tysus has moved all the way up to P6. He's ahead of Leighton Austin. Leighton Austin is going hunting right now in the BMW M4, and as they make their way down into the right-hander here at turn number 8, here's case these drivers in quick succession. Meanwhile, I'm hearing that Peter Kesberg has had a major moment at a corner. I believe it is at turn number 5. He's got it wrong, and he's dropped down to P14, and as he rolls his way on through, it is the case now holding that P14 position after Simon Still's gotten through. He's got to worry about the fact he's got Jan Barth, who's trying to close up to him, the Advisor Charity Racing Team driver, and started from the pit lane due to a technical issue, due to a disconnect on the server. It is the case here. He has Daniel Austins behind him. And of course, two very different flavours here. Austins has got the pace, we feel, to be up inside that top 3, but of course he's had that absolutely dismal start to his race, and Austins has got it all to do, fighting his way up through the field. Meanwhile, Jan Barth has had to start from the pit lane, and right now will be just trying to settle the car down, get into that rhythm, and focus on delivering. And Fox, just pointed out by the Marcus Fox, who we saw at the start of the race, he is 2 laps down in P24 right now, the last of our drivers out on circuit after that instant on the opening lap, and he's got a lot to do if he wants to get right back up into that top 10. We know Fox has got the pace for it, but will he be able to get back up there? But meanwhile, trying to get back up there as well, we do have Denise Pope here charging after Mike Landriff as these two battle to go for P9 as they make the way down the back straight and heading up towards the bus stop chicane. We can see in the rear picture Chris Black, who is gradually gaining on the pair as well as they make the way into the bus stop chicane this time around. But Landriff looking comfortable here, although I say that we ride on board with the Ember Racing drivers. They make the way down through turn number 5, and I think the body language here tells a different story as Landriff not able to carry the speed through turn number 5 compared to the McLaren driver. And as they make the way into turn 6, Landriff goes a bit deep but tries to set himself up here for the run out the corner. I think all he's done is experienced a wall of understeer, and he's got to go defensive here into turn number 7. If he doesn't, then will Pope be able to go around the outside? Will Pope thinks about the outside, then thinks about the cutback, but Landriff there gets the car parked on apex nicely, and as they make the way all the way up towards turn number 8 and the downhill run, it is, as you can see, Pope taking a peek to the inside here. Landriff's going to have to try and beat her on the brakes. He does so this time around, but he goes a bit deep as a result. Landriff definitely struggling right now as the track condition comes up to optimum. Ambient temperature now up by a degree to 11 degrees centigrade, the same with the track. And as they make the way through the left-hander here, turn number 9, Landriff really struggling at this point in the race to try and get that Audi to plough through the corners. Now, whether he's running more fuel compared to Pope, which of course is a valid assumption potentially, and therefore the car's not as responsive right now, that could be the case as they make the way into the final corner. But given the speed that Pope's demonstrating right now, you can imagine that it will be a case of when, not if, Pope can go for a move, and will it work out? That will be the big question as they head on to another lap. They go on to lap number 6. But as they roll the way on through, Chris Black, by comparison, we just took a whole half a second out of Landriff, and he is closing on that battle rather rapidly indeed as they make the way on through onto another lap. Meanwhile, a little bit further down the order, I can tell you that Nunes right now all over the back of race leader in the BMW M2 class, the Pike, if they make the way out to turn number 7 and up towards 8 here. And of course, we saw plenty of this at Donington Park, albeit it was the other way round, where it was Nunes having to fend off Pike for lap after lap. But this time, it's Nunes having to go on the offensive versus Pike, and Pike's got it all to do. Oh, could it spin? We've got a Bentley into the wall there at turn number 4 as everybody takes evasive of action around the outside. White flag waving there for a slow car rejoining, and Winkler has had a major moment. We haven't got the replay of it, but I'm hearing in my ear he's got it wrong through turn number 3 and had a whack to the wall there, and it's gone so wrong after a strong start for the Bentley driver. But as he makes his way back up to speed right now and tries to recover what he's lost, we do look to the number 5 driver here of Richard Pixley, who is trying to put the pressure on Jordan Cotton here. And to be fair, Right now, Cotton is not wilting under this pressure as the off-pace motorsports driver. He's definitely on the pace today. I think he's not quite living up to the team name, or if he is trying to go to be off pace. And speaking of going off pace, it was almost off the circuit into the wall. Richard Pixley there getting it almost wrong and just about avoiding the wall. I think there might have been a scratch or two to the paintwork, but that could have been so much worse. And that shows you how hard the Watkins Racing driver right now is pushing to get close to Aston Martin, because that Porsche, whilst it's had an improvement in terms of its aerodynamics and also straight line speed, it has not got the speed compared to the Aston Martin in front. And Pixley right now is trying to deliver in the most technical part of the circuit, where the Porsche will be at its strongest to get right in that toe, be within a couple of attempts, and then try to go on the offensive later on the next lap. And that's something you can see as they make their way through turns 2, 3 and 4, how he's not really gaining in the toe. He will eventually start to gain, but it takes an absolute age for him to be able to gain here. And in fact, the Aston Martin's dropping him. It is dropping him enough to keep what is there Cotton safe in the run towards turn number 4. And as they make the way through the bus stop chicane this time, it is the case that Pixley carries a bit more speed through, but Cotton can just park it there in the middle of the road and say, we can get as close as you want, but I'm not going to let you go, as we hear that Winkler's into the pits to repair work on the car. Meanwhile, we hear that Daniel Austin's here, has made his way by Simon Still into turn number 1, and as they make the way up the hill through turns 2 and 3 and onwards towards 4, will we see a return move here from Still in the Honda NSX. That Honda, of course, quite fast on the straights, much like the Aston Martin, but as they make the way towards the braking zone here, it's a case that Austin holds the position firm. He holds P12, and I think now he'll be going in hunting after Chris Black, who is 12.5 seconds up the road. And, well, Austin's has got a lot to do here today, but to be fair, it's very early in the race, and if anybody can do it, Austin's can. As he makes his way down towards turn number 7 at this point, we look from him to another driver who's recently gained a place, and that's Peter Kesberg here, who's found his way ahead of Jan Barth for P14, as the Dutch endurance team driver here makes his way around. And Jan Barth, to be fair, right now tucked in very close behind as the Germans, they make the way out towards turn number 7. Now, is he going to look for the move? He thinks about it, but he decides not to in there. I think that's smart there, given the fact that to try and go for a move into turn number 7, when you've got that run through into turn number 8, it's a long run, and the Porsche is not going to be safe in that long run as they make the way down towards the right-hander very shortly. And Buff keeps taking a look here, but every time he takes a look, of course, he's taking a little bit of speed off of the car as he makes his way through the corners. We see there Simon still parked up against the wall. What on earth has happened to the Honda driver? Well, this was only moments ago as we see the sparks fly there off of the back of the Aston Martin of Austin's. Now, as he made his way out the corner, you can see Austin's is dropping still, so I think this is an error of his own volition as he made his way up towards the corner. And I wonder if it's the case he's just taking a bit too much apex curb, alternatively the grass. Well, he's not touched the grass, it's the apex curb there, and it's just bounced the car on the suspension slightly, and it's caused the rear to come round before the front's able to settle down. And it is the case that Simon's still making a small error, but it has proven very costly. He's lost 3 places in that proceeding, and he's now behind Chris Mckenna. Simon's still down to P16. But as they make the way on through, we see here Richard Pixley off camera. He has found his way past Jordan Cotton as the Watkins Racing driver. Jordan Cotton dropping down to P5. But I wouldn't be surprised here if Cotton's running a slightly different strategy compared to Pixley. I think Pixley may be going all in on the strategy in terms of just trying to deliver lap after lap, whereas Cotton here might be taking a bit of a slower approach and deciding to run the car heavy. But speaking of running the car heavy right now, it is the case that if the Sim Racing Collective 99 have decided to run their car heavy, then the fact they've bought themselves 1.6 seconds of space to Alex Nunes behind, who we imagine might be running a bit of a lighter car to put some early pressure on, then the Sim Racing Collective driver will be feeling very comfortable right now as they make the way out of turn number 8 and up towards 9. But as they do here, 14 minutes have passed, we've still got plenty of time to go, and as the time wears on here at Watkins Glen, the field has spread out. We've now got the GT3s coming past the M2s for the first time, and there's a case, of course, that leads that major tactical element whereby GT3s need to be smart but sensible in terms of making the way on through. And speaking of making the way on through, we see here Denise Pope has found a way past what is Landrift. Well, how's that happened? We take a look back. Well, this was in the run out of turn number 7 up towards 8. You can see Landrift there taking a little bit of grass with him on the run down towards 8 and having to go around was the BMW M2. Pope not close enough to go for the move there into turn number 8, as we saw briefly behind it, Chris Black as well trying to muscle his way into the situation. And in the end, Pope getting the better run out of turn number 8 up into 9 and up the inside. And well, you can see on the camera there, Nunes falling. No, so that's just Luna, in fact. My apologies, getting our names mixed up. Luna there being caught up to by what is Chris Carr in battle for P3. As we return to the live pictures, P3 in the BMW class. So we've got battles happening left, right and centre now. And as Chris Black has found his way past what is Landrift off camera, Landrift's going to come back at him here in the run to the bus stop chicane. And you can just see, look at the speed differential between the Audi and the Porsche from that straight there. That Porsche looking as though it's just not in the same game. We've regards to the straight line speed, but to be fair, it may be the case that Black has decided to invest very heavily on aero and downforce by comparison with Landrift as they make the way in towards what is turn number 6 here. So let's not count Chris Black out right now. He might be running a different setup. He may have decided to lift out then go back on the offensive later on in the lap, because remember, we're now in Porsche territory. The deeper and deeper we get into the individual lap, with the fact after turn number 6 it starts to become more of a technical lap, and that is where the Porsche 991 excels compared to all of its counterparts in the GT3 class. It is the most technical car in terms of handling characteristics, and as he makes his way in the long pursuit down towards turn number 8, takes a peek, he thinks about going back for the move for P10. He can't quite make it happen at the moment as he waits behind us, Chris Black, but the Blacksmith Racing drive definitely looking to go on the offensive in short order as they roll the way through turn number 9. And in fact, as they come on through here, it is one of those cases whereby Black's going to have to be a little bit patient for the time being, as he's not close enough to affect the pass right now, but you can imagine when he can go for it, he'll definitely make the move. Meanwhile, in that battle for P3 in the BMW M2 class, we can see here's the half-practice hero machine of Jus Luna, who right now is being caught up to by Chris Carr. We're right on board here with the Dutchman as he makes his way up into a turn number 10, and we've got Richard Pixley into the pit lane. Well, that's an unexpected pit stop for Richard Pixley. I wonder if there's a bit of damage to the car, because it is the case we did hear there was a yellow flag for him earlier on. We're not 100% sure, but what we are sure of right now is any attempt from Chris Carr to make a move in Luna is going to be neutralised by the fact we have 3 GT3s going on through in quick succession, and that is there what I believe is Kesberg and Mckenna and Barthel coming on through, but they've been able to clear both of the BMW M2s quickly, so therefore it's no real change. Chris Carr's just got to be a little bit patient, but Luna there goes a bit deep, but meanwhile we can see there is the case that Kesberg under pressure here from the distinct GG driver behind them, Mckenna, as they make the way through turns 2, 3 and 4, but as they do, this is where it's going to matter. Where does Kesberg put the car? Does he put it on the outside? I think he's not going to put up a defence here. He's going to hope that he can get the run on the inside on the second part of the bus stop, and as they make the way in, Mckenna on the inside initially, he gets it done, or does he? Kesbergen's still on the inside to outside now as they roll the way on through, and Mckenna there I think was right on the limit of losing it, to be fair. The car looked as though it went to drift away, but he kept it there. Side by side they went, side by side they emerged, and Kesbergen still on the inside here as they make the way down towards turn number 6, but look at this from where's Jan Barth behind, looking to try and get in there as well. He can't quite get close enough at the moment. It's Kesbergen going defensive corner after corner as they roll the way into the right-hander, and as they make the way up the hill, well, Kesbergen goes a little bit deep, but he parks the car on apex for Mckenna once again, and Mckenna trying to find his way on through. We ride on board here with the McLaren drive. Now keep in mind, Jan Barth is right behind. Mckenna's going to take a look up the inside here. He's not close enough to go for it, and as he turns into the corner here for turn number 8, they've got the M2 of Andrew Pike in front of them right now, the race leader in the M2 class, and they're going to have to dive up the inside quickly here to continue the battle with Chris Mckenna as he makes his way through turn number 9. A bit of snap oversteer as he gets on power there. Of course, with the elevation change over the corner, there's a bump in the road as they go uphill to flat surface, and as they make the way through 10 into 11, you can see Kesbergen gets it slightly wrong. Defends though as they roll the way into them. This is intense between the two of them as they make the way on through, and in fact that's Alex Nunes. He's got ahead of Andrew Pike off camera for the lead of the BMW M2 class, so I'll wash my mouth out with soap and correct myself there. But meanwhile, Mckenna looking around the outside now into turn number 1, and as they roll the way through the right-hander here, it's the case that Britain tries to get it done, but he's made to go wide. They rejoin. There's a bit of a tap between the two of them, but Kesbergen showing no quarter as they make the way up the hill, and Jan Barth right now just having to watch, wait and witness as they make the way all the way towards the bus stop chicane once again. I think this is either going to end up with a pass very shortly, or it's going to end in tears, because right now it's only intensifying. Mckenna this time is a lot closer in the run to the bus stop chicane, but it's much like the previous lap here, and they stay as they were. Mckenna backs out this time. I think he recognises there's more to it later on in the lap than there is right now, and Jan Barth just stays there as Mckenna goes deep into turn number 6, and Barth thinks about it on the inside. Bentley not close enough to try and squeeze on in as they head on down the hill in towards turn number 6, and as they do here, this may be the battle for P12, but to them it's like battling for the win, and as they make the way out to turn 6, Mckenna on the inside there, but now Kesbergen will have the inside into turn 7. He covers it off there, and we can see Jan Barth taking a little bit of a peek, but Mckenna goes to the cut on the inside, not able to find it. Jan Barth waits. And as they make the way out to the corner, you can see Kesbergen goes very deep. And as they make the way down the back straight here, up towards turn number 8 in the long run, where Mckenna right now getting very close, but at the same time, Barth there looking very menacing indeed, but he's just not quite close enough to force the issue. I think he's hoping that the two in front will both start to knock one another about a little bit in terms of costing one another time, and perhaps both of them will go deep into a corner, but it's not materialising at this point as they make the way on through. We've got a yellow flag on circuit for Amit Sardar Kogulu, and I believe he's parked up around turn number 5, but we're focusing on this battle right now for P12 as they make the way out of turn number 10 up towards 11. The yellow flag is still waving. In fact, Carr, I think, had the car turn somewhere, but as they make the way across the timeline this time around to go on to lap number 12, where you can see there, Kesberg defends the inside. He makes Mckenna follow him to the inside before peeling back, and Mckenna does a switchback into turn number 1, but it's not enough. Kesberg just about breaks him, but he outbrakes himself and goes deep, and Mckenna has the run, and now Jan Barr's trying to come through, but he hasn't got the momentum in the Porsche. That's when the Porsche just does not have the legs, and Mckenna is ahead for now as they make the way round through turn number 4 here and up towards the bus stop chicane. This time around, it is one of those cases whereby Mckenna's now got to hold on for long enough. I think he feels so he's got the pace to hold on to that P12, but has he got the defensive line as he loses the rear of the car, and Kesberg collects him, and Jan Barr comes on through to take P12. Well, I said he's going to have to wait, watch and witness, and he's done exactly that. He gains a 2-for-1 promotion, and it is the case in the end. Kesberg and Mckenna come to blows, albeit Mckenna loses it. Kesberg follows him, and it's all gone wrong, and with that, Simon Still is now up to P13 as well for SS Racing. It's a brilliant battle. It's all gone so wrong for two of the drivers, but two other drivers who gained massively from it. But now, of course, the Honda NSX driver here will have the pressure because Kesberg will be coming at him like a hot rod as they make the way out through turn at number 7. But as they do, we must look from them to our race leader right now. As we can see here, Harry Phillips coming up behind a little bit of fellow teammate traffic here in the form of Evan the Toughest as they make the way in towards turn number 5. And then Daryl Young has managed to slightly break away from Sakiri Lehtinen. Not enough effectively to be able to give himself safety, but he is now 6/10 clear in this battle for P2, and I wonder, of course, whether there's that other dynamic. We have seen Lehtinen very smart on strategy, typically able to jump time in terms of that pit strategy compared to his rivals. We saw it at Donington, we gained places in the pits and gained a lot of race time as well. Can he do that again today as they make the way on down in towards turn number 7? Well, as they do, of course, having to navigate the way on around, but we look to one driver who's trying to gain ground left, right and centre, and that is Blacksmith Racing's Chris Black. He had it all go wrong, of course, at turn number 1 early on, and of course we have not cleared our opening 24 minutes yet, so we still got just over 2 hours of racing to go, but Black here wasting no time in going hunting. His next target is Mike Landreth here, and will Landreth's going to leave the door open as they make the way into turn number 6, but he can't quite find it right now as we ride on board the dashboard here of the Blacksmith Racing machine as he decides to take to the grass a little bit there, trying to carry a bit too much speed out of the corner, and as they make the way into turn number 7 here, it is the case. I think Landreth is really struggling at this point in the race. Black is all over the back of him, and in fact they now drag race their way down towards turn number 8. You'll notice here how the Audi is just able to gradually outrace. Oh, goodness me, now what on earth has happened there? I believe we have, well, that was a little bit of a connectivity issue. I'm not exactly sure what's happened, but it does look as though Landreth is still holding P9 then. Hopefully it's not a sign of something to come on the server, but it is the case. The Ember Racing driver there safe, but it looked a lot closer than we thought, and Chris Black in fact has fallen back a little bit as they make the way through turns at 10 and 11, but that was a little bit of a scary moment there, and well, hopefully we don't see something like that happen again, as it is the case. We want to see the racing continue in fluidity. But speaking of things being fluid at this point, it is the case ever since taking the lead of the BMW M2 class off camera, it is the case that Nunes right now, the Rapid Drivers Club driver, definitely trying to push on here. He's got a 4.6 second advantage from the Sim Racing Collective 99 machine being piloted by Andrew Pike, and he wants to try and run away with this, does the Portuguese driver right now, because the more time he can gain now, the better place he'll be in. Of course, this time around it is the case that Nunes has always driven this car by himself. He's not had a driver to switch to when he's come into the pit, and Pike now is on equal footing with him, and therefore it comes down to also that battle of the stamina, the endurance of the drivers, because the key thing that the Sim Racing Collective have had to their advantage is whilst they have to spend an extra few seconds in the pits, whether it being 30 seconds for a driver swap, compared to the fact that for a single driver your maximum pit stop time, if my memory serves me correctly, is 25 seconds for a tyre change plus also putting fuel in the car if you put maximum fuel in. It is the case there, when you put a fresh driver in the car, you have somebody who is not worn out, they're full of stamina, they're absolutely pumped, and they can deliver on those laps, whereas if you've got to do the whole 2.4 hours by yourself, no matter how good your endurance is, as you go deeper and deeper into the race, you are more and more prone to making mistakes. Even the best will admit that it is the case. You cannot continue at that level of that 99 to 100% all the way through the race. You've got to pace pace yourself. And as they make the way on around right now, Nunes definitely feeling, I think, that need to pace himself here because he's got a good advantage. And speaking of advantage, Daryl Young here, as we see Jake Holmes there cheering on Daz in the YouTube chat. It is the case that Daryl Young trying to break away from the team. He's got the gap up to just over a second last time it was evaluated across the timeline, but I do wonder there whether with the traffic they're negotiating right now, this battle has cooled down a little bit and we're getting the calm before the storm. Because if we do have just under 2 hours remaining, we've got plenty of time, and we've also got our mandatory pit stop. Perhaps we'll have multiple pit stops as well for some drivers. We know that Pixley and Fox already pitted. They're likely to have to take second stops, given the fact they pitted so early. And some of you may be asking at this point or wondering, how do we know if a driver's cleared their mandatory pit stop? How can we tell? Well, on the time on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see there between the driver's door number and their gap to the car in front, there is going to be a rectangle. Now, it's either green, such as in the case of Richard Pixley. And speaking of Richard Pixley, here is the Watkins Racing driver. If it's green, that means they have cleared that stop, so they've made one pit stop already. If it is orange, stroke brown, with a number 1 inside it, a white number 1, that means there is one mandatory pit stop still to be cleared. And we'll see that turn to green when they clear the pit stop. And we'll, of course, with Pixley and Fox pitting before we even reach the 24-minute clear mark, will it be anyone's guess that they do have to take a second stop at some point to get themselves to the end of the race. But of course there was that big question at Donington, were we expecting a 2-stop race or a 1-stop? Well, it was a 1-stop in the end at Donington Park, and will it be another 1-stop here today? But as he makes his way up through the left into right here, and we say hello to Little Matt in the YouTube chat, saying that Mr. Young, I presume referring to Daryl Young, is dreamy. Quite the fan club there for Daryl Young. Love to see it. But as they make the way on through, it is the case that Mike Landreth right now has a bit of a fan club of his own, albeit it is the case they're not celebrating the fact he's in P9. They want that P9 off him, and that is Daniel Austin's here. And right now the recovering Aston Martin driver looking to gain that P9, but you can see here how it is the case that Landreth able to use Chris Carr there in the BMW M2, the fresh sim racing driver, to act as a rolling roadblock there. Very tactical move there by Landreth to essentially close off Austin, who I think was trying to think about a move up into the inside of turn number 9, what had been a slow apex, but as they make the way through the final corner right now, it is the case that Austin's here having to wait his turn, but I don't think he's got to wait for long here, because we do know that Austin's very fast in the first half of the lap, although they do have their use Lunaire in front of them, albeit they've cleared the BMW M2 driver. And as they make the way into turn number 1, once again both off racing line, that's going to cost Austin's the momentum he needs, although then again he gets a lot of momentum out of one compared to Landreth. They've got Denise Pope just right in front of them. To be fair to Pope, running comfortably in P8 right now and trying to run away, but as they make the way through turns 2, 3 and 4 at this point, Austin's looking at these two in front, I think salivating and fancying his chances as they make the way all down. As they head on down at this point, it is the case, and it's only fair, Calgon UK. I do agree with you 100%. We talk about Denise Pope making a great start to this race. What about the Aston Martin Vantage, a V12 being piloted by the Dutch endurance team Gold here of Jeroen Jongen, the Dutchman here right now. P7, remember these guys started P12 and they have made their way into P7 here and are delivering, and their pace, to be fair, in a car that has not been featured in the Blancpain as it used to be on the GT World Challenge Series since 2018. For a car that is now effectively 4 years out of date, it is pushing hard. But I can tell you someone else who's pushing hard. Here's Daniel Austin's, and here's how he made the move. Making the move up the inside then versus Mike Landreth into turn number 7, into toe corner there, up the inside. Landreth not defending that one hard, and I think Landreth respecting the fact that Austin seemed to be in a little bit of a faster racing zone at this point, and Landreth focusing more, I think, on using Austin's to pull him back up to Denise Pope just in front there as they make the way through the left-hander. But as they roll the way on through, of course, their target for all three of these drivers will be the Aston Martin V12 Vantage ahead, as we do see there wounds, front wounds on what is the Sim Racing Collective 99 machine. But we were wondering how the pass was made. Oh, goodness me, I believe that is going to be this contact there between the Sim Racing Collective machine and Mike Landreth into the final corner. And I think Andrew Pike has been pushed around more than once, and that may explain why they've fallen out of the lead of the BMW M2 CS class. And Will Pike will not be very happy about that, I can tell you now. I can tell you someone who will be happy about the fact that his rival in front of him has dropped it on circuit, and that is Chris Black here, because the Blacksmith Racing driver right now is gaining ever more as they make the way up the hill and he's gaining on Mike Landreth as they head towards the bus stop chicane this time around. As they roll the way on through turn number 4 here and all the way up towards turn 5 at this point in time, it is the case of Chris Black trying to get close, but just see how much speed's been taken out of the car there as they make the way through into the bus stop chicane. That gap opens up by a couple of attempts, and it's almost as if the Porsche isn't moving at all compared to the Audi. But then Sonny, as soon as we clear the bus stop chicane, he closes all the way back up against me. Now we enter the technical section And as he rolls his way on down the hill here, they're going to have to navigate their way past what is there, the leader of the BMW M2 class. And as they make the way on through there, well, Alex Nurse will be breathing a sigh of relief. And when he sees that timer update in terms of the relative to his rival behind the bike, I think he'll be aware that something's happened behind him, because that gap has jumped up. It's almost doubled, in fact, to now 16 seconds since the last time we caught it, where it was about 8 seconds. But as we see Chris Black here caught up behind, we ride on board with the Porsche 991 driver. And as he tries to look for the move here, one thing that's very noticeable or telling here about Landreth versus Black, Black is able to break a lot deeper into the corners compared to Landreth. Now, I wonder whether Landreth might be running quite a high ABS in that Audi at the moment, because he does seem to just not have that confidence on the brakes. He's got really good position under braking, which is what ABS systems give you, but they don't give you that retardation of the car, whereas Black, by comparison, is blasting it on the brakes into each corner. And you can see here as he comes into turn 11, he's almost within touching distance on the back of that Audi, and he's got to be fair, because as you can see on the straightaway here, look at the gap that opens up. And whilst of course we are on a straight and it's only opened up by a couple of attempts, that couple of attempts is a lifetime for the Porsche by comparison, and we'll see it again here as he goes deep. A bit of understeering the dirty air, and that is going to cost Black a lot of time as he now makes his way on up the hill. But as they do, we do look from them to Scott Ticehurst here running P5, and Ticehurst gaining a lot of time at the start of this race. Remember, he started towards the back end of what was the top 10, and now he's right up there in the top 5 here. It's a happy day for the 352 driver here, and of course, after making some absolutely brilliant performances, Donington in particular, where he started, if my memory serves me correctly, from the back of the field and charged all the way up to into a top 10 finish or close enough to one. You can imagine that Ticehurst is trying to do that again today, but this time, of course, starting from a much better place on the grid. But as he makes his way down towards what is turn number 8 here, we have to look to Daniel Austin's. Right now on this recovery drive, he's all over the back of Denise Pope, and well, we ride on board here with the Wildwings Racing driver as they make the way into turn at number 7. Now as they run their way out to their toes, of course it will be the case that Austin is going to be keeping Pope on her toes as they make the way all the way down towards turn 8. You can see Pope going defensive here. The Aston Martin hammering the legs on the McLaren initially, but as they start to make their way into the mid gears, Austin's trying to break round the outside. This is going to be very brave from Austin's in the corner that you don't attack around the outside traditionally, but what Austin's is trying to do here, he's trying to throw moves left, right and centre. He's trying to get into Pope's head and get Pope to make a mistake in some of these critical corners. Turn 9's a critical one, of course, because of the run to 10 and 11. But as they make the way through, Pope not phased by that. As they make the way from the left into right, you can see Austin's in fact falling back a little bit here and to rethink the strategy as they make the way into the final corner and roll the way around to complete lap number 18 for them. But as they do, Pope not getting anywhere near to that exit wall, and by comparison, Austin's taking about 2 to 3 miles an hour more speed out the corner. But as they make the way into one, it's not enough. Rolling the way on through here, but this is where Austin is going to get the better run. You can see just carrying more speed as they both use the exit curve there respectively as they head up the hill. When it's one wide all the way up here, and Austin will know that. He'll wait for the run out of 4 up towards the chicane. He's getting closer and closer here, and meanwhile, which way's Pope going to go? Will she put it on the left? Will she put it on the right? Will she put it in the middle? She puts it on the inside here, and as they make the way all the way down, Austin's is going to try and go outside to inside into the chicane, and as they make the way through, I don't think you'll ever want to go on the inside because of that wall from earlier on, but they head on through it. Pope holds off Austin's right now as they make the way down through turn number 5, but you can see how the Aston Martin driver is so close right now, and as they come on out, he's got to be careful as they make the way in towards 6 here because these braking zones come up very fast. To be fair, Austin's will know that just like anybody else racing in this league, but that's how close he wants to get. But the closer you get, of course, the less reaction time you have and the more difficult it becomes. But as they head on down, we've got a yellow flag, and that's a Mike Landreth who's parked there on, I believe, that is the run. I'm not entirely sure. I think that's the run into turn number 6. In fact, yes, it is turn 6, but he's had it go so very, very wrong for Mike Landreth. I think the car's just simply turned there on the spot. I'm not entirely sure what exactly has happened. We take a look back. Was his mate his way around? Well, Chris Black was nowhere to be seen until there, so it wasn't with Chris Black. I think it's an error of his own volition. Carried way too much speed into the corner. You can see the car was starting to drift wide, and Black, to be fair, just simply sauntering around the outside there, almost as if he was on rails. More to be fair, great reactions from Chris Black, but Mike Landreth not having a happy day at the office there at turn number 6 and dropping to P11 as a result of that small error. He gets himself back up to speed. There'll be a bit of bruise to his pride and also to the tyres there as he makes his way into turn number 7, and we return to those live pictures. And as as we do, it is the case that we do look from them to a little bit further down the order, and in particular to Marcus Fox here. And do keep in mind, of course, Marcus Fox is 2 laps down on the GT3 class field right now. The random racing driver here has taken 1 pit stop. We expect him to have to take a 2nd pit stop, given the fact he was involved in that incident on the opening lap. And right now, the Honda NSX driver's just got to try and bring the car to the end and hope he can bring it on home as he makes his way around. We have had 2 retirements in this race so far, both GT3 drivers, one of them being Amit Seda Kagulu, and I'm not 100% sure on who our other retiree was. I think it is our Bentley that's retired, in fact. Vantage Racing, and it is, in fact, I can confirm we have lost our Bentley out on the circuit, so that is very unfortunate. We have lost the BMW Sim Racing team and also the Vantage Bentley Racing team, but we still do have 22 drivers in participation, all 5 of our BMW M2s, and what is 17 out of, I believe, 19 of our GT3s. But as they make the way on around at this point, it is the case we do look from Marcus Fox to a little bit further back in the order, albeit at the front of the order technically, as they come across that line. And as they make the way on around, we can see Andrew Pike here, but in front of him we do have running on around, that's the number 7 car there of Richard Pixley, and in front of him that was Daryl Young in the number 9 Audi, the Wildfings Racing drivers. And we can see Sakiri Lehtinen here, and the Team Honda Racing driver from Lehtinen Racing not really having that opportunity to close up to Daryl Young. But again, we reckon there's some strategic mastery going on in the background here, in the fact that Lehtinen right now is not letting Daryl Young get away. Their lap times are very comparable. That last lap, Lehtinen was 4/10 of a second faster by comparison, but they've been lapping on average in the low 46s, and well, Lehtinen, I think, just trying to keep Young within arm's reach. Meanwhile, Harry Phillips just off in the distance, 8 seconds clear of Daryl Young, 10 seconds clear of Lehtinen, but it could all change, of course, in the pits. We don't know what happens. We've got a long way to go. But meanwhile, we can see here Pope having to defend versus Austin's, again, as Austin's this time trying to go round the outside to inside cutback. And as we ride on board here of Austin's, will it be in the run up towards the bus stop chicane? Well, he's going to have the run here. He's got the tow. He's got plenty of time. But can he get close down? That McLaren has proven to be very fast in the run down the straights. And as they make the way through the right-hander of 4, heading on up towards the bus stop chicane now. Austin won't want to be on the inside because that wall on the right side is called about once already today. As they make the way on through, he's going to look side by side here, but he can't quite find it as Pope just takes the line, the natural line through the middle. And I think Austin's there trying to get Pope to back out on the outside, but it was the case Pope wasn't going to back out. And then Austin's had come from so far back, and Austin's in the end was trying to get the nose into the apex in order to try and force the contention, trying to sight Pope out, but Pope proving otherwise to be resilient. And as they make the way out to turn number 6, down towards 7 they go. Austin's trying every trick in the book here, but Pope seems to have an answer for everything. It's almost as if she's taking a final race of the exam right now, and she's answering every question spot on. But Austin's, to be fair, has still got plenty more cards up his sleeve, and he's going to keep throwing them out left and right and centre. But as they make the way down the back straight this time, it is a little bit of latency there for Austin. I do believe we might have a little bit of latency on our server, and we do apologise for that. We can see no change between these two. But meanwhile, as they make the way on around, it is the case we look a little bit further back in the order, in particular to Richard Pixley here, who in fact they make the way up towards turn number, well, in fact up towards the bus stop chicane, which doesn't actually have a turn number, interestingly enough. It is the case that Pixley has found his way past Chris Mckenna, and here is Mckenna making his way on down, and well, Mckenna right now caught behind Pixley, knowing that Pixley's got to make another stop as well. But Mckenna, I think, just playing it smart, keeping it safe after what has been a very up and down, a to and fro race so far for so many drivers. That you won't want to make any significant errors here, as it is the case those could be very costly indeed as he tries to hunt after a top 15 finish. He's got Lehtinen behind him, of course, the Lehtinen Racing driver who's trying to come through a lap ahead. And I think Mckenna's going to oblige in short order as they make the way up towards turn number 8. But as they do, in this case McKenna obliges, he backs out and then joins back on the racing line, and we look from McKenna to our drivers in the BMW M2 class, and in particular to Chris Carr here, who is 7.7 seconds behind Luna right now. He was closer earlier on, but Carr at this point I think having to settle into a rhythm here and focusing on trying to get the car home. And of course we have already seen some of our M2s, particularly the Sim Racing Collective Machines Carr there almost gets it wrong at turn number 6, just about keeping it within track limits, and I think outbraking himself into the corner there. But we have already seen how some of our M2s have been knocked about a little bit by the GT3s, particularly the Sim Racing Collective 99 machine earlier on at the final corner. And Carr at this point I think was just focusing on bringing the car on around lap after lap here, not doing anything spectacular, and just trying to get it on home, because of course if Luna's caught in an instant, it may be a P3 for Carr on the books. And then we do have the toughest, is a little bit further back, 7.6 seconds back, but chasing after Carr, and we've still got plenty of time to go. And speaking of time to go, we do see here Richard Pixley. Oh, goodness me, what on earth has happened here? As we've got cars coming through left, right and centre. Well, it's the case that Kesberg and Pixley have both been caught up in an instant. And, well, they're going to try and get themselves back together. Now, they've got no cars coming up behind them. It's good news. They do have a car coming now, but I think it's the case. It'll be the off-pace motorsports machine, and will Kesberg rejoin safely. But we take a look back at what exactly happened. So it was Pixley versus Kesberg through turn 3. There was a little bit of contact there. It looks as though it was netcode contact between the two drivers, in fact, where the cars didn't actually touch one another on our screen, but the server said they did, or the internet connection said they did. And notice there, by the way, one key thing, Lehtinen absolutely cat-like reflexes to slam on the brakes there. That could have been a disaster for the Honda NSX driver. He nailed that, and that's why he's still running in P3 and why he is a championship candidate here in Season 2, because that was a very quick reaction there from Lehtinen, and indeed for everybody else around to find their way on through. Thank goodness, of course, it is so tight in the connection from turn 3 to 4, and everybody, when we've had instants there, has safely negotiated their way around those instants or stopped for them, and that's great to see. And as they make their way on down and around at this point, it is the case. Return to those live pictures. Peter Kesberg, of course, in that contact with Pixley, now down to P16. And I think he might be fuming at that one, but I think the pair of them might be thinking, well, I made no contact with the other guy. How on earth did that happen? Well, I think when they look back at it later, they'll notice that it was netcode rather than contact between the cars themselves. But meanwhile, we do look from P16 driver of Kesbergen up to P7 driver of Jongen here. And it is the case you're owning Jongen in the Dutch Endurance Team at Gold. Aston Martin, the Dutchman right now. In terms of his lap times, lapping in the high 46s, but to be fair, he's matching the pace of P6 driver Leighton Austin in the BMW M4. It is the case the 325 driver here definitely delivering the goods. And, well, I must say, whilst we do love all of our GT3s, I think we have to have a little bit of special love for that V12 Vantage, as we talked about earlier, and particularly Calgod UK there in the Twitch chat, who's really happy to see this car doing so well, and I'm pleased to see it as well, and I think a top 10 could definitely be on the cards. They've had to really fight hard. Spa didn't work out for them, Donington didn't work out for them, but here it's working out with Watkins Glen, and they are charging on around right now. And speaking of Leighton Austin, well, the Quantum Racing Team driver, he's had a quiet race so far, but to be fair, just putting in those laps and running in that P6 position, he could be looking to match his season best performance here today if he's able to bring this home. But we've got a long way to go. Peter Kesbergen's into the pits as I look out my commentary box window. I presume that's to repair the damage done to the car in that contact with Pixley at turns 3 and 4. And as Austin makes his way down into turn number 6 right now, well, to be fair, our highest placed BMW M4 is the case our other M4 has retired in the form of Carr, and now it is the case that Austin has got all the pressure to bear in being the BMW to make it home in the GT3 class. As he makes his way on around, we do look to Scott Ticehurst here, running in P5 and with a 3.2 second gap to Jordan Cotton. How's the lap times going between these two? Well, I can tell you right now they are matching one another relatively so, although I say that we look to Jordan Cotton who I think in fact has just had to clear a little bit of traffic. I believe that's Richard Pixley. He's had to make his way on past, and that may have cost the off-pace motorsports driver a bit of time as they make the way to the final corner and then on towards that timeline to go on to another lap. And let's see how the gap has evolved between the two of them. So it was 3.2 seconds the last time around. Cotton crosses the timeline, and as he does, Ticehurst is 2.7 seconds back. It's another half a second game for Ticehurst. Ticehurst is flying right now, and Jordan Cotton will need to respond soon because otherwise he is going to be at risk of being under attack. But as they make the way on down and around at this point, heading on up the hill, we can see it is the case that Cotton here definitely pushing as much as he possibly can and really flying right now is the Aston Martin driver, but it's Ticehurst in particular who is delivering those laps. He's not on the pace to our top 3. Indeed, our top 3 right now lapping in the high 44s. If you're Harry Phillips, 44.9 his last lap, all 30 in those low 45s, so Darryl Young 45.2 and Lehtinen a 45.3. But Cotton and Ticehurst right now, Cotton in the 46s and high 45s, Ticehurst in the mid to high 45s. We're definitely brewing up a battle here as they make the way down and around through turn 5 into 6. But as they roll the way on down at this point, how's it going in the M2 class? Well, here is your M2 class leader of Alex Nunes right now, the Rapid Drivers Club driver. And as he makes his way on around at this point, the Portuguese, he does have an 18-second advantage, which is gradually stabilising, if not opening further, versus the Sim Racing collective machine of Andrew Pine. Now, we do have to keep in mind Now, Andrew Pike, the second place driver in the class, as you can see here, and you can see on the picture, in fact, what we're about to say being pictorialised, it is the case the Sim Racing Collector machine has been in a few bumps and scrapes. It may be down the straights. There may also be some damage to the steering rack or the suspension there. We're not 100% sure exactly what's damaged, other than the fact the car is still serviceable. It hasn't been given a meatball flag, but meanwhile, we have to stop our fault there because we do have Denise Pope still under pressure from Austin's here. And well, there was a brief attempt around the outside at turn number 6 from Austin's, but he's not been able to find a way on through. And Pope continuing to dig deep for this P8 position versus Austin's. And to be fair, you could understand from Pope's perspective, because right now looking to try and bring home a first top 10 of the season as I make the way through the right hand of turn number 8. And Pope here really under pressure as Austin tries to go all the way around the outside, trying to force Pope to commit to the inside. But Pope, to be fair, might have been on that inside line by comparison, but parks the car on the apex very nicely there. And Austin's, I can imagine there's a bit of frustration grinding that Aston Martin right now, because Pope continues to have an answer for everything. But as they make their way out to 10 into 11, heading all the way through the final corner here, you can see Austin's this time extremely close, and Pope being made to commit to the inside wall here. And well, Austin's is going to have all the space to play with. Now, can he outbrake the McLaren into turn 1? He's going to try and go all the way around the outside. And as they do here, Pope gives the space, Austin's gives the space. That's a drag race all the way up towards turn number 4 and 5. But as they come on through here, of course, 2 wide, it means that Austin's on that high line, has to back out briefly through 2. But as they head through 3 now, Pope has to do the same. And as they make the way, even Stevens all the way through 4. It's McLaren on the inside, it's Aston Martin on the outside towards the bus stop chicane. Austin's tucks back in here, he just does not have enough to get the move done in terms of the drag race. But as they head through the chicane, you can see Pope once again squaring it off. And what does it take, Austin's will be saying, to get past the Watkins Racing driver? Well, you've got to find a more inventive way, because it was almost going to turn 1, but Pope stayed in there, stayed the course. And as they roll the way down through turn number 6, this is where we thought there was a bit of an overtake. There's a tiny little tap between the two of them there. Austin's is made to go a little bit deep, but I think that's only natural given how close they're racing one another. And as they make the way through turn number 7 right now, one thing I can imagine Austin's might be starting to think about is, if he can't make this move soon, does he try and go for an undercut pit stop, given the fact that we've got quite a sparse field at the moment in terms of where they're located on circuit, and therefore that could be a way. But still, we do have, what is it, 97 minutes of racing to go, and I can imagine 97 minutes on a single set of tyres would be, or 95 minutes if he cleared his pit stop come the end of this lap. That 95 minutes would be very painful towards the end, even though the Aston Martin is very kind to its tyres compared to its peers in the class. But as they make the way out of turn at number 8 and 9 and up towards 10 and 11, it is the case here, Pope holding on, and Austin's having to throw everything at the situation. But they roll the way on through once again, and we ride on board, this time on the dashboard of the Aston Martin Racing driver. And as they make the way down towards the 1, you can see once again Austin's pinning Pope to the inside. Now, is he going to try and stay behind Pope? No, he's going to make his way around the outside once again. And as they roll the way through, this time going for the cutback, but Pope holds him there. She holds him behind, and as they make the way through turn number 2 and up towards 4, you can see that Austin's there, literally trying, if he can't go around the outside, trying the classic cutback outside to inside. It hasn't worked. It's going very close, but as they make the way through the right-hander, we've got Chris Black into the pits from P11, but Austin's here now looking to try and go around the outside once again into the bus stop chicane, but no dice this time. And indeed, Pope just simply taking that racing line, feeling comfortable as they roll the way on through. You can see Austin's there a little bit unsettled, hitting that final apex curve, a high apex curve, of course, hitting it quite hard, and it destabilising the front of the car. But Austin's not feeling any upset in the car, just pressing on. He looks the inside, it's a late move, and there's contact between the two of them there, and Pope is turned, and Austin's parks it up briefly. And well, I think Pope is not going to be too happy about that one. I think it'll be the case the Watkins Racing drivers, you see Austin's there immediately backing off to let Pope back through, and well, in the end, as they make the way down, a flash of lights there from Pope, I think, to say thank you. And as they roll the way up towards turn number 7 right now, Austin's there, looked to the inside, thought the space was going to be there, but I think it was always going to shut that door, and Pope was just simply trying to open up the corner for herself on that inside line. But as they make their way back up to speed, I can tell you that Black has left the pit lane, and well, he's taken his initial stop for the evening. Does he have another on the car? That's a big question. He's come from what is P11 coming into the pits, he's back out in P14, and in terms of that pit stop, it was the case, it was a 32.7 second stop, which I would believe believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, will mean that he has taken a tyre change, and Will Black's going to need, indeed, I think everybody's going to need a tyre change here for 2.4 hours of racing, and indeed it is going to be that mandatory requirement as well as they roll the way on through. Just keeping you all checked there, guys, in terms of making sure that you know there is mandatory tyre change as well as taking on fuel in the pit lane, as Black makes his way on down here in towards what is turn number 6. It is the case that 917 driver here, well, he's come out in a big logjam of cars, and in particular Jordan Cotton really having to scythe his way on through in what is turn at number 7. And as he makes his way on through here, Kesberg going a little bit deep there to let the P4 driver on through. Meanwhile, Lehtinen Austin's now coming up behind this as well as they roll the way through. Scott Tysers has come in from P5, it should be pointed out, and has rejoined, or will be rejoining, as I'm to understand it, in P11 at this point in time, as Lehtinen Austin here makes his way in hot pursuit of Jordan Cotton. But in terms of the way the lap time's going at the moment, well, Cotton's definitely going to feel the pinch on that lap. Given the way the traffic formed on circuit, Tysers meanwhile making his way out of the pit lane. Well, here he comes, he clears the pit limits line, and as he heads on through, it is the case that Britain here in the 352 car, well, he makes his way back on out. Oh, goodness me, and I think there was a rule around those pit exit lines and those pit entry lines. We did see him cut across that. I'm not sure if these shows will be taking a harsh stance on that post round. Of course, there is no live stewarding for this series. It is the case that this is a post round stewarded series only. It is the case that drivers have to report to our stewarding team at Rapid Drivers Club, and there was a mention about pit entry and pit exit lines as well. I think it was more around the pit entry lines unless I'm mistaken, but don't quote me on that. My memory's not serving me the best today in terms of the exact rules and regulations the stewards are applying, but that's why they're the stewards, and I'm your broadcaster and commentator as Tysers makes his way back up to speed here in the Audi R8 Evo 2 and rolling his way down on towards turn number 6. But as he does, it is the case, he's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him, some of the M2s ahead, but I think he'll feel safe in clearing those, and it is only really one of the M2s, and that is your M2 class leader of Alex Nunes here, who continues to open the gap up gradually versus Andrew Pike. The gap now up to almost 21 seconds. As they make the way on around here, it is the case we've still got plenty of pit stops to come, particularly for our GT3 drivers, but also all of our M2 field has yet to take their first stop, so I have to wait and see who flinches first. But speaking of flinching at this point, it is the case I think Chris Black will not flinch in his pursuit after what is Richard Pixley there as he makes his way through the right hand. You can see Kesberg there a lap down in P16, just behind Chris Black by comparison, as they make the way all the way down towards turn number 8. And as they do here, you may be wondering with regards to the strategy, how does it play out in terms of the drivers who pitted versus those who are staying out of the circuit? Well, of course, the big challenge is when you try to stay out of the circuit as long as possible is the fact that in these strategic stakes, we see that Denise Pope has yielded P7 to Daniel Austin. We didn't catch that on camera, but from what I'm hearing in my ear, there wasn't as much of a defense this time, and I think Pope wary of what happened at this corner only moments ago, and perhaps thinking, you know what, I'm only losing time by fighting Austin's. I've had the fight, it's gone wrong once, let's not have it go wrong again. And as they roll the way on through, I don't think Austin's meant anything by it. A bit hot-headed on the inside there into turn at number 6, but if you're not hot-headed as a racer, whether in the real world or sim race, it is the case that you probably have not pushed it too hard and found that limit, but Daniel Austin has definitely found that limit today in terms of pushing it hard as he makes his way out to turn at number 8, and as he rolls his way up the hill now, still pushing, of course, he's got a long way to go. Coming back to that strategic question, of course, the drivers who have made their pit stops now really need to deliver lap after lap for the simple reason that having made that pit stop initially, you would imagine that the vast majority of them are likely to have a second stop on the cards, and well, if they're not, if they're going to go to the end on the tyres they've got at the moment, they'll need to keep that pace together, they'll need to be able to essentially protect the tyres and also save the fuel in the car. But regardless of which approach they're taking, they need to navigate the traffic they find on circuit. So the M2s and any GT3s that are a lap down compared to the driver, they've got to navigate it in a smart fashion, because every second they lose on their second stint, they are losing effectively to the drivers who've yet to pit, and those drivers will gain a significant time advantage in terms of when they do come into the pits, they then have what is track authority in terms of they've been holding on to the track position ahead, and therefore they'll be expected to come back out ahead. And it's a nice fitting thing as well, particularly when you've got a lot of clear air and you've yet to pit compared to your rivals who have pitted. And one driver who knows that massively, that is Harry Phillips, your leader, and he'll be in a World Things Racing Porsche. We'll cut to him shortly, but here's Richard Pixley, who's just found his way past Chris Mckenna as they make their way into turn number 9 there, and we take a look back. this was only moments ago as they made the way up through turn number 7. Mckenna on the inside line there with Alex Nunes on the outside of the BMW M2 leader, and I think it was in the drag race down towards turn number 8 that Richard Pixley had the speed, looked to the inside here, and as they made the way into the braking zone up the inside of Mckenna, and Mckenna didn't really have anything he could do there other than look for a potential cutback if Pixley went a bit too deep on the corner. But as they made the way up the hill, it was the case. Pixley getting it done and moving up into P12 and inching ever closer to the top 10. But as they make the one around, of course, Pixley hitting within the first 24 minutes. We do believe he's got another stop on the schedule. And here, meanwhile, is Chris Black, who is chasing after him up the inside there for turn number 4. And Chris Mckenna, the distinct GG driver here, under pressure. And you can see Chris Black gets ahead, but the Blacksmith Racing driver now has to worry about the McLaren trying to go to his inside. But it is the case in the end. Black is safe. He gets the move done, and Mckenna not able to find his way through. Chris Black up to P13, McKenna down to P14 as they head down and around through turn at number 5. But as they do, we look from them to race leader Harry Phillips over on in the GT3 class. And when you're the race leader, of course, you've got nobody in front of you who you're chasing. Therefore, you do have that clear track and therefore that advantage, which is you can keep banging in those laps, lap after lap. And to be fair to Phillips, the fastest lap of this race has been set by him. It's a 44.787. His last lap was a 45.0. And this lap, as he comes to the time, on a 45.3. That pace is not dipping at any point. It is the case. He is managing this pace. And I wouldn't be surprised if Phillips is trying to go to about an hour and 20 minutes remaining to give himself a comfortable second stint. He must be getting towards the end of the lifespan of the stint right now, given the fact the fuel is wearing down, plus the tyres are wearing down. But Phillips is delivering lap after lap, and this is phenomenal. Really carrying on from where he left off at Donington Park. Meanwhile, Daryl Young here, well, he is still in a battle for P2 with Sakiri Lehtinen, and here is the Honda Racing driver, the Lehtinen Racing Honda Racing driver from Finland, as he makes his way on up the hill. The gap between the two of them is 5 seconds, but they are not falling out of sight of one another, and particularly Lehtinen is gradually trying to bring that gap back down. He's let it grow a bit, to be fair, over the course of this opening stint, but when it's only a 5-second gap, that 5 seconds is very quickly made or lost in the pits. And as they make their way down and around into turn at number 5 at this point, you can imagine the number 30 driver right now just digging deep here and focusing on what he can deliver. And seeing Marcus Fox in front of him, I think thinking at this point, well, I'm glad I'm not racing you, given the fact we saw Fox was looking very fast, almost as fast as Lehtinen in qualifying. It was only thousandths that separated the two of them, but of course, their fortunes have been very different. Lehtinen having a happy opening lap, Fox having quite the opposite in the run to the bus stop chicane. It did not all work out for Fox, and now he's trying to recover this race in P15 at the moment, 2 laps down on Mckenna as we're to understand it. But as they make the way on around at this point, we do look from them to Chris Black, who right now is putting a lot of pressure on Richard Pixley in the hunt for P12. Remember, these two have already taken their pit stops as we ride on board here with the 991 of what is Black, and of course the Porsche 991 I should say, in the 917 car, as he makes his way through the right-hander of turn at number 2. You can see how much closer he's getting on corner exit. About to fight the steering wheel there. He got a huge amount of oversteer on corner exit. And I think Chris Black trying to push the car a bit too hard there as they make their way down to turn number 8. That's not going to help the rear tyres at all. Particularly that rear left tyre will take an absolute beating when you have moments like that coming out to a right-hander where you're trying to deploy the power in a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, and you're having to siphon at the steering wheel because that rear right-hand tyre's got all the power deployment, but it's also trying to dig into the camber of the road in order to give you that final part of the corner rotation as they make the way through turn number 10 up towards 11. Black is definitely pushing here, and Pixley right now is looking a lot more composed. He's not on the pace of Black, to be fair, if we take their relative laps by comparison. For example, that last lap, before they crossed the line this time around, 6 tenths was gained by Chris Black. This time, he's gained what is another 10 because that little moment, obviously he's caught in the draft now. As they make the way out of 1 here, Black going very quickly indeed out of 1. He's going to look for the move here in the charge up towards the bus stop chicane. As they make the way through 2, he's very close. He thinks so. He's going to look to peel to the outside here, but surely not. No, he backs off and goes to the cutback. This is smart from Black. He knows you can't go around the outside, but he's going to swing to the outside now as they make the way all the way down towards the bus stop chicane here. But as he left it a little bit too late, as they make the way into the braking zone, you can see Pixley defends her, and Black's not able to carry it through side by side, and in the end he has to back out there. But my goodness, that was very close between Black and Pixley as they made the way through 4, and I thought Black at that very last moment was going to get it done. Not to be at the moment, but if Pixley needed a warning that Chris Black is coming, I think he's definitely got it now as Pixley goes very deep, in fact almost onto the grass there, missing his braking point by about 20 metres, and as they come out to turn number 6, well, Black has achieved that psychological effect they wanted on Pixley as they make the way through turn number 7 right now, through toe corner as they head on through, and in the boot loop right now, it has to be said, Chris Black Black is all over his rival as they make the way down towards turn number 8. And as we look to the helicam here, where you can see in the run on down, in the braking zone, just look at how much Black is closed up. Of course, it's natural he's going to close up under braking, but he is tearing into that gap between the two of them under braking here. Black is pushing it. He's going all guns blazing, as we talked about earlier. And as he rolls his way through turn number 9, they're just much more comfortable in corner exit. Pixley struggling to get on the power out of 9 by comparison, but this is where Chris Black has got to balance the car out nicely, because of course running through these sweepers, the left into right sweeper turns 10 and 11, that dirty air off of the Porsche in front of him is only going to upset the aero balance of his own car, and he wants to be nice and close in that draft. He wants to really suck in that warm air off the back of what is the Porsche, so that way he's got the run up towards the bus stop chicane. But as he's running this close, you can see, look how close he is. The helicopter continues to follow the two. Fantastic racing between them, but Black this time not as close as he'd like to be. But the thing is, he's close enough that he'll get the toe through 3, up through 4, and now he's got to surely be looking for the move in the run up towards 5. He pulls out to the inside, and to the outside I should say, he peels back to the inside. They're thinking about switching the move around, but he's not able to, but they've got an M2 in front of them as they make the way into the chicane, and as they do, side by side on entry. But Chris Black backs out once again, but we've got what is the Watkins Racing M2 that's on the inside there as they come down through turn number 6, and behind them that there is, I believe, Lehtinen Austin in P5 who's coming up to lap these two, and all the blue flags will be waving shortly as Lehtinen Austin here press it on. And to be fair, I think right now Lehtinen Austin feeling quite comfortable in terms of his pace. Low 46s as the BMW M4 driver running in P5, but his mind will be on Scott Ticehurst in P11 and how Ticehurst can potentially close up in this battle to finish inside the top 5 and be the last of the drivers in that top 5 with just under 90 minutes of racing to go. We've still got plenty of time to go, and indeed at Watkins Glen the temperature is rising as we do see out there, I believe, Chris Black trying to look for the move as they made the way into turn number 8, and well, it is the case that we can see that Pixley has gone deep, and as they make the way up into 9, Black's going to be making it all the way around the outside. You can see there he's trying to squeeze Pixley to the inside, but he gets to the power too soon, and Black just slightly too eager to get the move done. But you can feel from him he's trying so hard, much like Austin's versus Pope, where Austin's in the end had to throw everything at Denise Pope to come on through. It's the case the Blacksmith Racing driver here is trying to throw everything, another one of the Wild Things Racing team, in order to get past one of their drivers. Wild Things Racing, if they're not in the lead, they're digging deep for positions here as they make the way on around, and Black right now has Lehtinen Austin, who's a lap on in between the two of them, and he'll be hoping that Lehtinen Austin can take some of the pace out of Pixley's car in order to give him an opportunity to come back sooner rather than later. As they make the way up on the hill here, you have to feel for Chris Carr, who right now is just trying to stay out the way of all the GT3s as he runs in P4 in the BMW M2 class, P21 overall, as he makes his way on down this back straight, and as they head up towards what is there, the bus stop chicane. Well, Chris Black is trying to make his way around Lehtinen Austin here, where he's trying to force the issue, and well, going up the inside into turn number 5. I think Black at this point is getting a bit impatient at Lehtinen Austin, and Lehtinen Austin in return at this point, I think he's thinking, well, it's the case, I'm a lap up here, let me bring Pixley to you, but I don't think Black's got that time in his schedule right now. I think he's figured otherwise as they make the way on down towards turn number 7, and I wonder at this point whether Lehtinen Austin may be considering coming into the pit sooner rather than later at this point, because the longer he's caught up in this sandwich of the two cars that are lapped down, I think it's only going to hurt his races. Into the pits comes Denise Pope, also Mike Landriff, we've also got Chris Mckenna, and we've also got Daryl Young in. So it is the case we are starting to see the end of the opening stint for our long haulers in the GT3s, and I can imagine that the BMW M2s will not be too far behind, as we really are now at approximately the halfway point of this race. We've got 82 minutes to go, and well, we're not quite at the halfway point, but we're almost there, and this is an ideal situation for our drivers to start to look at making that cut over. But as they roll the way on through, it is the case here. Will we see Lehtinen Austin peel his way into the pit lane? No, he stays on out there, in fact, but by doing so, well, Jordan Cotton now jumps up to P3. Daryl Young's still in the pit lane being serviced. Lehtinen Austin's going to come through to take that P4 for the time being, but Daryl Young, of course, has got bigger fish to fry in the battle to be on the podium, particularly that second spot on the podium, as right now just parked up. Meanwhile, Richard Pixley has got ahead of what is Denise Pope, as has Chris Black, with Denise Pope and Mike Landriff both in the pits. In fact, Pope has just finished her pit stop and makes the way on out, so I think that's her one and only scheduled stop for today, making the way on through. And as it's still a sunny day here, or a sunny morning we should say, at Watkins Glen, with the sun now in full splendour, and we are seeing that ambient and that track temperature both starting to come up a little bit more. It is the case here now, drivers racing in clear daylight, and they'll appreciate that quite a bit, although they may not appreciate the sun still being a little bit low at certain points on the circuit. It may obscure the view, but for the most part here, it is the case. Now we've got clear conditions, a little bit of cloud, but mostly brilliant sunshine in the state of New York today, and these are the ideal conditions for going racing around Watkins Glen. Of course, it's prone to rain this circuit, but we've not got any rain on the forecast for at least the next 15 minutes. I can definitely tell you that. But as they roll the way on around, it is the case that we do look from Pope to Black, and Chris Black, I think, has had another moment. What's happened to Chris Black here at turn number 7? Making his way on down the hill. We ride on board here with the Porsche 991 drone. Of course, remember, pushing incredibly hard, corner after corner, lap after lap, and trying to find his way back into that hunt versus Richard Pixley for P10 as he made his way into turn number 7 here. I can get the feeling he's probably overcooked under braking. Oh, goodness me, I'm not exactly sure what's happened there. It's the case the car seemed to have a little bit of connectivity issues, but he did have a spin now on the corner, although we didn't get to see it. What we got to see is him go through the tarmac there, and, well, we are in some connectivity issues tonight, and hopefully it's the case that those are not the sides of something to come. We said that earlier, and I do hope it's still not the side of something to come, but meanwhile, I can tell you one thing that is to come, and that is the pit stops for our BMW M2 drivers. More of the fact that we do have our race leader from the GT3 class of Harry Phillips. He's cleared his stop and trying out a stop and go 30-second penalty for Harry Phillips, and one can only presume that's for speeding in the pit lane. And will the Porsche driver, now what was looking to be a dead certain win, back-to-back wins, has been thrown to the wind. And the fact that stop and go 30-second penalty, that's going to be the equivalent of about 45 seconds lost by the time he's come in and come out of the pits to serve it, and he's got to serve it within 3 laps of accruing it, as otherwise it will be a disqualification as we're to understand it. Well, he'll definitely take it most likely come the end of this lap, simply because then he will not have to worry about getting the tyres back up to temperature again. It's the case they won't be up to too much temperature right now, but this is not the way Harry Phillips will have wanted it to go. And what this is going to do is it is going to throw open the prospect of Daryl Young here having to pick up the torch from his Watkins Racing teammate and trying to bring home the win. Or will it be Sakiri Lehtinen who does so? Well, Young's got to be a champion in front of him. That's the Ember Race Machine and Mike Landriff there trying to make its way past Yus Luna in the BMW M2 as they almost went 3 wide for a brief moment. They're coming through turn number 5, but as they all clear one another down through turn number 6 right now, we've got Daniel Austin's into the pit lane. He's coming in from P7 and right now being serviced, and Jan Barth staying on out there but being hunted by Scott Ticehurst. To be fair to Jan Barth, the Advisor Charity Racing Team driver from Germany at this point, he's got to pit soon, given the fact the car, I think, is on its legs with regards to those tyres and also that fuel. As they make the way on down here, we do have Ticehurst, who we believe may have another pit stop to take, given the fact he pitted so early. Indeed, a number of our drivers did, but at the same time, of course, it is the case these fuel tanks can go up to about 90 minutes, depending on how much fuel saving is being done, and the tyres can be double stinted if required, so 2 hours of tyre wear it is possible, albeit by the time they've done 2 hours on the tyres, it's going to be a wear down. As we see Ticehurst there up the inside for P7 versus Jan Barth, and Barth not really putting up a defence. I think the 934 driver 9, they're not in the same race, but meanwhile Phillips into the pit lane for a stop and go penalty, and Jordan Cotton is in, and Cotton is going to take inspiration for this. This could be a potential P3 opportunity for the off-pace motorsports driver. And meanwhile, up into P3, it may be the only time we see it here today for a brief while in P3, is the Dutch Endurance Team Gold Machine as being piloted by Dronen Jongen here, the Dutchman in the 325 car in the Aston Martin V12 Vantage. It's flying down the back straight, running in P3, yet to take his stop, but to be fair, I don't think he'll worry about that right now. I think it's going to be bringing a huge smile to the team's faces in the fact the car is running right up there inside the top 5, and as he heads on down at this point, you can imagine, could we see Jongen finish inside the top 5? Could we see a Dutch Endurance Team Gold make it into the top 5 come the finish? It's a possibility, let's not count it out. But meanwhile, as he makes his way on around, we've also got to think of Sakiri Lehtinen here, as the Team Honda Racing, the Lehtinen Racing driver, absolutely on a tear right now. And keeping in mind, he has outlasted his rival Daryl Young out of the circuit in terms of that opening stint. Has Lehtinen made the right call here, staying out longer? Well, he's got relatively clear track. He has just cleared the number 74 BMW M2 as being driven by Watkins Racing driver Evan Latafas, and now he has got clear track. The next car up the road from him is the number, I believe it's the number 26 car of Harry Phillips, who is effectively in P6 now after that stop and go 30 30-second penalty. And to be fair, Phillips will be going all in, so Lehtinen does not have to worry about too much traffic. In fact, very shortly it'll be the number 14 BMW M2 Chris Carr, who it will be his next driver to go on past, as we hear that the Sim Racing Collective 99 machine is the first up BMW M2s to come into the pits, and it leaves the pits now, as we see, with that repair work done to the front of the car. Andrew Pike still behind the wheel, of course, with Kieran Sharp not able to make it today, and as a result now he's got the double stint job to do as he makes his way back through turn number 2. And behind him we've got Chris Black there, and also I believe that is Daniel Austin's all coming through. And well, Chris Black is ahead of Austin's as he sneaks up the inside there of Andrew Pike, and I think Pike at that point may have been thinking, oh no, not again, given the fact he's already been collected once by a GT3 today. And well, as they make the way up into the bus stop chicane right now, the Aston Martin Racing, Daniel Sim Racing driver Daniel Austin's definitely trying to put that pressure on in the fresher car compared to Chris Black. And as they make the way down through turn number 5, it is the case here looking to go on the offensive as the 413 driver, and he's had a lot of challenges in trying to make passes today. He looks up the inside, and there's contact here at turn number 6 again, but I think he would argue he'd got the move done onto the apex there. Chris Black is going to let Black back on throw, but Austin's there definitely trying to go for the move on the inside, much like Pope earlier on, but I think he had a bit more of a right to the apex there. Of course, our camera could only tell one side of the story, but meanwhile Chris Black, I don't think he'll be too pleased about being turned around. As meanwhile we say hello there to Brent's Man Cave in the YouTube chat saying get it Daz in reference to Daryl Young, who of course will be going after the win right now, but we've still got our top 3 in the GT3 class to pit. That's Lehtinen, Austin and also Jongen. We are waiting to see when they're going to come in. They've got to come in at some point to take fuel and a tyre change, but when will they decide to go for it? Of course, the later they can go onto that new set of tyres, the fresher the tyres will be, the more they can push them to the very end. But speaking of pushing, Denise Pope here, having recently cleared her pit stop, now running in P10, the last of our top 10 drivers right now, albeit we do have some drivers ahead of Pope, but indeed the drivers behind who have yet to take a pit stop, so we can imagine that will shake things up. But Denise Pope right now under pressure from Chris Black and Daniel Austin's, and probably seen Daniel Austin's coming up behind right now and thinking I'm going to try and keep Black behind me as long as possible here. But as they make the way out of turn number 1, I think Pope at this point is not going to have much of a choice and have to go on the defensive early versus Black as they make the way side by side through turn number 1. They're almost 3 wide at a point, and Pope out of position, and Chris Black having to lift off there as they made the way through 3. Well, the drivers all avoiding contact by a short margin, but as they make the way on 3, you can see now Austin trying to go around the outside of Black. He gets it done. He's surely not going for 2 for 1 into the bus stop chicane. No, he's decided enough's enough, just the one place this time around. But Chris Black tries to follow here, but in the double dirty air draft, it is the case, almost understeering wide, but Chris Black loses out in the hunt for P10, falling back to P12, and Austin's right now, I think he'll be thinking about that move to the inside into turn number 6, but given how it worked out last time he was battling with Pope, I think he's going to have to wait for somewhere else to the circuit. I think for him, given the pace he's showing right now, he can make it into turn 7 here. He's close, but he's not close enough, and in fact Pope keeps him at bay. As they make the way round through the uphill right hand here, you can see how Austin's just able to take such more of an aggressive line out the corner, and in fact as they head on down here, it's side by side in towards the braking zone for turn number 8, and Austin's up the inside. Pope squeezes him to the apex curve as much as possible, but Austin's does not back out, and Pope, to be fair, squeezed Austin's as much as possible, but Austin's has finally got it done, and he's up to P10. And I think that will equate to P9 as Jan Barth is into the pit lane right now to take his scheduled stop for the Advisor charity team, and as they will be switching drivers shortly, as we're to understand it, it is the case that Daniel Austin's right now, we're trying to break away before Chris Black can find his way past Denise Pope, given the fact that Chris Black has proven to be very fast as well, and they make the way down and around onto what for them is now lap number 40, but you can see Chris Black already trying to go on the offensive, not close enough to, and behind there is the Aston Martin still running in P3, but behind him that is Daryl Young in P4, who's already cleared his pit stop. So Jongen here, the Dutch Endurance Team Gold driver. Well, as we see Daryl Young there getting a face or the Aston Martin, almost losing the car there on the apex of turn 1. I think under anticipating how much speed Jongen has to take out the car, given his tyres now have seen effectively what is over an hour's worth of tyre wear compared to Daryl Young's tyres, which are very young by comparison. They're only 10 minutes and they're still green. It is the case that Jongen at this point, as he's charging down this back straight up towards the bus stop chicane, and that shows you the difference of the two cars as they roll the way on through. Meanwhile, a little bit further behind, we can see, oh, goodness, we had Kesberg and Simon still battling for P16. I think the two of them had it coming together. Let's take a look back. Well, this was only moments ago, and we ride on board here from the perspective of Simon Still as they made the way up the hill towards the bus stop chicane in the battle for P16. And as they made the way on through the right-hander at turn number 4 here, still gains a huge amount of momentum here in the draft, but he's not close enough. Was it an error from Kesberg? Well, no, under brake, and they still looked to it, and well, both drivers there misunderstanding what the other was trying to do. I think in the end, Kesberg braking earlier than still expected, but by comparison, as we return to live pictures, Kesberg being jumped by that in terms of scared out of his skin, I think, in terms of the fact he had a Honda NSX just suddenly materialise out of nowhere on his inside and having to go straight on at the chicane. But both drivers safely bring it back onto circuit and staying as they were. But meanwhile, as we are back to live pictures, Lehtinen is into the pit. Sakiri Letinen's taking his pit stop, and here comes Lehtinen as well for a P2 as they now make the way back at the speed. Lehtinen comes on out of the pits, and where's Daryl Young? Well, he's not close enough at the moment as we hear that Youngren is coming into the pits, and Sakiri Lehtinen, I believe, is going to become your race leader here ahead of Daryl Young. Now, where is Young by comparison? Well, here's Lehtinen making his way out of the pits, and there is Daryl Young, and the delta between the two of them is no more than 3 seconds here. They have swapped places, and Sakiri Lehtinen has got it done through strategy to get into what is effectively now the lead of this race, and we believe it is going to be the battle for the win all the way to the finish. And as they make the way down the straight here up towards the bus stop chicane, of course the one thing that Daryl Young has in his favour is the fact that he does have a car that's switched on and it's up to temperature already. Meanwhile, Lehtinen has got to spend a lap or two getting the car clocked in, so Young has got to push now and hope that Lehtinen does not put in an absolutely brilliant outlap or a couple of outlaps which are right on the dollar, because if they are, it's the case that Daryl Young here could be in trouble. We saw earlier on in the first stint how these two were very close on lap times, and I think Lehtinen has been playing a very tactical game. I think he might have been doing some fuel in that opening stint, as we see Chris Black there off circuit rejoining on the exit zone, and Daryl Young having to fight with the steering wheel as they come out of tow corner, and Young definitely not having the happiest time in that Audi right now. It does feel as though the front end of that car is not hooked up the way he wants it to be, and as a result he's having to fight the car. Meanwhile, in P5 here we have Leighton Austin, who has come out just behind Callum Condé in the battle for P4. As these two make their way around, both looking, of course, for season best finishes here. And remember, when we caught up with Leighton Austin in the build-up to tonight, he was saying he wasn't expecting to be trying to better his result from last time out Donington, that P6. But right now, unless he makes a major error, he is looking to at least match it if Ticehurst gets into this battle, if not improving it by default with a top 5 finish. But can he go one further and pick up a P4? That will be the question as they make their way down towards turn number 8. Well, as they do, Callum Condé, the off-pace motorsports team, of course, they've been hoping to finish inside the top 5 for the first 2 rounds. It has not worked out at Spa nor at Donington, but right now they are flying as well as they make the way on around here. It's going to be very interesting all the way through, because we know that Aston Martin is the stronger of the two cars over the course of a single lap here. The BMW seems to have gone very well over the distance, much like the Aston Martin, so that's where the BMW is able to stay in the hunt as they make the way out of the final corner here. Just over an hour left to go and still plenty of battling to come, but right now Callum Condé has got a huge task. I don't envy him, and that is to keep that BMW M4 for Quantum Race, the team of Leighton Austin at bay, as they roll the way onto what for them is lap number 43. But as they do here and they head their way up towards where's the bus stop chicane, I think this could be an opportunity for Austin. Well, Leighton Austin definitely getting very close here as they make their way through the apex of turn number 4, and as they roll their way through, Austin getting right there in the mix. So we've right on board the dashboard here for the BMW M4 driver. As he takes a look to the outside here, can he force the issue? Almost does there, but to be fair, Condé calls his bluff and decides to hang it on the racing line and not back out versus Leighton Austin, which of course when you're on that outside to go into the bus stop chicane, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to essentially get the driver on the inside to back off enough to give you the inside line into the left-hander of the first part of the bus stop. But now Leighton Austin taking that momentum down through turn number 6 here and up towards 7. You can see that Condé having to really park the car falling out of control a little bit there. The rear end just not wanting to settle down as he goes a bit deep into turn number 7, and Leighton Austin, if he needed an in-fight to push even harder, this is the invite he wanted, because the gap between the two is 3.5 tenths as they make their way down the straight here up towards turn number 8. He takes a peek, not close enough here, just trying to see or get into the mind of the Aston Martin driver, and as they roll the way out to the right-hander and up the hill into turn number 9 right now, it's a deadlock. It is stalemate for the time being, but can Leighton Austin potentially move his way to victory here as they roll the way out to turn number 9, and for him that P4 will feel like a victory, rolling into turn number 10 here as they come on through to complete another lap. no sign at the moment. The Aston Martin just seems to have enough in terms of legs there, and also at the helm of Condé to be able to hold the British driver at bay behind in the BMW M4. And you can see on the straightway here, across that start finish straight we go, just how the Aston Martin's able to open up that gap a little bit under acceleration, but then as they make the way out to turn number 1, Austin's close up here to pick up that draft and pick it up by the double as they make the way on up the hill. And as they charge up through this time, we see them making the way on through, heading through turns 2 and 3 here and up towards 4. Now, will Lehtinen Austin this time be able to potentially grant himself the inside line, or will Condé cover it off? Well, Austin's close. He's going for it here. Condé's not covering this off, and Lehtinen Austin up the inside on the brakes there, and Condé lets it go. Now, I wonder if the Aston Martin driver feels he can get it back later on the lap, or whether they feel as though they'll get it back later on in the race there, because Condé not offering a defense this time. But to be fair, I think I could also tell you why, because this man behind Scott Tysus, remember I said only moments ago he could be looking to get into this fight. He's definitely looking to get into this fight. He's just taken 2 seconds out of Austin and Condé combined. It is the case that he is lapping in the low 45s, whereas they're lapping in the mid 47s. Scott Tysus right now, who we believe may have a short stop right at the end, we're not 100% sure to be fair, or his pace may drop off towards the end. He is absolutely pushing right now, and he is the fastest man on circuit outside of Harry Phillips and also Daryl Young. But otherwise, it is Tysus pushing all the way. And speaking of pushing all the way, we must cut over to our race leaders and our GT3 class leaders here. Because after emerging in the lead of the class after the pit stops, it is the case that Lehtinen right now is only 1 second ahead of Daryl Young, if that, as they make the way up towards the bus stop chicane this time around. And well, Lehtinen is not in a comfortable place right now as he picks up a bit of traffic on the exit of the chicane, and that's the Watkins Racing BMW M2. And right now, Daryl Young will be hoping that he's not compromised there through turn number 5. Indeed, he has to go a little bit deep there, much like Lehtinen had to go deep on entry as they make the way on down the hill. And as they do, they roll the way through the corner, but the traffic is falling at the worst possible time. That there is Chris Carr running P4 in the BMW M2 class, just ahead of Evan Latafas, but you can see Daryl Young is gaining with the way the traffic is falling, and if Lehtinen cannot get that gap back open here, I think Daryl Young's definitely got an opportunity with 1 hour and 4 minutes remaining on the clock here to try and jump into that position. Meanwhile, so you may be asking, where is Harry Phillips in all of this? Well, he is a sizable way back right now to that stop and go 30-second penalty, and that gap between them and Harry Phillips right now standing in the region of about 25 seconds if my time screens are correct. It is a sizable gap, and that penalty has cost him dear. But to be fair, he's recently set a lap in the 43s, a 43.9 from Harry Phillips. He's lapping in the low 44s. He's not giving up on this yet. He's 24 seconds back at the rate he's closing. If he continues at this pace, he could take about a second a lap out of these drivers and therefore be in contention right at the end, because there is enough time with the time we've got remaining. As they make their way across the timeline here, Lehtinen definitely having an awful lap. A 45.0 there. It was a 46.0, I should say, versus Young on a 45.6 with the way the traffic fell. And we've got a hunt on here for the race win between Daryl Young and Lehtinen as they make the way up through turns 2, 3 and on towards 4. But as they do, we hear that Richard Pixley is into the pit lane for his second stop, which we thought may be coming. We've also got Alex Nunes into the pits from the lead of the BMW M2 CS class. And it is the case the RDC Slowpokes machine will stay in his capable hands, and we believe he'll come back out in the lead, and it's only Eustace Luna who's still to take his pit stop in the BMW M2 class as they make the way on down and around. But as they do, it's because our 2 leaders together in this manner. And we should point out that in the Dutch Endurance Team Gold Aston Martin V12 Vantage, in this case we have another Dutchman behind the wheel now, and that is Ricardo Mckenna, who you saw earlier in the YouTube chat cheering on the team. And it's the case they're back out in P7 here, and we'll try to chase after Tysus, Condé and also Austin. And well, speaking of that battle for P4, it is the case that Mckenna by comparison is the best part of about 27 seconds behind it, as we're to understand. But it is the case Daniel Austin's 27 seconds back by comparison as well. And as they make their way across the timeline, I think Mckenna will be feeling very happy at this positioning. But meanwhile, speaking of not feeling happy, we look to the leaders here and we ride on board Lehtinen, as right now he's got Daryl Young hot on his heels as they make their way through turn number 9. Now, as they do here, of course, the one thing that Lehtinen does have to his advantage is the fact he took his pit stop later, so those tyres he's running will have more life available to them. But the problem is for both of these cars, the Honda NSX and also what is the Audi R8, they're very sensitive to tyre temperature, these 2 cars, and they can very quickly wear a set of tyres down, particularly those rear tyres. We know that the Honda, when driven in a very stable fashion, which Lehtinen is known for, can protect its tyres. Well, the Audi, by comparison, as soon as you push the car, the tyres do start to really wear thin, and I can tell you that Daryl Young has been pushing very hard to close this gap by comparison. So has Daryl Young done too much too soon on those tyres? As we hear that Chris Black's into the pits, and we see there the Sim Racing Collective 99 machine pinning its way into the camera shot as they make the way all the way down the back straight here up towards the bus stop chicane. But it is the case that Daryl Young there having to back out in the traffic, and the gap opens up to 9/10 for a brief while, but he'll be looking to try and push back in short order. There's no doubt about that as they roll the way down through turn number 5. But as they do, we look from them to the battle for P4, and this is Lehtinen Austin, who has found his way, of course, past Callum Conway. We saw that earlier, and Callum Conway under pressure here from Scott Tysers for P5 as the off-pace motorsports driver. It is the case. We've seen our Audi R8 driver of Tysers close up dramatically. He has stripped 2 seconds a lap out of Conde, lap after lap, and Conde here really having to drive this car right now. It's almost as if it's on eggshells by comparison, and as they make the way through turn number 4 here, Tysers is going to be on the inside. Conde's going to be made to go to the outside there. Tysers getting his nose in nice and early in the drag race here. Well, Tysers will try and outbrake his rival into the bus stop chicane, and he gets it done. Scott Tysers up into P5. Now, as they roll the way down, I get the feeling that Conde here is backing off the car. I think he's trying to save those tyres to the end of the race to try and go hunting back after these places here as they make the way on through it. Also playing it smart with an hour to go. There's no need to rush right now, and Tysers will go hunting after Lehtinen Austin, who at the foreground of your camera, we now focus on him making his way on past there what is ever the toughest in the 74 BMW M2. And as they make their way on around at this point in time, we've got Simon still into the pit lane. It is the case that he's taking another stop. We've got a couple of drivers who've recently come in for more stops, including Marcus Fox, and also we have Fabian Carr now behind the wheel of the Advisor Charity Race Team machine. The Austrian taking over from where Jan Barth left off, and we can see Jan Barth there in the YouTube chat saying it gave the car to my mate Fabian Carr now in the 934 Porsche. And well, these guys of course started from the pit lane. They are right now in P11 trying to chase after Mike Landriff in the hunt to finish inside the top 10, which would be a colossal effort given how it didn't go right at the start for them. But again, they're known for digging out these results, to be fair. We saw it at Donington last time, and we're seeing it again here today with an hour now remaining on the clock, and with an hour to go, it is the case battles are still in plentiful supply, as it is one of those cases things are only heating up, they're not going away. And also the circuit is heating up as we're getting more and more into the morning here in New York, and track temperature now up to 14 degrees centigrade. Clear skies, the sun shines about, it's a wonderful day at Watkins Glen, and there's been some wonderful races so far. As our drivers make the way around, I think it's only appropriate that we're an hour left on the clock. We give you a quick recap of how things are proceeding from top to bottom in the field. So starting from our overall leader and also our GT3 class leader of Sakiri Lehtinen here, the Team Honda Racing Lehtinen Racing driver for the flying the Finnish flag, of course, his home nation. It is the case of Lehtinen starting in what was P3, a solid start to the race. Saw him hold on to P3, went on the offensive versus Daryl Young early on, but after the opening 15 minutes started to let the gap drift over a little bit and went very long on his opening stint, the longest of everybody in the GT3 class, and it is the case he emerged as your leader, given the fact that our race leader originally, Harry Phillips, picked up a stop and go 30-second penalty, but more on that shortly. But Lehtinen right now does not have it all his own way in the fact as he makes his way down towards turn number 1, and we've got quite the fan club there in the YouTube chat, and we can see Jane Combs and also Brent Man Cave there continuing to cheer support for the P2 driver here of Daryl Young, the Audi R8 Evo 2 driver from Watkins Racing, and the number 9 car, trying to get his maiden win in this season, and it is the case he is only 8/10 off of Lehtinen, and the difference between the two, Young pitted much earlier by comparison, about 5 laps earlier, if not 6, and therefore he is going to have older tyres come the end of this race. He's been pushing hard, he's got that gap down to what is a second, if not less, and he is trying to find a way to get past the Honda NSX Evo driver. He needs to have been back and forth, and I think Daryl Young was caught out a little bit by the fact that Lehtinen jumped him in the pits. Then we come to our P3 driver, Harry Phillips, and you would argue, if you were to have watched just the first into this race, he would be your de facto leader right now, given he put it on pole by half a second, and he's run away with proceedings. Well, that was all going well until it all went wrong in the pits and picked up a stop-and-go 30-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But speaking of speeding, right now he is speeding his way around the circuit, and on average taking a whole second, if not more, out of his rivals in P2, P1 respectively, and it is the case that what was a gap of 25 seconds is already down to a gap of 20 seconds, if not less. And Phillips right now, if he can continue this pace all the way through to the checker flag, he could, we theoretically believe, he could be there on the final 2 to 3 laps to go hunting. 19.2 seconds is the gap now. He is the one to watch on the circuit. He is putting in lap after lap, and it's absolutely colossal to see. Meanwhile, in P4, Lehtinen Austin really the best of the rest outside the top 3. It is the case here. The Quantum Racing team driver running the Queen Elizabeth II livery, of course, in memory of the monarch who passed away very recently. Feeling quite sore in the United Kingdom, I must admit, for my fellow countrymen. It is the case. The Brit here trying to charge on in the hunt for P4, but behind him he's got Scott Ticehurst. And where Lehtinen Austin's race has all been about taking it slow and steady, Ticehurst by comparison making a very early pit stop. We wonder if he's got a second stop on the cards. It is the case. The Britain here absolutely charging, of course, making his way on around, starting from inside the top 10. He's going hunting after that P4 finish as he makes his way up towards turn number 10 behind Lehtinen Austin. And that's your top 5 covered, and as they make their way on around turns 10 and 11, we look to Callum Conde here, the off-pace motorsports driver, who has been running quite comfortably inside the top 10, was running in the top 5 for a good period of time, but recently passed by Ticehurst and Austin, and we believe that Conde at this point in time might be just trying to protect the car to the very end to give himself a car that can really go racing in the final 10 to 15 minutes and close back up. So we need to keep our eyes on the off-pace motorsports machine that's been doing very well here today and really having a better run of form. And then it is a Ricardo McKenna here in P7. And your eyes do not deceive you. We'll keep reminding you of this. That is the Vantage V12, the 6-litre machine, the older GT3, not the more up-to-date AMR Vantage V8 machine, has been piloted by the Dutch Endurance Team Gold Team, and it's Ricardo McKenna behind the wheel, carrying on from where his teammate left off with a superb stint of Jongen. And it is the case the 325 car now, right, definitely inside that top 10 in P7, looking to take that finishing position as we see that Lehtinen Austin has been passed for P4. Let's take a look back at what happened. But this was only moments to go, and as we cut our train of thought and cut back to this battle, Lehtinen Austin in the M4 there in the middle of the road, and in fact bringing it to the outside. Ticehurst getting closer and closer and looking to the inside, and I wondered, did Ticehurst just simply seize it up the inside? He did indeed, and will Lehtinen Austin there decide to back out, and I think he might feel as well, much like Callum Conde, there's no need to fight with Ticehurst. It may be the case that Ticehurst does have that second stop on the cards. We believe he does, but again, we could be wrong. As Ticehurst is flying, I think Lehtinen Austin at this point as well, given the fact he was saying to us in the build-up to tonight, he wasn't expected to finish any higher than where he did at Donington P6, that was. He'll take that P5 with open arms if he has to yield a P4. But meanwhile, we come back to our train of thought, and we talked about Ricardo McKenna in P7, and we now have Daniel Austin's in P8 here. The AMR Daniel Sim Racing driver from the United Kingdom has been in the battles after an absolutely difficult start to his race, where he dropped a long way down the order after a moment with the wall into the bus stop chicane, and Ticehurst into the pits. We did call that second stop, and it has been called now with 54 minutes to go. Ticehurst will take the pit stop and come back out, we believe, somewhere around P7, P8, but it is the case here. Daniel Austin's with a lot of pace in the car, has been involved in a couple of incidents involving other drivers. It's not quite worked out for Daniel Austin's, and right now in P8 is delivering the laps left, right and centre, trying to go hunting after that P7, and he is taking 1.5 seconds a lap after Ricardo McKenna. He may have an opportunity to take that P7 come the finish. Then in P9 we have Denise Pope here from Watkins Racing, enjoying a much better day at the office, Denise Pope, compared to Spa, and an uplift from Donington as well, with the switch to the McLaren worked out, and it is the case here. The McLaren 720S driver has been in the wars for a number of drives. Brilliant battling as well from Denise Pope, running that 79 car in P9, and to be fair, a deserved P9 right now, and continuing to press on. And then Mike Landreth completing the top 10 here, the Ember Racing driver who's had to really struggle with the car at certain points. A lot of understeer in that Audi R8, but the Briton right now seems to have settled it down and running comfortably in P10. Although I say that, he is being chased by the Advisor Charity Racing Team driver of Fabian Carr here, the Austrian. Not quite on the pace of Landreth currently, but I think just trying to settle down with the car, and you never know, it could be a top 10 for them, keeping in mind they started from the pit lane, of course. And we have Richard Pixley in P12 here, the Watkins Racing driver in the 7 car, and he is caught up behind the Sim Racing Collective BMW M2 at the moment as he makes his way on around. But as they make their way on down and around here, Richard Pixley having a difficult start to his race, and at one point being I think it was multiple laps down in fact, and having to make 2 pit stops as well, but he's recovered to being a lap down. He's in P12 at this time. And then we do have Chris Black, who, much like Pixley's, had a difficult day of racing. There's some great battles between Chris Black and other drivers, to be fair, and he has got Chris Mckenna right behind him at this point in the race. And as they make their way down through turn number 7, very shortly before turn number 6, of course, we have to go through turn 6. It is the case that this is the battle for P13. Chris Black in P13, and Chris Mckenna, the distinct GG driver here in the McLaren 720S, trying to get one up on the Porsche 991 driver. And these two have been back and forth in terms of battling all the way on through this race. And as they make the way down the back straight here, will Mckenna look for the move? He's going to look to the inside here. Will he commit? He's not close enough, and Black is able to outbrake him there. And one thing we can say about Chris Black in that Porsche, in the number 92 Porsche, he is the latest of the late breakers here by a considerable margin. He seems to have a way to outbrake everybody by at least 10 if not 15 metres, and it's wonderful to see. I can only imagine how hot those front brakes must be running in that Porsche 991. But with Mckenna in a hot pursuit, we have Marcus Fox in P15, really a victim of the incident on the opening lap at the bus stop chicane, losing out massively and 1.2 laps down, much like Pixley in P15 right now as the random racing driver, and just trying to keep his head down and press on. And then we have Peter Kesberg in P16 here. Not a happy day for the Dutch Endurance Team driver. The Dutch Endurance Team blew him, if my memory serves me correctly, but still soldiering on here to bring home a P16. And then the last of our runners in the GT3 class, P17, is Simon Still for Simon Still Racing here. The Briton just trying to keep it on track now all the way to the end. He's not had the best of days. Watkins Glen involved in a couple of incidents, and also a major moment where it was the case that both he and Peter Kesbergen both making mistakes together at what was the bus stop chicane, both intimidating one another into mistakes, and in the end it is the case that Simon's still right now the last of the GT3 runners. We've also lost Waldorf Racing, the Bentley GT3 machine, and we've also lost the BMW Sim Racing machine. They retired much earlier on in the race. And then in P18 overall, as we come to our BMW M2s, here is your M2 class leader right now of Alex Nunes from Rapid Drivers Club. And this has been the race where he's been able to have the fortune that eluded him at Donington. So far, we should point out, let's not put the commentator's curse on him with 15 minutes to go. We don't want to put it on anybody. But you'll remember at Donington, running up front as he came out of the pits, following his first stint, all comfortably in the lead. And then it all went wrong with contact with GT3. Well, it's the Sim Racing Collective team, as being piloted by Andrew Pike, who've had all the incidents for the GT3 so far. And Nunes right now just hoping he can finally, on the third time of asking, bring home that maiden win of the season. As you can see later, Aston there tiptoeing his way around Nunes in the BMW M4 GT3. And then in P2 in that BMW M2 class, P19 overall, we have Andrew Pike here. And as we said, the Sim Racing Collective team qualifying on pole, looking strong on the pace, but then collected early on in their first stint, collected a second time at that last corner, and they have been the ones with the misfortune so far, and they are, as it currently stands, the best part of what is almost a whole minute down on Nunes at this time. And I think focusing on bringing home that P2, their run of wins will come to an end if things finish as they currently stand. Luna in P3 in the BMW M2 class, the half practice hero there in P20 overall, managed to find his way ahead of Chris Carr earlier on, and since then has broken away and is running the best of the rest in P3. And then we do have Chris Carr in the Fresh Sim Racing BMW P21 overall, P4 in the BMW M2 class. Great qualifying from him to put it on P3 in the class. Lost a bit of pace early on in the race, but right now is just trying to stay ahead of the last driver out of the circuit, and indeed the last of BMW M2s. Only 5 of them in attendance today, and this is your 5th and final one of Evan the Toughest and the Wild Things Racing team. The Greek driver chasing after Chris Carr right now. The gap between the two of them, 14 seconds. It is gradually opening, not closing. But as he makes his way into the first corner, that's the field as it currently stands. We say hello to Forzy in the Twitch chat there, saying so many tries. I love it, makes me want to race. Great to hear that, Forzy, and hope you're doing well. And we must come back to what is Daryl Young. And well, as he makes his way on through here, the pass has been made for the lead versus Lehtinen off cameras. We're doing the recall down the field. Now, whether that pass has been made via a mistake or whatnot, we are just trying to find out for you. But Lehtinen has lost a lot of lap time over the last couple of laps. I think it may have been in the traffic, and well, that's unfortunate we've happened to miss that off camera. But Daryl Young is now your race leader as we return with 48 minutes to go here, and the Wild Things Racing driver in the number 9 car, well, there is Lehtinen behind. I think there may have been an error. In fact, I'm hearing in my ear at the moment, I think it was an error on circuit that Lehtinen had, which has enabled Young to take the lead of the race, and also some traffic involved there. But Lehtinen right now has still got time, and also he has one thing to his advantage, and that is he has the fresher tyres, he has the fresher car for the second stint, and that gap Stands at 2.7 seconds, and Daryl Young now knows that by the end of this race, particularly those final 10 minutes, those tyres on that Audi R8 are going to be wishing they could be put to sleep rather than being run on the car right now, because it is the case that he has really pushed those tyres hard. And how hard has he gone, Daryl Young? We remember, of course, back in season 1 at Kyle Army in what was round number 3, it was the case in the end those tyres had very little left and he was going sideways for a good number of corners. He hasn't spent too much time going sideways. He's had to fight a bit of oversteer at certain corners, particularly turns 6 and 7 where the car has not wanted to settle. But it does look as though Daryl Young is settling down right now as he makes his way through turn number 5. And we see Scott Ticehurst there almost making it to the wall and jumping out of the exit at turn number 5 there. And Will Ticehurst, after that second stop in P8, he's going hunting, and you can understand why. But as they make their way on around here, where's Harry Phillips? Well, here he is. And I kid you not, it is the case. Daryl Young is just making his way out towards turn number 7 right now. Harry Phillips is now 14 seconds off the leader. Remember, he's had a stop and go 30-second penalty that he is flying. He is lapping continuously in the mid-44s. There is nobody other than Scott Ticehurst, we believe, once he puts in a first clear lap. There is nobody else out on circuit lapping in this pace compared to Phillips. He is not out of the hunt for the win yet, and given the fact that gap is coming down so rapidly, it's now 10.6 seconds to Lehtinen. You can imagine if Phillips can make quick work of Lehtinen, which, to be fair, the Honda driver is not going to be an easy pushover unless he wants Phillips to put him up towards Daryl Young. It is the case that Phillips here has got plenty of time to potentially bring home that win. This is not over yet. We have got a top 3 that could go topsy-turvy in the near future. I think Phillips, give it time, a bit of mass prediction, with 25 minutes to go, he will be within arm's reach of P2 and that potential win if he can find his way past Lehtinen. But as he makes his way through the final corner here, first he's got to do each and every lap. You can see how close he is to the exit wall there. He is giving it everything here, and to be fair, he wants to make it back-to-back wins. That will give him momentum on his side before we go to Austin in 2 weeks' time for the Circuit of the Americas. And that was another, what was there, a 44.7. Well, not quite the fastest lap he's done so far, but it is the case he is continuing to press on here, and that gap is continuing to come on down. But as we do look from him to a bit further down the order, we look to P14 driver Chris Mckenna here, who continues to chase after Chris Black. And as we ride on board with the McLaren driver, let's listen in. Rolling his way out to turn 5 there. And the car hooking up quite nicely for Mckenna at this point. And I think really now he's battling for the last of the positions that he's been reach of, and that's Chris Black in P13. What we do have to keep in mind, of course, is that Chris Black has made a second stop compared to Mckenna, so it is the case that Black does have the car with the tyres that will be more comfortable at the end of the race. I think at this point Black might be just trying to save the car, given the fact that he is just under 40 seconds off of what is Pixley. You can see the 37.3 seconds behind by comparison. So Black doesn't really have too much to race for at this point beyond P13. Of course, you should never give up, but he doesn't have a target in sight immediately, and with Pixley having made 2 stops as well, you can imagine Black at this point, we're just trying to protect the car all the way to the finish line. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out in practice as they make the way on through here, because Mckenna will definitely want to put that pressure on. As they roll the way out of turn 10 into 11 here. Pardon me. Mckenna really keeping it nice and smooth as he rolls his way out to turn number 11 and down towards turn 1 he goes, and as they roll the way on down all the way into turn 1 at this point, Mckenna keeping it nice and smooth all the way on through as they head on through that right-hander. And as they do, it was a little bit deep there, but he's going to carry a lot of momentum uphill. And to be fair, we have seen this McLaren really does take the legs out of the Porsche in the run through the straightaway all the way out towards the bus stop chicane. And as they come through turn number 4 underneath our camera, it is the case we pan on around here to see Mckenna around the outside already. Look at that momentum in top gear, and as they make their way into the braking zone here, Mckenna's going to have that outside to inside run. Black does try to stay there, but in the end Mckenna braves it on the brakes round the outside and gets it done versus Chris Black for P13. But now will Black come back in? That's the question. I think yes, because Chris Black has one thing up his sleeve, and that is very late braking into these corners. But he's too far back there to look for into turn number 6. Mckenna just needs to hook up these next couple of corners and try to break away, but he gets it a little bit wrong. They're coming out to turn number 6 and down towards 7 they go. Black's going to look around the outside then. He tries to commit. Oh, goodness me. And Mckenna there gets it a bit wrong and taps the apex curve there at turn number 7 prematurely, and it upsets the car, and Mckenna loses the place that he's just gained. But he's flashing the lights there. I think there may have actually been a bit of contact between the two. My camera didn't really show it too well, to be honest, because the way it transitioned position from one perspective to the other, but Mckenna, I think, feels as though he was contacted there by Chris Black, and as they make the way towards turn number 9, well, Mckenna's going to have to try and settle the score in terms of finding his way through another way in the remaining time. He's got a lot of time still to go, to be fair, so he has got plenty of opportunities, and Marcus Fox running in P15. It's not too far behind as they make the way there through turn number 10. And, well, Mckenna a little bit of a tap to the rear of Chris Black then. I think he feels, though, Black may be dragging the car through the apex of turn 10 as into the pits. That's Harry Phillips in again. And Phillips comes on in. I think they may not have put the fuel in the car that they wanted. And well, this has surely got to be a short stop from Harry Phillips because this is unexpected. But this is going to be absolutely crippling to that pursuit. And that may explain why he's been taking over a second out of everybody, if not almost 2 seconds a lap as he makes his way on down. But there's no penalty here. This is a scheduled stop. Whether it was planned or not, it's on the schedule now as he parks on up, and this has surely got to be a quick stop. As meanwhile, Mckenna, we look back to his battle for P13, he tries to do exactly what he did on the previous lap. It's deja vu, and Mckenna gets it done again. He loses the rear, and the car comes on around 180s around, and that is very unfortunate for Mckenna, who is parked on the curb in there. Has he got anybody coming through? You've got the 87 car making its way on through, although Mckenna's off the circuit now, and that is the car. What is there? I believe it's Peter Kesberg coming on through. So Kesberg navigating the yellow flags there safely indeed. Mckenna just waited to rejoin, but that was very unfortunate for Chris Mckenna after what was making the same move twice. The car not slowing down that time. I don't think there was contact with Chris Black, to be fair, but Black has finally got it sealed in terms of that P13, and that trouble has gone away for the time being. But speaking of trouble, it is the case here. We look to our race leader of Daryl Young. Is he in trouble in that battle for the win? Well, I can tell you on that previous lap, Daryl Young was a 45.5, Lehtinen by comparison a 45.0, so the gap did go the way of Lehtinen, and as they come to the end of this lap, lap number 58, all the way across that timeline, we can see here the Wild Things Racing driver coming on down, and it's going to be a 45.6 for Daryl Young. What about for Lehtinen? It's a 46.3. I think the traffic held him up there, but Daryl Young right now still holding that gap at 2.8 seconds. I think he's safe for now, but when we did get some clear track, of course, he'll be worried about the fact that Lehtinen may have a little bit more pace in the car at this point in time. As they roll the way on down and around at this point, it is the case that Daryl Young really pushing on here. He's got a long way to go still 40 minutes on the clock here. It's not over yet. It's not the last 10. It's not the last 20. It's not even the last 30. And he's got to measure this right now, because it could be the case if he takes too much out of the tyres, there could be a late stop alternative. That pace could tumble like a pack of dominoes. But meanwhile, speaking of dominoes, here is the case. A bit of an inconvenient set of dominoes to fall. We have got all those cars in the M2 class coming on up for Lehtinen at the worst possible places, but to be fair, he's navigated them safely, and as he makes his way down through turn number 6 and in towards 7, Lehtinen holding on to P2. We've also got their Scott Ticehurst in P8. Remember, he's had that second stop, and we know he's got a lot of pace in that Audi. He's trying to chase after Daniel Austins, who is at this point in time, Austins is only 8 seconds up the road, and Ticehurst, if he can get clear track, I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking for that P7 finish. Austins is only 9 seconds off of Ricardo McKing, and McKing is being caught up by Austins at a second a lap at this point. So we've still got a big question over who's going to be in P6 coming in. Will it be the V12 Vantage, the beast from the older days of Blancpain Championship, or will it be the case that the newer GT World Challenge 2022 Evo 2 machine of Ticehurst could find its way all the way up into P6, or even Daniel Austins in the venerable Vantage V8, of course. That's why I have to wait and see as we see Austins making his way across the timeline, and you can see Ticehurst briefly in the rear of the picture, but in between all of them are just trying to stay out of harm's way. Here is your third place man in the BMW M2 class, P20 overall, the half practice hero of Houston Junior here, as he makes his way out of turn number 1 and all the way in the long run up towards the bus stop chicane. But as he rolls his way on through here, we do have sizable gaps between all of our BMW M2 CS class drivers at this point in time, all of them focusing on just trying to bring the car home to the finish. And I can tell you, meanwhile, trying to bring the car home to the finish, Lehtinen right now, as we see him making his way on past there, the traffic is not falling favourably for Lehtinen at all. That gap between himself and Daryl Young is now up to 4.1 seconds. It has almost doubled in the space of 2 laps, and that is just misfortune, because the laps of Lehtinen, he's not made any mistakes, he's just had to back off, where Daryl Young's been able to push at the most critical part of the lap. And that's the frustration, of course, with multi-class racing, in the fact that when the traffic falls at the worst possible places, it does not help you in your conquest to chase after the next driver in the road. And of course, it's ever more painful when you're chasing after the race win, and it's the winner who's your next target. But speaking of hitting targets, targets here. We do look to P10 for Mike Landreth right now as he makes his way on through, and he is chasing after old rival of Denise Pope. And Denise Pope on that last lap of 49.4, I think there was a mistake on circuit somewhere, and Landreth chasing after the Wild Things Racing driver. We see here as the Ember Racing driver in hot pursuit into the bus stop chicane, and as they roll the way on through, Landreth definitely looking comfortable right now. And I think he's found that zone in the car. In fact, he just took another 3 attempts out Pope in the run through turns 1 through to 4, and as they make the way down through 5, it does look as though the Ember Racing driver here, this is what he's been building up to. I think all the way through the early stage of the race, we had a lot of fuel in the car. He wasn't comfortable in it, but now the car's lighter, the fuel's been taken out of the car. He's on a fresher set of tyres, of course. Well, the fact he pitted around what was, if my memory serves me correctly, the 75-minute remaining mark. It may have been a little bit earlier than that in the race, but given he's had that pit stop and he's got less fuel, he can now push the car more, and you can see, whereas early he had those understeer woes, particularly in these banked corners, and turn 7 was one where he really struggled with that front end. That front end now is not coming back to haunt him. If anything, it's really hooked up Pope by comparison, however. Does seem to be struggling a little bit here, but to be fair, perhaps it's just a small blip. You never know. At the end of the day, it could just be, given the fact they've all been running for so long. And as we said earlier, fatigue does start to come into it at this point of the race when you have got just under what is 40 minutes ago. You've got just over half an hour. When you're almost there, you start to lose that concentration a little bit. You've got to try and keep your focus. You've got to keep your head down and keep on pushing. And as they push their way around, I can tell you one thing right now. He's served 2 pit stops here. He's put the fuel in to go to the end. Harry Phillips, it was a short stop, but as he's made his way back around, in fact, was it a short stop? We've got a timer here saying it was a 32-second stop, so he's got a fresh set of tyres once again, but he's come back out in P5, and he's just at the best lap of the race, a 43.942, and he's just gone even faster with a 43.775. That is the fastest lap set. Oh my good lord, Edward Phillips wanted to show to everyone that he is the master of Watkins Glen in this series. I don't think we have any doubts of that now, and he is flying, but the problem is he has left this incredibly late in the day, and now he has got a whole minute and 10 seconds, so 70 seconds to close up to Daryl Young right now. I can't see him gaining the win of this race given 35 minutes left, unless we have a huge battle between Young and Lehtinen all the way from now to the finish, which strips multiple seconds a lap out. But what I can imagine is that if Phillips is feeding feisty, he'll be going after Condé very shortly, who is 6 seconds up the road, Callum Condé in P4, and then with Austin only 11 seconds up the road, he'll be looking to be on that final step of the podium. But he is absolutely flying right now. Nobody else is lapping anywhere near close. The closest you'll get are low 45s as are being delivered right now by Marcus Fox. Everybody else high 45s or slower here. Phillips is just in a world of his own. Meanwhile, Fabian Carr there has had a bit of an error, I think, at turn number 6 as he's let Richard Pixley through. What's happened here for the Advisor machine? Well, this was moments ago as we take a look back and we ride on board, rolling his way out the bus stop chicane. Carr didn't look too hooked up there, to be fair. He able to take a safe line, and it didn't quite meet the apex at turn number 5. Coming into 6 with some marbles of the car and a little bit of a dip to the grass. Oh, goodness me, that's a major whack to the wall there for what is the Advisor machine, and I would not be surprised if that's a potential risk of a meatball flag. I think they're being given permission to carry on running, but that minor moment, just a tap to the grass, has cost them very dearly. We're not seeing any meatball flags, or what we should refer to as the black and orange flags there in the colour nomenclature, which means that the car's unsafe to drive on circuit. You need to bring it into the pits within X number of laps. It's normally within 2 laps, but Fabian Carr into the pits. Yeah, I think there was a black and orange flag waving at the stewards, or sorry, the marshal's post there on the exit of turn 10, and the 934 driver's got repair work to do to the car as he comes on it, which is unfortunate given they were hunting a top 10 finish here today. But still, a small mistake. It hasn't cost them completely, but it's cost them significantly dearly. But meanwhile, speaking of being costed dearly, it is the case. We looked at Phillips here, and right now, on that last lap, he took 3.5 seconds out of this man, Callum Condé, right now, the off-pace motorsports driver. When Phillips is there, I have to ask this question: will he have anything he can throw at Phillips to try and keep the Wild Things Racing driver at bay? Well, the only thing he does have to his advantage is that Aston Martin hooks up very nicely on corner exit down the straightaways. It's got a lot of punch in the lower gears now, and can he use that to beat the Porsche? Well, you can see, look at Phillips coming through turn number 7. It's almost as if he's in a different sphere, and as they make the way out of the corner right now, charging on down the back straight here. Well, Phillips isn't close enough at the moment, but we ride on board here with Conde, and this will give you a sense of perspective of the difference in line. Remember that Conde is running on a set of tyres which have already seen at least 40 minutes of racing action and lap time, whereas Phillips is on a set of tyres, as we understand it, that have only seen about 5 minutes. And look at the exit there. Phillips is going to go around the outside. Now this is cheeky stuff from Phillips to go round the outside, but between the BMW M2 there over what was Chris Carr and Callum Conde. But to be fair, I think Conde recognised him well before the move was made. Look, this is not happening. I'd rather focus on bringing home P5, and I think Conde having his heart in the right place in terms of wanting that P5 for off-pace motorsports. They've earned this P5 after what has been 2 very difficult rounds. They're going to earn that P5 as they carry on this way. Phillips up to P4, 15 seconds now to Lehtinen Austin in P3. As they make the way on down and around here, Conde flying right now in terms of that relative pace versus Ricardo McKing. And here comes McKing, and he has got Daniel Austin's close line for that P6. We hear that Chris McKenna's had an off track somewhere on circuit. In fact, I think it's at the bus stop chicane. And meanwhile, there is Austin's in the rear of your picture, and there's also a little bit further back, I believe, our race leader in the form of Daryl Young, and indeed second place closing up. So this will be interesting. What Austin's will need to try and do here is try and close up to McKing before what is Daryl Young can get close enough to really interfere. Alternatively, what Austin's may think about doing is just simply letting Young go nice and early, so that way it doesn't interfere with his aspirations too long, because you can imagine if Daryl Young decides to come on through in an opportune moment, Austin's will lose a lot of momentum, and he's got momentum on his side right now. That's the one thing you do not want to lose as he makes his way on down the back straight here up towards the bus stop chicane. But as he does, it is the case our leader's getting closer. You can see Daryl Young there flashing his lights briefly, I think trying to give a distant signal there to what is Austin's to say, look, I'm coming, I'm a couple of seconds behind you right now, but I'm not going to be too far back before I'm there right on your 6 as he makes his way on through. Of course, for Daryl Young, he does not have time to waste in the fact that now they're both in clear air. So Kerry Lehtinen is matching Daryl Young's pace, and therefore that is the sign of what is to come, of course, because they'll be matching right now. But you can imagine that final 20 to 15 minutes. So Kerry Lehtinen should, on theory and in paper, be the one who is able to outpace the Audi driver in front of him. And as they roll the way on through this time, no gain at the moment from Lehtinen. They're both on very similar lap times, the pair of them. And meanwhile, we look to our BMW M2 class by comparison as we hear that Mike Landreth into the pits for a second and final stop. That's unfortunately it's going to drop outside the top 10 for certain, as we're to understand. Pixley will then jump into P10 by comparison. Alex Nunes right now, your BMW M2 leader. I think he's just hoping to stay out of everybody's way here, as we do see what is Ricardo McKing getting close in the run through turn number 10, but Nunes staying there in the middle of the road, making sure to make it clear to Austin's, look, there's no way through on the inside, and Austin's goes all the way round the houses, and then Nunes moves out the way there for Daryl Young, and Nunes navigating that one well indeed. All of our GT3 drivers also responding accordingly, and with Mike Landreth in the pit lane right now, he's still dropping down the order. In fact, he's leaving the pit lane. Here he comes. He's going to drop down to P11, and where is Chris Black by comparison? And Chris Black is only coming to the final corner right now. So Landreth's safe in that P11, but of course he's got a long way to go if he wants to try and get back at Pixley for P10. Unless Pixley has another stop on the cards, but we expect not. But as they make the way through, to answer your question there, Forzy, in the Twitch chat, this is on the PC version of Assetto Corsa Competizione, indeed available on next generation consoles and also PC, but we are on the PC platform at the Watkins Glen circuit here today. And as we see Chris Black find his way through, and Marcus Fox coming on through, and Fox flying through there, and Fox in fact has got back up to and made the pass there on Chris Black, and now up to P12, and the Honda NSX driver absolutely flying. As meanwhile, we had a bit of an instant here for Daniel Austin's. I think that's Daryl Young coming on through, but the key factor here as we ride on board with Austin's is he's close to Ricardo McKing here in the battle for P6, and of course it's the battle of the Aston Martins. It's the old school V12 in front versus the young kid on the block, the V8 behind, and we're right on board with the V8 Vantage as they make the way down the back straight here, all the way up towards turn number 8. But as they do, what Austin's will have is the better performance through the corners here. Meanwhile, what McKing will have by comparison is that straight line acceleration. That Aston Martin in front absolutely flies with 6-litre V12 engine down the straights, but of course there's plenty of corners at Watkins Glen alongside straightaways, and therefore it's going to be a shape up between the two. But the form and paper says that Austin's is a second a lap faster, but can he make it count now? In looking for the move, we can see that McKing goes a little bit deep, and Austin's goes for a nice early break here into turn number 11. He's going to try and carry the momentum through. It's very close to the wall. It's got a lot of momentum here at the run down towards turn number 1, but McKing immediately goes defensive in 9. He's got the speed to be able to hold that inside line. He peels back onto the inside, onto the racing line, we should say there, and Austin's now will look to try and get the best possible exit here to stay as close as possible he surely will not have enough in the tank to be able to make the move into the bus stop chicane. And in fact, you can see as they make the way through turns 2 and 3. And in fact, we get the jump to the helicam here. This will give you a sense of perspective how that V12 Vantage just is able to pull away by about a tenth up the straight here, despite the fact that Austin's is well in the tow. But as they now make the way into the bus stop chicane, this is where you'll see the lead car really struggle to get their front end through the apex. And Austin's is right there as they make the way to turn number 5. But of course, the thing is, the run out of the bus stop chicane into turn 5, there's not really a place you can make a move into 5 unless the driver in front's made a mistake. But now into turn number 6, and Austin's here will be thinking about that inside line. He doesn't go for it in the end, but he's waiting for the turn 7 or turn number 8 instead as they roll the way down the hill out to 6, up towards 7 as they head in towards the braking zone here. Austin's literally all over the back of his rival, but of course, it's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass, as the famous and late Murray Walker said. And right now, Austin's will know all about that. He's been in this situation multiple times today where he's had the pace in terms of clear air, but he's just not been able to find a way through versus drivers when it's really mattered. And as they make the way through turn number 8 here, and of course, not to discredit Daniel, since it's been a phenomenal performance. He's had to dig very deep here, of course, recovering since the start of the race, but it is the case he just does not seem to have that final 10% in the car to be able to make those moves when he's this close, and he stays behind what is Ricardo McKenna for the time being. As they make the way out to the final 2 quarters very shortly and onto what for them will be lap number 66. It is the case, Austin's again very close on quarter exit here, but still plenty of time to go as they head across that timeline. He takes the peak but no way through, and meanwhile behind you can see Sakiri Lehtinen there, 4.3 seconds behind Daryl Young. And meanwhile, Austin gets a much better exit out on 1 versus McKenna. He's going to have his nose up the inside into turn number 2. It's going to be a drag race here between the two of them in the run up the hill. They'll go side by side as they make the way through 3 and into 4. Austin's has the inside here, but McKenna has the straight line speed. Who's going to come out on top in the run to what is the braking zone? We'd imagine Austin's is going to outbrake his right. He's got the inside, he's got the better brakes by comparison, but in the end he's not quite able to get it done. In fact, McKenna shuts the door there, and well, McKenna shows you can go late under braking in the V12, and as they roll their way down through turn number 5 right now, Lehtinen sandwiches his way between the two of them and says, look, sorry guys, I hate to break it up, but I've got a race to win here, as they make their way down into turn number 6. And Lehtinen right now be hoping they can cover on the inside here versus McKenna, and in return, look at this of Austin's. Austin's immediately capitalising on the space that's opened up for him, and McKenna's not got a response there. He's just not got enough straight in order to get the speed he needs to stay on the inside into turn 7. And Daniel Austin uses the door that was open there by the lead lap driver of Sakiri Lehtinen to gain P6. That's smart driving there from Daniel Austin, and he's up a position, and now he's got to go hunting after Callum Conde, who by comparison, Conde right now is a sizable 30 seconds or so up the road. So I think for Austin, it's P6 and that's it, unless Conde has an absolute moan out on circuit, or indeed any of our top 5 decide to make an extended pit stop. But of course, it's not over until the checkered flag waves, so they cross that finish line. Anything can happen. As they make the way on around here, speaking of anything that can happen, it is the case that Harry Phillips, as he rolls his way out of turn number 5 and up towards 6 at this point, continuing to fly, it must be said. Right now, lapping in those mid-44s, chasing after Leighton Austin. He is 6.5 seconds of Austin as it currently stands. That gap will be updated shortly, but here is Leighton Austin's making his way out of turn number 7, and Phillips just a little bit further behind. And in fact, as we look to the distant camera shot here, you can see Phillips just coming out of the corner. Meanwhile, Austin, by comparison, making his way into turn number 8, and that gap is continuing to trickle down at a very rapid rate, like a waterfall here. In the fact, it's now down to 5.3 seconds, and Phillips is showing no quarter when it comes to chasing after that final spot at the podium. And for Leighton Austin at this point, well, given the fact he's trying to one-stop this, indeed all of our top 3 are trying to one-stop this race, Leighton Austin, to be fair to him, is a sizable, we believe, about 45 seconds off of the top 2. You can imagine it, when Harry Phillips gets into P3, that will be it in terms of as far as he can potentially go in this race, unless one of our top 2 have a major moment and have to retire, or a pit stop, which really costs them massive time. But right now, Leighton Austin just trying to do everything, and I would imagine he's going to defend as much as possible versus Phillips when Phillips gets close enough. But of course, we've got to wait a little bit longer for that. But speaking of waiting, of course, we look over to Alex Nunes here, just ahead of Leighton Austin on circuit. And the P18 driver here, the leader of the BMW M2 CS class, right now only 23 minutes on the final lap away from picking up the win he's so much waited for over the course of the season so far. But he's got to take it easy each and every lap. He's just got to be mindful of the GT3s that they come from. The GT3s need to be mindful of him, of course. It's a two-way street, and as they make the way down through turn number 5 right now, Nunes not pushing too hard. To be fair, he doesn't need to push hard at all. He has got almost a minute's gap to Andrew Pike from the Sim Racing Collective in P19, P2 in the BMW M2 CS class right now. All Nunes needs to do is bring it home, and as they make the way around, I'm very sorry to report, ladies and gentlemen, we have lost Chris Carr from what was the fresh Sim Racing team. They've had to retire, and that happened about 6 laps ago. We've now only got 21 cars out on circuit. We've had our first BMW M2 CS retirement, and it is Chris Carr from the fresh Sim Racing team, who was running P4 in class at the time ahead of Evan Natafas, and Natafas is into the pit lane here for a scheduled stop. I think it's the case they're going to put in some fuel to go to the end. Perhaps the car was underfueled slightly, but Natafas here up to P4 and looking to bring that P4 home. As we look from him to what is here, Callum Conde, was that a little bit of an off-track only moments ago as we're to understand it. It is going very deep into turn number, well, he's going, there's damage to that car. Callum Conde into the wall at some point, I believe. In fact, I'm hearing in my ear right now, that was in the run through the bus stop. She came down to 5, and Callum Conde, that's damage to Aston Martin, and that is going to mean at this point, well, Daniel Austin's right now is 32 seconds away and closing very rapidly by well, in fact, not 32 seconds, my apologies. He is at this point in time 14 seconds away and closing very dramatically. And right now, Callum Conde is having the lap from hell in terms of the fact it was looking so good for P5. He's got to try and get that car home. And here comes Daniel Austin's up through turn number 9 right now. And Austin's will be seeing a top 5 finish in his sights with 21.5 minutes to go as they make the way through turn number 10. And as they roll the way through right now, it is 10 o'clock in the morning local time. Track temperature continues to come on up. It's out to 80 degrees centigrade, ambient at 60 degrees centigrade. It is getting hot here, and that may be starting to see some of the tyre pressures move out the optimum window for some of our drivers, given the fact that these DHE Pirelli tyres are very sensitive to temperatures and they have a very sensitive operating window as well. But Daniel Austin is flying. He's up to P5. Ricardo McKing moves up to P6 as well. And meanwhile, behind, Scott Ticehurst charging after McKing. And right now, Ticehurst makes his way on through. He's lapping 2 seconds a lap faster than McKing in front. And you would have to imagine that Ticehurst will definitely have that Aston Martin in his sights and that P6 finish well in his sights with just over 20 minutes to go. But as they make the way on through, let's give you a quick update on what's happening right up front. And Darryl Young is still your leader by 4.4 seconds. And he has been keeping that gap comfortably above 4 seconds. And here is Sakari Lehtinen, the Team Honda Racing, a Lehtinen Racing driver here from Finland in the 30 car. It is the case that he has got some clear air. He's putting in the laps. But the problem for him is every time he's putting in 1 or 2 good laps that start to bring that gap down, he finds traffic, and that traffic just never seems to fall favourably for him. It always seems to fall favourably for Darryl Young. That's the way it goes, of course, but Lehtinen right now is definitely starting to show stronger lap time, albeit on this lap so far he's actually lost 8. He's now 5 seconds back from Darryl Young. Young seems to be on his way to victory with 20 minutes to go, but it's not over yet as we hear that Callum Conde is still in the pit lane being repaired. The car is still having work done to it, and that is going to release so many more drivers up into the top 8 positions. Denise Pope now up into P8. In fact, Conde down to P10 now. We hear that is the case that what is Richard Pixley moving on up here. So Conde is going to have about, I'd say, 18 minutes, depending on how long that repair work takes. And of course, they'll be putting fresh tyres and some fuel in the car, but Conde will have one objective, and that is to go racing as if it's a qualifying session to try and get as many places back. And there will be some targets he can take that would be arguably easy pickings, given the fact that they'll be on much older tyres and on cars that have seen better days in terms of their status. Meanwhile, Conde will have a car that's been repaired and he can go racing in it, as we're hearing that Evan Natafas is having an extended pit stop, and I think Natafas may have an issue with the car that they're trying to fix in the pit lane. He's the last of our runners out of the circuit, still in P21 and P4 in the BMW M2 class. As we do see Sakari Lehtinen here rolling his way on through it. We do look to Harry Phillips by comparison, trying to get to P3. And here is Leighton Austin, who has to defend versus the Porsche driver. Well, as we ride on board here with Phillips, coming out to turn number 9, he gets the better run out the corner. He swings to the inside here. In fact, we look back to the exterior cameras. He can't get close enough to outrun the BMW M4 to turn 10. But as they head into turn number 11 here, the Quantum Racing team driver of Leighton Austin trying to hold on. But Phillips gets a better run. Leighton Austin makes contact with the wall and corner exit there. And as they come across the line and onto another lap, 18.5 minutes to go. Phillips on the inside, Lehtinen Austin on the outside here, but Phillips still not able to get the move done. He has to back out, and I think he recognises there's no point making the move at turn 1. He's only going to lose out in the run to the bus stop chicane. Instead, he needs to be all over the back. As we're in that Denise Pope is into the pit lane. Surely we've not got another stop on the cards for the majority of our drivers here. That would be a very late turn to the race, but meanwhile, Harry Phillips all over the back of Lehtinen Austin here, but look at the speed that Lehtinen Austin's carrying in that BMW M4 as they make their way towards the bus stop chicane. He puts the car in the middle of the road there to make sure that Phillips can't do any trickery with regards to trying to get a cutback run, and as they make the way down into turn number 5 right now, well, Phillips will need to get it done in this part of the lap, the latter half, where the Porsche will have that advantage in handling, and he'll need to get it sooner rather than later, because otherwise Lehtinen Austin could come back at him on the next lap in the run up towards the bus stop chicane. And this is the thing right now from Lehtinen Austin. He's definitely digging deep and delivering well. As we see Harry Phillips there taking a bit of grass. He's pushing so hard as they roll their way down into turn number 7 and up around the crest they go. But Lehtinen Austin, by comparison here, definitely keeping Harry Phillips honest as they make the way on out. And in fact, as in this drag race, you can see Phillips initially peels on out here to try and drag race his way up towards turn number 8. He's got the inside look here on the brakes, but he has to back out once again. He's just not got enough leverage despite the stronger tyres and despite the fact he's got the brakes in that Porsche. Lehtinen Austin covers him off there in the run. In fact, we get Andrew Pike then materialise on the right side of our picture there, both of them making their way around the second place run in the BMW M2 class. And as they make the way into turn number 10 this time, Phillips waits his turn at once more. But beautiful angle, this gives you the perspective of how the Porsche is closed up on the corners very dramatically. But as soon as we get onto those straights, the BMW just able to open that gap up. And again here through turn number 11, all the way down the start finish straight, Phillips just does not have a response to this. As we're hearing that Denise Pope has left the pit lane and is now running in all good as well. I think in fact Pope is running in P9 at this point in time and making her way on around. As we do see here, Lehtinen Austin trying to continue to break away. Phillips a lot closer this time, very close in fact. And when he's this close, that toe is going to be huge. Now, can he time it right then? The Colex GG Wildwings Racing Machine to get the move on the inside here. Well, Lehtinen Austin covers him off as they make the way in the long run. You can see Phillips literally pinning him to the inside. And then as they roll the way on through, oh, goodness me! And Phillips gets it wrong. And the car is turned. Now, was there contact or was it just the curb and he's hit it too hard? We'll have to wait to find out surely. But Phillips there with a very rare mistake. There's more drama in the fact that your race leader is into the pits. Darryl Young comes on in and will surely, this is to take off fuel, and if he's going to put on another set of tyres, then will he be yielding the win to Sakiri Lehtinen here with 16 minutes to go? He makes his way on in, and Sakiri Lehtinen right now leads this race. Remember, he went much longer on his opening stint compared to everybody else. Now, can he bring it to the finish, or is there a pit stop on the cards for him? As he makes his way down the back straight here, all the way out towards turn number 5, when in fact it's going to be the bus stop chicane first. It is the case, doing everything he can at this point in time, but Lehtinen right now must be thinking, surely if he's on that one stop, which we thought so many drivers would be on, but it seems as though the 2 stop is creeping in for so many. This is now all about Lehtinen not dropping it at all. He's got to just run this all the way through. I can tell you it is the case that Darryl Young has only put fuel in the car. The car was under-fueled, but that pit stop alone has set him back a very long time. It will set him back somewhere in the region of 30 seconds off of the back of what is Lehtinen, unless I'm very much mistaken. In fact, I may be quite heavily mistaken. No, I am correct in that regard. I think it is the fact as he makes his way on through here, it is the case that Darryl Young a long way back as he rolls his way on through. It is the case, making its way down for turn number 5 at this point. We're waiting for our time screen to be updated here, but I do think for Darryl Young, he is about 20 to 30 seconds back of Lehtinen. And well, now the question is, can Lehtinen go to the end, or will it be the case that there's another surprise in store here with little time remaining? Meanwhile, speaking of surprises, well, this is one that the V12 Vantage guys at Dutch Endurance Racing Gold will not have wanted, and that is to have Scott Tysust all over their 6, as they've only got 14 minutes to go. And you can see that on the time screen, it is 38 seconds between Sakiri Lehtinen and Darryl Young in the battle for the win. And well, it's all fading away, or is it? As we hear that Daniel Ostens is into the pit lane as well. Meanwhile, they make their way on through here. Tysust scrambling to try and get as close as possible to the back of the Vantage. And this is everyone putting their battle in for P5 now, with Ostens into the pits and Tysust up the inside. McKenna squeezes him as much as possible. Now it's a drag race here, and this is what the Aston Martin will do best. It will out-drag the Audi as they make their way out the hill. And look at the speed It's carrying away already out of turn 1. In fact, he's already got himself about 2 tenths ahead, and that's only before they get to the kink of 2. To be fair, Ticehurst was on that inside, so he would have had a compromised exit and therefore not been able to build the speed as rapidly, but still, that Aston is absolutely flying. We know that Audi is fast, but it's nowhere near as fast as that Aston on the straights here, and Ticehurst has got to find another way on through. Meanwhile, Landriff all over the back of Marcus Fox, and Marcus Fox, to be fair, despite taking 2 stops and also it's on the opening lap, Fox now up into the top 10. He's in P9 just ahead of Landriff, and you'd imagine that Landriff here, he's had to come into the pits to put in a bit of fuel, but otherwise he's going to the end is Landriff, and as he makes his way down through turn number 6 right now, it is all kicking off. Do we have any more last minute pit stops potentially here? Well, we can see that Mckenna is holding on versus Ticehurst as they make the way out of turn number 7, and in fact we ride on board with Ticehurst here as he gives his pursuit of the Aston Martin in front. And as they roll the way through, you can see the difference in the body language of the cars through the corners. That Aston Martin is like a bathtub being turned through the corners in terms of it just wants to point in a direction. You have to try and force it for the apexes, whereas the Audi much more fluid in that transition on the direction change. And Ticehurst here taking a peak, seeing where he could potentially get into the head of his rival, but the thing is, he just needs to be really close right now. He's got to use these corners to close up and then get the run on the straight. And when I say the run, just be so close as we see they come out the corner here, and well, Mckenna a little bit over the road there, just trying to get the power on down, but they make their way down towards turn number 1 at this point. Ticehurst very close, looks to move into the corner, he tries to brake as late as possible, and Mckenna covers him off there, and Mckenna brings him too, but Ticehurst there jumps off the road down. I think it's the case, trying to carry the speed on through. He's decided to do that in order to back off a little bit from the Aston Martin, which this is smart driving from Ticehurst, in the fact he's used that runoff area in order to give himself a better tow line all the way out towards the bus stop chicane. I think the stewards will allow it once, but they may frown upon it if it's done regularly. But as he makes his way all the way out towards the bus stop chicane, it is the case nowhere near close enough at the moment as they make the way through. And well, Daniel Austin's meanwhile, he took that pit stop, he's dropped back to P7 after his second stop. So it is the case that Austin's will be trying to catch up to this group. He's got a long way to go as well. All these battles really opening up. And as we see here, Ticehurst all over the back of what is Mckenna here in the battle for P5, where it's absolutely do or die right now for the Dutch Endurance Gold Racing team, and indeed for Ticehurst as well. They both want this P5 finish. They'll both argue they deserve it, given how hard they've had to dig over the course of this race. Ticehurst especially, he would argue, given the fact that he's had to come from a long way back and also get the jump on everyone, particularly the fact that Mckenna has only made 1 stop, whereas Ticehurst has had to make 2. But we still do have 11 minutes to go. Could we see any more last-minute stops creep their way into this race? Well, I can tell you that Daryl Young, since his pit stop to put fuel in the car, he is not going faster. Lehtinen is outpacing him, and it is looking as though that win is only going one way, and it is going to the Lehtinen Racing, as now we have only a limited amount of time remaining, and Daryl Young is looking to be at P2 at this point, as we're hearing that Harry Phillips has dropped back from Leighton Austin, of course, after that incident, but he is trying to catch back up in the battle for P3, but we continue to focus here on the battle for P5. And meanwhile, in the BMW M2 class, things have spaced out considerably. There's no battles on the horizon there at this time. But Ticehurst this time getting very close. A little bit of a tap there to the rear of Mckenna's Aston. But as they make the way on through here, you can see he's got to be that close. He literally has to be within touching distance of the back of the Aston to get the speed all the way up the hill. And as they come charging on through this time, we're hearing there's been an incident involving Andrew Pite, the Sim Racing collector machine, out of the circuit. And you can see Marcus Fox behind here. And Fox is a lap down on these guys, to put it in context, but he's trying to unlap himself from them, but he doesn't want to get too heavily involved, of course, because they are battling on the lead lap relative to him. And as they make the way through, we look to what is Harry Phillips, meanwhile, closing up to the back of Leighton Austin into turn 1, but we've been here before, and the last time it was the case Phillips could get close, he could keep looking to make those moves, but he couldn't get the move done versus Leighton Austin. But now time has worn on, we've still got a few more minutes to go here. Can Phillips find his way back onto the final step of the podium? Well, they've got a bit of traffic to negotiate, as that is the half-practice hero machine of Yusa Luna there, running in P3 in the BMW M2 class that steers clear. And as they make the way down the back straight, here it is the case that Phillips getting closer and closer, but not close enough again. We're on his way on through. We're hearing that Callum Conde has found his way past Mike Landriff coming out of turn number 7, and will we take a look back at what exactly happened there. And this was only moments ago. The off-pace motorsports team, of course, and the Aston Martin trying to find the way through after looking to be a certain for a top 5 finish, but a moment around here cost them dearly. But looking at the inside of Landreth on the outside there, I think he tried to bring the car back across, but then saw he had the Aston on his inside and thought, right, there's no way I can defend that. I've got to try and get the momentum out the corner. But nailing turn 7, Callum Conde, and just running away with that final spot inside the top 10. His next target will be Marcus Fox. And where is Marcus Fox in relation to him? Fox is only 5 seconds up the road, and you can see Fox has just gone under our camera, and Callum Conde runs down to turn number 1 as we return to those live pictures. But meanwhile, speaking of live pictures here, it is the case that Harry Phillips trying to keep that P3 hope alive as he tries to just find a way to get into the head of Lehtinen Austin. And in front of them, there's Richard Pixley running in P13 right now. And Pixley, well, he's had the blue flags waving here, and he'll want to help his teammate out as much as he can, but of course he can't help his teammate out as to obscure or obstruct Lehtinen Austin's race. But I think Lehtinen Austin's made a little bit of an error there coming out to the corner of what is turn number 11, and in fact Phillips is the closest he's ever going to get at this point into turn 1, but no way through. And again, it is the case that Lehtinen Austin just able to outpower the Porsche Harry Phillips and the BMW M4 all the way. But as they head up through turns 1 and 2 now, Phillips gets a much better run out of turn 1, and as they head through turns 2 and 3, you can see the BMW started to pull ahead in the acceleration stakes as they make the way up towards turn number 5. Before they got the bus stop chicane, of course, but again, the BMW stays strong. Meanwhile, Scott Ticehurst has found his way ahead of Ricardo McKenna. It's happened off camera, but McKenna has fallen to P6, Ticehurst up to P5 in the final stages of this race. But as they roll the way around here, there's a long gap to Daniel Austin, so I think they're both safe from the fast charging Austins as they make the way on around. A bit further back, however, we've got Chris Black and also Richard Pixley, who are both involved in little incidents, and I think they've just been slowing down to let other drivers on through. As Chris Black here makes his way on through in P12 at this point, not really racing anybody, just trying to bring the car home to the end. The closest battle we do have on circuit at this time is the battle for P3, and we'll stay with that for a little bit longer, and in particular Harry Phillips trying to find his way past Lehtinen Austin as we ride on board with Harry Phillips. And as he rolls his way into turn at number 8, what we're starting to see now after that mistake, of course, that instant of what was the bus stop chicane about 5 to 7 laps ago, Phillips now doesn't have as much tyre life to play with, given the fact that that skid or that slide across the bus stop chicane will have seen those tyres flat spotted to an extent. And what that will mean for Harry Phillips now is he's got to be careful on the tyres, because they will be a bit more sensitive to when he pushes them hard, and that sensitivity can hurt the car. There can be some micro vibrations in the tyre. But as he makes his way down the start of the straight here, you can see how close he gets to that M4, almost close enough to think about a move. Will he go for it all in? No, he has to wait for it once again, and you can see Lehtinen Austin on really old tyres struggling to get the car to finish. But this is the drag race here, and we'll ride on board now. Imagine Lehtinen Austin's on the left-hand side of your camera. You can't see him at the moment, but as they roll the way on through, here comes Lehtinen Austin again. They're side by side in the drag race all the way up towards the corner. We sit a little bit further back now inside the cockpit, and that gives you the perspective of how much the BMW M4 is just pulling on these straights compared to the Porsche 991. And as Phillips takes a huge amount of apex curve there to the bus stop chicane, once again he is thwarted in the run to the chicane, and you can see Lehtinen Austin is struggling to get the car to carry speed through the corners. Those tyres are knackered on that M4. They have seen far better days, and you can imagine that Lehtinen Austin would wish that the race would end now. 5 minutes left, and he's got no tyres left. It is just gone. And as they make the way up towards turn number 7 at this point, Phillips trying to force Lehtinen Austin to outbrake himself there, but Lehtinen Austin just hooks up, parks the car in apex. Phillips has to wait as they come out of the corner, tucks in behind once again as they charge their way out of turn number 7 and head down towards 8. But Phillips trying every trick of the book right now within reason, playing it smart, playing it sensible as he rolls his way through turn number 8, but no way through at the moment. Meanwhile, we are hearing off camera that Sakiri Lehtinen and our race leaders had a bit of a moment. In fact, he was just lifted off to let an M2. We'll try to go past the M2, but meanwhile we jump back to this battle for P3. We thought there might be a yellow flag associated with that, but Lehtinen just simply lifted off to give the space to what was there the M2 driver, our race leader in the M2 class, Alex Nunes. And as they roll their way through turn number 11 at this point, it is the case that Lehtinen Austin right now having to do everything he can. 4.5 minutes left on the clock, and the Quantum Racing team driver right now in really probably the hardest defense of his life. And the thing is, he knows where the car's stronger than the Porsche behind him, and he knows where he's got to hook it up by comparison, in terms of he's just got to get the car parked on the medium to low speed apex. And if he can keep doing that for another 3 laps, he should, we say should, have that P3. He's flashing his lights there for Chris Black to say to Chris Black, look, I'm coming. And well, Chris Black, they will have to wait and see whether he responds as they head into the chicane. He's able to get Chris Black between himself and Phillips, but you can imagine that Black will probably respond to Phillips coming on through very shortly. In fact, he does, as Phillips comes on through. No time lost or gained there for either driver, and as they make the way around, that battle rages on. As they head on down at this point, we do see where's our P14 driver Fabian Carr here from Advisor Racing Team running to the finish here in P14, and Jan Barth in there in the YouTube chat saying great drive from Fabian. He is a beginner in the set of course of competition. Indeed, this league, much like all leagues run by Rapid Drivers Club, open to beginners, amateurs and also professionals, and it is the case here. The rookie having a good race, had a little bit of a moment at what was turn number 6, but still got the car back to the pits, got it repaired, and pressing on to the very end. Indeed, all our drivers right now trying to charge it home to the end, including Richard Pixley here, going hunting after Chris Black. 1.5 seconds up the road, but they of course have just had to let the battle for P3 run past them at this corner, and as they make the way on through, that battle for P3 continuing. It's the closest battle of the circuit, hence why we're staying with it. And as they make the way on through, this is the battle as we see Phillips up the inside there, and I think it's the case. Phillips drifts his way through turn number 11. He's gone for it at the last ditch into the corner now. The question is, can Phillips do enough on the exit of 1 and also the run to the bus stop chicane to keep the beastly BMW behind? He defends it to 1 here. Now Leighton Austin has got to gun it on the throttle all the way through and believe in the power of the Flat 6 Turbo as he makes his way all the way up the hill. Now can he get back versus the Porsche, or will it be the case that Phillips has done enough this time? I think he may have done enough. That gap has opened up to half a second. He's closing his Austin, but I don't think he's got enough in the tank here. And as they make the way to the chicane, I think Phillips has got it done. He timed it right. I think he caught Austin by surprise in the run from 10 to 11, got it up the inside, and Austin's not had any counter-attack after that. And Phillips, to be fair, he's had to work that for over 20 laps, and it already has been the name of the game. You can overtake at Watkins Glen, but when a driver decides to defend, if they know this circuit, we get great battles and difficult overtakes being made. But Phillips has finally found his way on through, but he stripped the life out of that fresh set of tyres in order to do it, and he's going to have to settle for that P3 unless we do see a last-minute retirement, because we're not hoping for it. Instead, we are hoping that things finish in a calm procedural battle right now, given the fact that with only 1.5 minutes to go. That would be a huge bludgeon to the heart in terms of heartbreak for anybody who were to retire at this stage. And right now, our race leader, Sakiri Lehtinen, who is on the penultimate lap. I think he would just about squeeze in what is an 82nd lap as he makes his way down through turn number 5 here, running comfortably. And Daryl Young in the end not fueling enough to get to the end compared to Lehtinen. Of course, we presume that the Team Honda Racing, the Team Lehtinen Racing driver, has got enough to go to the end. He's been doing fuel saving and what have you. Of course, that is always a big question that could be on the cards here as he makes his way through turn number 7 here for the penultimate time. We're looking very comfortable in that car as it currently stands. Meanwhile, in P13, we've got Chris Black here from Blacksmith Racing, closing onto the back of Richard Pixley little by little on that last lap. Not able to catch up because he had to let a number of drives on through, but Pixley is within his sights. And could he get into that fight with 2 laps of racing to go for P12? We'll have to wait and see, as Leighton Austin is definitely, now I can confirm, being dropped by Harry Phillips. Meanwhile, Marcus Fox running in what is P9 as we do look for Marcus Fox on the circuit, and there he is chasing after Denise Pope to the finish here. Not long to go and trying to get that move done. But as they roll the way on through, here comes your race leader to go on to the final lap. The white flag is out. He's not stopping there. He's not going to end the race early. One more lap. The leader's on the final lap. Sakiri Lehtinen takes us on to an 82nd and final turn of the circuit in race conditions. And now he's only 1 minute and 45 seconds away from victory here today. And as he charges up the hill, we look back to Denise Pope here under pressure from Marcus Fox as they make their way onto their own final lap. And Fox is going to look around the outside here versus Pope. Pope has not got that much momentum in the run down towards turn 1, but defending hard here here. Fox looks for the cutback as they roll the way on through. But as they do, Fox now getting the better run on the outside here. He'll try and carry the momentum all the way up the hill. Pope's going to make him go wide at turn number 2 here. That will cost him a bit of momentum in the run up the hill. But to be fair, as they come for the left-hander at turn number 3, they're side by side all the way round turn number 4 and up towards the bus stop chicane. Now, who's going to back out? That's the big question here. Well, we know that Pope does like to commit to that defensive line on the inside. And Marcus Fox, to be fair, a sensible and smart racer. Oh, going to spin Pope, gets it wrong. And Fox comes on for him. Pope just not able to get the car stopped in time as they made the way through the chicane, dropping to P9. Fox up to P8 on this recovery drive. And Mike Landreth just recovering after a spin at turn number 1 from what we hear. But not too many turns left to go for your race leader of Sakiri Lehtinen here as he makes his way on down through turn number 8 here. And to be fair, what a race it's been for him. Starting P3, stayed out of trouble on the opening lap, settled in behind Daryl Young in the battle for P2. And after Harry Phillips picked up that stop and go 30-second penalty, the win was on the cards, but it wasn't looking to be his because Daryl Young seemed to have the pace. But Daryl Young was caught out with a lack of fuel in the car, which meant he had to pit. So in the end, there was only one conclusion it could come to. And as he comes through the final corner, here he comes. It's your winner for round number 3 at Watkins Glen. Sakiri Lehtinen from Lehtinen Racing takes the win in the GT3 class and overall ahead of Daryl Young. Meanwhile, it is the case that Alex Nunes has got some way to go before he takes the win in the BMW class. So we wait for Daryl Young, meanwhile, to make his way to the end of his race. We've already heard that Andrew Pike from the Sim Racing Collective has come on through to complete his second place in the BMW M2 class. But as Daryl Young comes on through, turn number 10 here and up towards 11, it is the case it's not the result he wanted. Indeed, many were rooting for him to win after what was a brilliant opening stint and a second stint that looked flawless. But there was a flaw, it was the fuel. But P2 will still be a brilliant achievement for the Wild Things Racing driver. He'll take that with open arms, and then we have a small gap to go until we do have, here comes what is both your P3 finisher and also in the GT3 class, and also your winner in the BMW M2 class. As he drifts his way to line, Harry Phillips will take P3 in the GT3 class. But more importantly right now for Alex Nunes, it is a win in the BMW M2 class. He comes to line for the Rapid Drivers Cup. The Portuguese finally done it on the 3rd time of trying, and nothing has gone wrong today, and he's got the job done. P18 overall, the winning class. Andrew Pike has already completed his race, P2 in the BMW M2 class, and then Yus Luna has crossed the line, P3 for half practice here in the BMW M2 class. A brilliant drive there from the Dutchman from start to finish, the best of rest there, and Evan the toughest will be P4. Meanwhile, Leighton Austin in the end not able to bring home what was that podium, but the Quantum Racing team driver taking a happy P4, and well, he was not expected to be inside the top 5 today. He was thinking about it, but he's delivered in the end, and Scott Ticehurst P5 to complete the top 5 in the GT3 class. A superb drive from Scott Ticehurst, given everything he's had to go up against over the course of this race. Ricardo Mckenna in the end, well, he has brought the V12 Vantage home in P6, and he's doing his cool down lap right now, and I can tell you they're going to be very happy in the Dutch Endurance Team Gold pit lane. And then Daniel Austin's P7 in the end. Not a happy day for Austin's on the whole, but he's recovered it to P7. Marcus Fox P8 in the end. A great drive from Marcus Fox. In fact, I think it was P9. I think we've had some drives already jump out, although we'll have to wait for confirmation on exactly the timings there. It was, and then Denise Pope in what was P9. In fact, I think we've had some drivers jump out, so some of our positions might not be 100% accurate, but Pope in the end with that finish there in P9, and then Callum Condé completing the top 10 there in what was that P10 position. But a brilliant drive from all of them. But to give you that summary then, it was the case. Sakiri Lehtinen P1, Daryl Young P2, Harry Phillips P3. That's the podium for the GT3 class. Leighton Austin P4, Scott Ticehurst P5, Ricardo Mckenna P6, Daniel Austin's P7, Marcus Fox P8, Denise Pope P9, and Callum Condé P10. And then best of the rest, Richard Pixley in P11. And then in the BMW M2 class, it was Alex Nunes taking the win in the end, his maiden win in the season, ahead of Andrew Pike, who was P2 in the BMW M2 class, and Yus Luna completing the BMW M2 podium, with Evan Natafas finishing best of the rest in P4. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as we're waiting for our final driver to come to line, and that's Mike Landreth, I think it's the case, his race has technically finished, but he's in the pit lane. We are going to be right back and get ready for our post-race interviews with our class winners. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are back for our post-round interviews with our class winners, and what a race it has been, and two very different stories today, whether it's in the GT3 class or the BMW M2 class. The big theme, of course, being keeping it consistent and smart all the way to the end, and one guy who knows all about that is our winner in the GT3 class of Sakiri Lehtinen from Lehtinen Racing, and as he joins me in the interview room, Sakiri, a fantastic drive from yourself. Let me put that out there first and foremost to make the one-stop work. It was an absolutely dogged drive all the way through. How does it feel from your perspective, that drive from start to finish? Because you're absolutely flawless.
Yeah, thanks. It was a lot of hard work, and I wasn't really sure if the one stop could be done. I was like 30 liters short on like a full pace, so I had to do a lot of fuel saving. But yeah, that was great fun, and great job to all the drivers out there. That was, yeah, endurance racing at its best.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of that, we'll come on to the race itself very shortly. But qualifying firstly, we saw Harry Phillips seem to be on a planet of his own in terms of qualifying times, out-qualifying the field by half a second. But I have to ask, that P3 in the end, was that the lap you were going for, or do you feel as though there was more in the car?
Not really. I had to run a low wing setup for the fuel saving, obviously. So yeah, that was not a hot lap by any means.
Well, with the qualifying session, of course, you managed to out-qualify your rival of Marcus Fox in the Honda. And I do have to ask, do you see Marcus Fox a little bit of a rival stroke, a benchmark in qualifying? Because we've seen the two of you now share the same row at Donington and also at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, for sure. It's always a rivalry when you have the same car, and yeah, it's nice to be in the front sometimes. And I guess sometimes I'm behind, but yeah.
Oh, indeed. And then coming onto your race, we saw at the start of the race, you tried to go for an early move on Daryl Young. Didn't quite work out, but over the opening 10 minutes, you seemed to shift from wanting to go on the offensive versus Daryl Young to more playing it safe behind and letting the gap stabilise around 5 seconds as we went deeper and deeper into the race. Was your strategy always to beat Daryl Young in the pit stop, or were you thinking more about just protecting the car? Just take us through what your race strategy was.
Well, the main strategy was to save fuel, and like I said, I was well short on if I had done full throttle all the way, and I had to do a lot of fuel saving, more than 10% on a hot lap pace. So yeah, at the start, I tried to like follow Daryl on the straights because it's easier to save fuel when you have like a marker in front, so you know where to lift and where to brake and stuff. And then I felt he had started making mistakes and maybe had drained his tires. So I tried to go for the move, but it didn't work out. And then obviously he ran away afterwards with some traffic and things. But yeah, first stint was always about fuel saving, and then once I made it halfway, I knew I could like do the one stop, and then yeah.
Well, indeed. And then coming on to that one stop, we did see that your pace was indicative of potential fuel saving and what. Did you have a target in mind in terms of you knew how deep you needed to go into the race to be able to achieve that one stop, or was it more of a case of you had to do it by a bit of feeling in terms of, okay, we've done enough, we should be able to get it to the end?
I had calculated the race to be 84 laps, which it wasn't quite, but yeah. So I had a fuel target in mind. The average lap, it was 2.80. So I tried to just keep it there and then, get into a rhythm, because it's obviously quite different when you have to lift and coast a lot. So all your lines change, and yeah, it's definitely a different driving style compared to a normal like full out pace.
Oh, indeed. And then adding into the mix and bringing back your point earlier in terms of this is what endurance racing is all about, and particularly multi-class. We saw a number of moments where, of course, you're coming up around the BMW M2s and even GT3s that are a lap down. Just take us through negotiating that traffic at Watkins Glen, because this circuit, whilst it's quite wide, it's also very narrow at certain points, particularly the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess my strategy of fuel saving made the multi-class and overtaking quite easy, because I could just always like lift a lot behind them on the braking zone, and that would always like be a benefit to my fuel strategy. And then obviously if I could be closer, then I could go a bit faster into the corner and then make the overtake. So it's like easier to judge, in my opinion, the overtakes when you're just fuel saving instead of going like 100% pace.
Oh, indeed. And then coming on to your strategy, of course, we saw the earlier pit stops of most of your GT3 peers, and then you, I think, were the last GT3 to pit for your one and only stop. When you came out, what was in that situation, but ahead of Daryl Young and leading the way, there was a little bit of a moment which saw you lose out the lead. Was it a mistake on circuit, or was there a bit of an incident? We didn't quite catch it on camera.
No, I just we had some traffic and then Daryl was right behind me, so I just lifted on the main straight or the front straight, and then yeah, he went by and I tried to follow him, but obviously he was a bit faster, so I couldn't keep up.
And I have to ask, when he got past yourself and you lifted off, were you thinking to yourself, that guy's on a 2-stop, I've got this? Or were you thinking, is he on a 1-stop, a 2-stop?
Yeah, it's always stressful to like think about that if they're actually on the 1-stop, but I pushed on my in-lap just before the pit stop, and it wasn't really any faster than my fuel saving. So I guess, this is the pace I have, whether or not I fuel save. So yeah, there was nothing really I could do when they're going faster.
Well, indeed, and it was shown in the fact very consistent pace all the way through. And I have to ask, when the time was wearing down and Daryl made that second stop, was there a bit of a smile creeping onto your face, knowing I've got this in the bag? There's now a 40-second gap between you and Daryl, and there's no way you can come back from that.
Well, yeah, for sure. But then obviously I knew if I'd get a drive-through for track limits or something, hit the wall, then it would all be like still all to play for. So yeah, just try to keep focused. But yeah, for sure, that was a relief.
Oh, indeed. And then coming to the finish line to take the win, a absolutely spot-on drive from start to finish. And I do have to ask, of course, now that you are our first double winner of the season, the GT3 class, that makes you our championship leader, unless I'm mistaken. At this point, now that we've only got 2 rounds to go, how's your general feeling, given the fact we saw that brilliant drive from yourself all the way back in our season opener, and now you've picked up the win again today? Do you feel as though the momentum's on your side, or are the circuits we've got coming up not quite your flavour?
Well, I actually have never driven at the Circuit of the Americas, so yeah, it will be a jump into the unknown. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Oh, and we look forward to seeing you take on the Austin, Texas circuit in 2 weeks' time. But until then, Sakiri, absolutely fantastic drive. And just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Well, you put me on the spot here, but I'd say yeah, thanks to all the people, all the drivers out on the track. Yeah, it was really fun to race with you guys.
Well, I'm sure they'll appreciate that. But with that, Sakiri, fantastic driving from yourself. Congratulations on your second win of the season. And we look forward to seeing you out on circuit in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks, see you.
So coming from our GT3 class winner then to our BMW M2 CS class winner of Alex Nunes here. Alex, it's been a long time coming. You were denied in the season opener. You were denied last time out at Donington. But today, you weren't going to be denied. How's it feel to have finally picked up your first win of the season?
Feels good. Spa and Donington were a bit of rough races, unfortunately. But I mean, we go to the next one, right? So if those two don't go the way we want it to, we try and focus on the next one. It was a nice race today, thankfully. Yeah,
Oh,
it was good
indeed.
overall.
And breaking it down into its component parts, qualifying, a very close qualifying session between yourself and Andrew Pike. The Sim Racing Collective guys, of course, always being that thorn in your side in qualifying. At Donington, you were just about able to creep them out to pole. But today, they seem to have 3 attempts on you. Was there a bit of time remaining on the circuit in qualifying?
There was, given the time that I managed to pull in the race, there was a bit more time, but it's hard to extract in these cars. If you go on the throttle just a touch later, you lose a lot of time on the straights. So I'm guessing that's part of what happened. Must have lost it somewhere. But yeah, the TSRC guys are pretty damn quick. We've been racing for a long time, so they're always going to be that thorn, which is good. Competition's good.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of competition, of course, early competition in the race, you didn't quite get the jump on the Sim Racing Collective guys at the race start, but we saw you really hounding them for the first 20 to 25 minutes. And then it was all over in terms of you got ahead of them. There'd been some sort of instant after all the GT3 traffic come through. Just explain what that first half an hour was like from your perspective.
Intense is the word. I was trying to edge out Andrew in some parts of the circuit, but it's tough to get past in these cars. You need the guy ahead to do something bad. Let's put it that way. So for me to overtake Andrew, he lost it on the bus stop chicane. He took too much curb, and then that unsettled the car, and he went into the wall on the left. So that's where I gained the position. If not, I think we'd still be battling out there, to be honest. It's been what's happening in the previous races as well with him and Kieran. So I think we'd still be racing very closely if that didn't happen.
Oh, indeed. And of course, at Donington, we saw it was the case that you were the leader being hounded by them. Today, you were hounding them for the opening duration, but as you say, that mistake by them in the end costing them dearly. And then as we went deeper and deeper into the race, of course, the gap between yourself and what was Andrew Pike continued to open up there. I do have to ask, what's it like from the BMW M2 driver's perspective when you've got that GT3 traffic coming through? Because the difference in speeds between the two cars on the straights is huge.
Yeah, it's really it's scary because in some parts you hear crew chief saying faster car behind, and when you look, he's already there. He's in your bumper. So the bus stop chicane, the last sequence of corners, the left-hander and then the right-hander, those were by far the worst places to get caught by GT3s. The uphill part was actually not as scary as I would have thought, but the chicane and the last sequence was really sketchy.
Oh, indeed. And of course, at Donington, I hate to reopen old wounds, but we did see that incident on the final corner of Donington, which upset your potential win there. Did you have it in your mind when the GT3s were coming that Donington was going to occur? It was sort of going to be a Donington 2.0?
I mean, with multi-class, there's always a chance. So it was not out of my mind, definitely. I had in Donington, I think I had about 14 to 15 seconds ahead of Andrew and Kieran at the time as well. So when I had a similar gap, flashbacks started occurring. So it never goes away.
Oh, indeed. Well, worst, it may never go away. Your racing spirit never went away today. And after the pit stop, of course, it was the Sim Racing Collective guys who seemed to be caught in the entanglements with the GT3s, where you had it clear sailing. So all the way to the finish, I have to ask, how were you keeping your concentration going in terms of the fact that you've got that track that's open to you for about 45 minutes? The guys behind are a long way back. They're 30 plus seconds back. What keeps you from potentially forgetting your brake point or alternatively accidentally backing it off or overdoing it?
Nothing. It's actually a lot easier to lose focus when you're all alone. One of the things I tried to do was focus on the road, not focus on the road, trying to anticipate the cars coming behind the GT3s. But being alone, it's one of my worst management, let's call it that way, because I lose focus pretty rapidly. Unfortunately, that then leads to mistakes, which can then cost you dearly. But the main focus was look at the road and don't go into automatic gears. Just focus, know what you're doing. That was basically it.
Oh, indeed, and that focus in the end saw you cross the line as our winner in the BMW class. And looking ahead, of course, to the final 2 rounds, we're now at the midpoint of the season, 2 very challenging circuits coming up. Do you feel as though you're now on a high of momentum, or is it the case there's still more work to do? Because it's very close between yourself and the combination of Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp in the championship.
I don't think anyone, especially in multi-class environments, can say momentum will get them to the end, because you can be on a high, you get a tap, you get a slight misjudgment, and you're done for. So, I mean, I'll take it one race at a time, see where I'm at compared to the other guys, and then take it from there. It's good to have the win. It's a boost in terms of morale, but we can't let it get to my head. So there's still work to be done.
That's fair play. And speaking of work to be done, how are you feeling for the Circuit of the Americas in round number 4?
It's going to be an interesting one. I've only driven it once. It was in a GT3 car, so the feel is going to be completely different here. I really don't know what to expect yet. So let's see.
Oh, indeed, we will. But just before we do let you go, Alex, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
I mean, the people I should thank is everyone at RDC and all these great drivers that drive with us weekly or bi-weekly in our events. Such a pleasure to have them with us. It's always good fun, even though sometimes can be frustrating. But it's always good to have them with us and exchange these experiences with one another.
Indeed, I'm sure they'll appreciate that sentiment and love all the racing that is put on by the Rapid Drivers Club with yourself and one of the many members at the helm. But with that, Alex, congratulations on your win today. A superb drive from start to finish, and we look forward to seeing you back on circuit in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you, Paul. Have a good one.
You too. So here and there from our winners, starting off, of course, with Lehtinen Racing's Sakari Lehtinen in the GT3 class, and then our winner just then in the BMW M2 CS class of RDC Slowpokes' Alex Nunes there. And, well, it is the case, both drivers not taking anything for granted, just driving determined and dogged races from the finish, from the start to the finish, I should say, with the case that Alex Nunes really having to focus on not becoming distracted or losing his concentration. Meanwhile, Sakari Lehtinen having to focus on that fuel saving and making sure he can make that one stop count when it truly mattered. But both of them in the end putting off a major result and setting themselves up well for round number 4. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. And if you do want to know more about the Rapid Drivers Club community in terms of what we do, the series we run, and everything else in between, then why not check us out at our official Twitter page. That Twitter page there being twitter.com/Rapid Drivers Club. Or if you're more inclined to take a look at our wider social media and website links, you can always go to our link tree. That's linktr.ee/Rapid Drivers Club. We can find out all of our information there. Also, a big thank you to our partners, starting with our sponsor for this series, Wild Things Racing. Their web address there, twitter.com/Wild Things Race. And also to the SimGrid, of course, one of our major partners and affiliates for this series, in the fact that the SimGrid is a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events for a set, of course, of competizione, and also other simulators, including iRacing, rFactor 2, and also Formula 1 2022. And it is the case. If you go to thesimgrid.com, you can find out about all the series hosted on their platform, and indeed the Rapid Drivers Club series hosted on their platform, including this very series as well. So thank you to them. But it is the case now, as mentioned previously, we now need to pack up our bags for round number 4. But rather than making our way out to the United States, we're instead staying in the United States and heading from the state of New York to the state of Texas. That's right, we're going to Austin for the Circuit of the Americas in 2 weeks' time in round number 4. It's Wednesday, the 28th of September 2022, and it is the case that the Circuit of the Americas is a very different different style of circuit compared to Watkins Glen. Whereas Watkins Glen is hard, fast, and all about carrying speed from corner to corner, the circuit in the Americas has a little bit of something for everyone. Some major straights, some major serpentining chicane-style corners, and also some rather heavy hairpins. It is going to be a major test of our drivers, and remember, it is the final circuit before we then have our random circuit, which we'll be selecting we'll be selecting our candidates to that random circuit live on the broadcast in 2 weeks' time as well. So stay tuned. There's plenty of racing to come and plenty to be potentially revealed for the final round. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Rapid Drivers Club. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.